A mother's warm smile masks the dark destiny waiting to shatter her family's peaceful life forever. She assures her young daughter that her uncle is the one who bought her all those beautiful toys. The young black-haired girl clutches her fluffy white bunny plush toy, completely captivated by her mother's words. But peace is a fragile illusion that is about to be utterly crushed by an unforgiving reality. The scene shifts to a breathtakingly grand sunlit palace, hiding cold secrets within its majestic walls. Inside, a heavily sighing noble prepares to face an incredibly annoying family obligation. The red-haired man dismisses his young niece's presence with cold, bitter irritation. The little girl pouts in response, instantly realizing her new guardian is going to be a total nightmare. Sitting proudly amidst crimson spider lilies, the intimidating red-haired duke radiates an aura of pure danger. She absolutely loses her temper when the towering man insults her with a childish nickname. He casually teases her further, mockingly calling her tiny, while she fumes with absolute rage. The red-haired man continues his relentless teasing, throwing out even more ridiculous nicknames just to push her buttons. Clutching her angry-looking brown teddy bear, the girl realizes her uncle is nothing like the hero she imagined. This incredibly frustrating handsome man is none other than her uncle, Castle Delaguerre. Castle Delaguerre casually reminds her that they are forced to live together now, walking away with complete indifference. He coldly declares that raising children is absolutely not his style, leaving her stunned and sweating. He demands her absolute silence and obedience, unaware that she finds his arrogant attitude equally exhausting. He sternly demands a proper response, forcing her to reluctantly agree to his strict rules. He flatly orders her to go find something to eat and stop hovering in his sight. She protests that she has already eaten, but he stubbornly insists she needs to eat more so she stops looking like a peanut. Grasping the door handle, Castle Delaguerre abruptly takes his leave without another word. The heavy wooden door slams shut with a deafening thud, echoing through the empty room. Left all alone, the furious girl puffs her cheeks and curses her incredibly mean uncle. She resolves that even if he begs her to stay in the future, she will never forgive his current cruelty. She lets out a heavy, dramatic sigh of relief now that the terrifying giant is finally gone. Surrounded by cherry blossoms, the little girl holds her teddy bear close, determined to survive this hostile new household. She comforts herself by remembering her loving grandfather, the only true ally she has left. Her mind contrasts her doting grandfather with her incredibly cold, glaring uncle. But a deeper, far more critical reason forced her to live with this difficult uncle in the first place. In her wild imagination, she envisions herself as a heroic knight scaling a tower to rescue her utterly helpless uncle. She yawns sleepily, clutching her teddy bear as her mind drifts back to the history of her homeland. She recalls the grand country of Warford, a land built on ancient struggles and powerful noble lineages. The realm is ruled by three great families, with her own family, the Valliarts, represented by a mighty black wolf. She proudly boasts about her family's legendary standing as the absolute best in the kingdom. Her esteemed grandfather, Ilrode de Valliart, served the emperor faithfully, while her uncle is celebrated as the strongest swordsman. Her mother, Seria de Valliart, was a brilliant and revered woman who was always surrounded by flowers. In her early childhood memories, her busy mother was constantly buried under massive mountains of imperial paperwork. Though she never knew her father, she was perfectly content as long as she and her mother had each other. The peaceful sky above hints at the tragedy that was slowly creeping toward their happy lives. Her mother bids a polite farewell to the Prime Minister, completing her official duties for the day. The excited young girl peeks out of the carriage door, eagerly begging her mother to hurry and read her a story. Smiling warmly, her mother heads back to the carriage while the Prime Minister watches them depart. The carriage speeds away under the bright sun, embarking on a fateful journey. Inside the carriage, her mother holds her close and gently questions her unusual eagerness to tag along today. The girl looks up with big, honest eyes, admitting she felt an inexplicable dread that she would miss her mother too much. Her mother smiles tenderly, deeply touched by her daughter's sweet and protective nature. Suddenly, shadowy assassins emerge from the forest as a violent explosion rocks the carriage. Panic erupts as her mother shields her from the ambush while the royal guards desperately draw their swords. In the chaotic darkness, a cloaked assassin strikes down a startled soldier with lethal precision. A heavy boot steps into a pool of fresh blood, sealing a dark fate that will change the young girl's life forever. Shadowy figures gather in the dead of night, whispering about a mysterious missing necklace. A bleeding hand reveals a golden locket, confirming the target has already been smuggled away. Sensing danger on the horizon, the cloaked leader commands their group to retreat immediately. Before vanishing, the leader orders his subordinate to remain hidden and continue the search. The mysterious conspirators slip back into the dark woods, leaving behind an ominous chill. A quiet voice whispers through the dark forest, leaving a wounded young girl deeply confused. Aika's golden eyes widen in absolute horror as the brutal truth of the situation hits. Clinging to her bleeding mother, Aika screams out in a desperate panic for her safety. Her mother desperately shushes her, pleading with her to keep absolutely silent to survive. Her mother forces a glowing pink jewel down Aika's throat, ignoring her muffled cries. Weakly coughing up blood, the mother apologizes for failing to protect her precious daughter. She reveals that Aika now possesses special eyes, leaving the crying child entirely bewildered. Under a shower of falling stars, her mother's parting words urge her never to fear. This celestial gift promises to grant Aika the power to protect those she loves. Aika tearfully promises to keep this secret, begging her dying mother to stay alive. With a final weak smile, her mother begins to warn her before her voice fades. A solitary stone cross stands under a burning sunset, marking a heartbreaking family tragedy. Standing beside her grandfather, Aika learns she was rescued from the forest, not the carriage. Struggling with fractured memories, the young girl finds no answers from the imperial investigation. Driven to absolute fury by the tragedy, a powerful noble slams his fist in outrage. She reflects on her mother's brilliant mind and how deeply the emperor must grieve. A heavy, silent sorrow envelops the kingdom as they mourn the loss of Saria. Hot tears stream down Aika's face as she silently processes the pain of abandonment. Amidst the somber atmosphere of the funeral, a sudden presence shifts the entire energy. Aika gasps as she senses a powerful aura cut through the crowd toward her. She turns and locks eyes with a tall, red-haired man, meeting her Uncle Castle. Staring at his vibrant red hair, a spark of desperate hope flares in her chest. Overwhelmed by grief, the crying little girl throws herself forward to hug him tightly. Sharing her mother's exact features, Aika truly believes her mother has returned to life. The highly emotional moment takes a comical turn as her grandfather watches her wail. Moving in with her grandfather, Aika finally begins to understand her mother's parting gift. She realizes her eyes grant her the supernatural ability to sense danger threatening others. While the visions first haunted her dreams, they quickly begin manifesting while she is awake. She hilariously lugs a massive vase away to save it, confusing the household maid. But one night, a terrifying premonition takes hold of her sleep, darker than before. A sudden sharp rift of danger tears through her dream, breaking her peaceful slumber. In the vision, a furious nobleman snarls deadly threats, swearing vengeance against her family. A gleaming blade is drawn from its sheath, radiating a cold, murderous intent. An assassin lunges from the dark, catching her uncle off guard in a lethal ambush. She witnesses a horrific bloodstain, confirming her uncle is caught in a deadly trap. Aika jolts awake with a terrified scream, desperate to alter this grim future timeline. Panting heavily in the dark, she frantically wonders who could be targeting her uncle. Stealing her resolve, Aika decides she cannot sit idle while his life is threatened. To protect her uncle from his impending doom, she closely monitors his sword training. Peeking from behind a tree, her golden eyes burn with a fierce, protective light. She vows to stick by his side constantly, acting as his secret guardian angel. Knowing the lethal high stakes, she refuses to let another family member be taken. She refocuses on his training ground, solidifying her plan to rewrite his tragic future. She fully commits to her mission, determined to keep her uncle safe at all costs. Suddenly distracted from her drawing, Aika looks back, ready to confront the dangers ahead. Entering a den of hidden dangers, Aika's vital quest begins as she meets the sweet and gentle maid, Zenda. Desperate for answers, Aika immediately asks the maid for her uncle's current location. Upon hearing the maid's reply, the little girl's golden eyes light up with sudden hope. Before the maid can stop her, Aika dashes down the lavish hallway in a frantic rush. Zenda tries to tempt her with hot cocoa, but Aika remains entirely focused on finding her uncle. The panicked maid sweats profusely, warning that disturbing the busy duke is highly dangerous. Realizing she cannot be swayed, the worried maid reluctantly agrees to guide her. Inside his quiet study, the irritable red-haired duke is suddenly disturbed by an annoying knock. Aika flashes a bright, innocent smile, preparing to charm her notoriously cold-hearted uncle. Standing before the massive double doors, the mismatched pair prepares to face the terrifying man. Aika loudly shouts for her uncle while slamming on the heavy door, throwing Zenda into a panic. The door swings open with a slow creak, revealing the presence of the formidable warrior. Standing half undressed, the powerful red-haired Castle sternly demands to know why she is causing a scene. Stunned by his imposing stature and bare chest, Aika's confident facade instantly crumples into cute confusion. Quickly regaining her composure, she puffs out her cheeks with a defiant huff. Backed by a floral aura, Castle coldly questions why he should waste any time playing with her. In a comical move of sheer desperation, Aika throws herself forward and clings tightly to his leg. The legendary swordsman stands completely frozen in shock, utterly defeated by a toddler's iron grip. He demands she let go, but Aika tearfully screams her refusal, begging him not to leave. Struggling to shake her off, Castle sighs heavily and compares her stubbornness to her late mother. Desperate to keep him safe, she tearfully offers him her ultimate bribe, all of her snacks. Castle smirks with mild amusement, questioning if she truly thinks her puppy dog eyes will work on him. He begins dragging her along the floor, telling her to let go before he tosses her aside. Sniffling, she refuses to let go, completely ignoring his growing irritation and red vein of anger. Crying heavily from her golden eyes, Aika desperately fears that letting him leave means a certain doom. She remembers a dark, secret conversation she once overheard between her grandfather and her uncle. Peeking from the shadows, she had discovered that her uncle secretly hunts their family's lethal enemies. Standing amidst cold shadows, the red-haired Duke is surrounded by a terrifying number of unseen threats. Terrified of losing another loved one, Aika vows to protect him from disappearing like her mother. The warm, lingering memory of her mother's gentle smile only worsens her current grief. Looking down at his weeping niece, Castle's sharp yellow eyes soften with sudden hesitation. Aika continues to cry uncontrollably, burying her face into his leg as tears stream down. Staring at her raw grief, the cold Duke feels a sudden pang of conflict. Yielding to her tears, the towering man finally drops down to one knee before her. He suggests that if she misses her mother, she should simply look in a mirror. Confused, Aika tears up and points out that she actually shares his features instead. She happily declares that they look exactly alike, leaving her uncle completely speechless. Castle runs his hand through his red hair in exasperation, complaining that she has a massive headache. When Castle denies disliking her, she eagerly asks if they can live together. He dismissively waves her away, insisting he is terrible with children and she should go back to her grandfather. Aika sweetly admits a mother spoke highly of him, slowly melting his icy exterior. Castle is struck silent, staring at the little girl as her words hit deep. She gently clutches his trousers, softly begging him to let her stay by his side. Clutching his pants, she looks up with big, hopeful eyes, waiting for his final decision. Staring into her golden eyes, the cold Duke finds himself completely unable to turn her away. In her innocent gaze, he sees the comforting reflection of his beloved late sister. Staring at her face, he softly whispers his sister's name as grief connects them. Startled by his gentle tone, Aika looks up as her uncle suddenly stands. Turning his back, Ghazal sighs and finally gives her permission to do whatever she wants. He warns her not to get in his way, but now that she has secured her stay, the real battle to protect his life begins. Just when all hope seems lost, Aika's golden eyes sparkle with sudden, overwhelming joy. Her dramatic celebration takes a hilariously wild turn as she dives headfirst onto the floor, while Castle dryly questions if she really thought he would fall for her antics. Determined not to let this opportunity slip away, the little girl prepares her ultimate secret weapon. With a look of absolute triumph, she proudly holds up a handwritten contract, declaring that her uncle must never kick her out. Castle stares in utter disbelief at the crude piece of paper, completely baffled as Aika demands he sign it immediately. Yielding to his niece's stubborn pressure, the powerful red-haired Duke coolly agrees to her eccentric terms. Seeking absolute confirmation, the cautious child immediately asks if he promises not to leave the estate today. Aika's golden eyes lock onto her uncle as he explains he is simply going for a ride in the garden instead of traveling. Assured by his promise, she watches silently as the towering swordsman walks down the lavish hallway. She fondly remembers her mother's wise advice about recording critical agreements, proud of her quick thinking. But as she takes a peaceful step forward, a sudden, terrifying premonition strikes her mind, freezing her in place. In her terrifying vision, Castle is seen peacefully riding his horse in the fields under the watchful eye of an old stable hand. The dream takes a dark turn as the brown horse, Gunter, suddenly shows signs of severe distress. In a flash of pure chaos, the panicked horse rears back wildly, sending her uncle flying with a terrified scream. A horrific splash of blood cuts through the dark vision, confirming a lethal accident has just occurred. Gasped backward into reality, Aika collapses heavily to the ground, panting in sheer panic. Her golden eyes tremble with absolute horror as she desperately tries to comprehend the bloody disaster she just witnessed. Realizing there is no time to lose, she screams out for her uncle in a desperate panic. Shifting to the stables, Castle approaches the horses, completely unaware of the deadly fate awaiting him. An ominous warning echoes through the air as the threat of danger looms over the family once again. Her tiny feet sprint furiously across the polished wooden floors as she panics over facing 2 fatal premonitions in a single day. Bursting through the heavy double doors, she shouts for her uncle, startling the estate's focused butler. The sharp-eyed butler, Lido, turns in mild surprise at the young girl's sudden dramatic intrusion. Aika's heart drops into her stomach as the butler politely informs her that the Duke has already left for his ride. Sprinting into the blinding sunlight, she desperately curses her uncle's incredible speed. Panting heavily, she races through the green grass, praying she can reach the stables before it is too late. Her small body pushes past his limits as she flies around the corner in a desperate race against time. Relieved but frantic, she finally spots her uncle preparing to mount his massive brown horse. Hearing her frantic cries, the red-haired warrior turns his head in quiet confusion. Huffing with adorable rage, Aika charges forward at full speed, loudly accusing him of breaking his promise. Castle effortlessly scoops up the clinging toddler, dryly explaining that riding on his own property doesn't count as leaving. She screams her refusal to let him ride, while Castle lets out an exasperated sigh at his stubborn little niece. Nearby, the brown stallion, Gunter, lets out a low, distressed rumble, catching her attention. Holding the trembling child, Castle glances back at his steed in mild surprise. Aika's golden eyes narrow as she notices something highly unusual about the animal's stance. She points out that the horse is holding its front leg raised in a highly unnatural, painful manner. Sliding down, her small feet land softly on the vibrant green grass. Seeking to investigate the injury, she steps closer to the towering beast. She crouches down to inspect the horse's trembling hoof, determined to find the source of its pain. Suddenly, a strong hand yanks her backward just as the panicked animal shifts. Castle scolds her furiously for putting herself in such a dangerous position, threatening to send her back to her grandfather. Turning to the elderly stable master, the Duke commands him to take the injured horse inside for a thorough inspection. Still dangling from his grip, Aika realizes her plan worked and happily asks if he is canceling his ride. She beams with pure, radiant joy, thrilled that her quick thinking has successfully altered the deadly timeline. Staring at her bright, innocent smile, Kasal's icy expression softens into a look of quiet resignation. He playfully pinches her cheek, asking what she is so happy about while she lets out a cute whimper. Looking at her, he silently reflects that she is far too fragile for this dangerous estate and should have stayed protected. Carrying her back toward the Grand Mansion, the cold Duke secretly admits his reluctance to bring her into his chaotic life. Exhausted from her frantic rescue mission, the tired little girl gently rests her head against his broad shoulder. Carrying his sleeping niece down the quiet hallways, the fearsome warrior finally finds a moment of peaceful calm. A desperate battle to alter a bloody future leaves little Aika completely exhausted as she collapses into a deep sleep. A protective hand lingers nearby, watching over the sleeping child. Castle wonders why the exhausted girl continues to cling to his arm. A faint, sleepy plea begs him not to leave her side. Even in her dreams, she maintains an iron grip on his dark sleeve. The cold Duke quietly departs, leaving her in the warm sunlight. 3 days pass in peace at the Grand Royal Estate. A sweet little head playfully peeks around the corner. Aika searches for her uncle, calling out to see if he is inside. Gerald warmly welcomes Aika while Castle notes her persistent return. Castle questions why she left her room, teasingly calling her a peanut, which she loudly rejects. She proudly presents a cute drawing depicting herself alongside her uncle. Castle is utterly dumbfounded by his devilish depiction, while Aika eagerly asks for his approval. Castle quickly shifts the conversation to hide his embarrassment. Aika looks up expectantly, waiting for her uncle's next words. Castle announces they are visiting her grandfather, sparking overwhelming excitement in Aika. She eagerly plans to share her delicious morning cupcakes with her grandfather. The gentle maid lovingly prepares Aika for the grand journey ahead. Aika rejoices over visiting her grandfather while wondering what caused her uncle's sudden change of heart. The sun shines brightly on a beautiful clear day. A luxurious carriage waits outside, ready for their departure. Dressed in her finest attire, Aika is bursting with anticipation. Her beloved grandfather eagerly awaits her arrival with open arms. Grandfather affectionately embraces Aika, expressing how deeply they both missed each other as Castle watches from afar. Castle snidely remarks on his father's dyed hair, but grandfather fires back, proudly comparing his hair to Aika's. The two happily agree, completely shutting out Castle's complaints. Grandfather jokingly accuses Castle of starving Aika, but she quickly defends her uncle. Grandfather tenderly tells Aika that her presence is the absolute best gift he could ever receive. Aika proudly boasts that she is already completely full from eating earlier. A quiet clink of cutlery signals the start of a lavish feast. Despite claiming to be full, Aika happily devours her second round of delicious snacks. Mari kindly asks if she enjoyed her food, and Aika politely thanks her. Aika calls out to Mari to ask her a question, and Mari attentively responds. Aika asks when her grandfather and uncle will return, causing the maid to freeze in sudden panic. Mari hesitantly explains that the men had important business to discuss, leaving Aika highly suspicious of what is truly happening. Sudden realization strikes her as her fork clatters to the plate, hinting at a terrible truth. Hearing the unmistakable sound of a departing carriage, Aika realizes someone is trying to leave the estate without her. A chilling wave of absolute dread washes over her trembling eyes. A terrifying thought crosses her mind as she fears her worst nightmare is about to unfold. Mari cries out in confusion as Aika suddenly bolts out of the room at full speed. She races wildly through the corridors, her heart pounding with frantic desperation. Bursting through the heavy barriers, she frantically scans the courtyard. Aika spots her grandfather standing by the carriage and wonders who is inside. Her heart sinks as she spots her red-haired uncle sitting inside the departing carriage. Overwhelmed by grief and terror, Aika breaks down, unable to accept what she is seeing. She desperately wonders if her beloved uncle is abandoning her to face a dangerous fate alone. Ignoring her grief, she sprints down the steps in a desperate final chase. Aika tearfully screams that her uncle is a liar, catching her grandfather completely off guard. Grandfather catches the flailing girl to protect her, but she desperately begs him to let her go. With a final, heartbreaking cry, she watches her uncle's carriage fade into the distance. Caught in a web of tragic premonitions, a tearful Aika clings to her grandfather as she desperately cries out that she only wanted to save her uncle from his grim fate. The cold-hearted Duke drives away in his carriage, completely ignoring his niece's heartbreaking pleas to stay by her side. Back in the silent mansion, her abandoned toys litter the floor as a heavy, somber atmosphere settles over the empty room. Deeply distressed by her sudden emotional breakdown, her grandfather anxiously tries to comfort the weeping girl. Wrapping herself tightly in a blanket like an angry little burrito, she glares with furious golden eyes, refusing to be easily appeased. The elderly Duke completely panics when he realizes his precious granddaughter is giving in the silent treatment. She bitterly accuses her grandfather of holding her back, leaving the old Duke utterly speechless and drowned in guilt. He desperately tries to bribe her with delicious treats, but the stubborn child flatly rejects his offer. Clinging to her self-pity under the blanket, she laments that her uncle completely betrayed his promise and abandoned her. Overwhelmed by hurt, she angrily resolves to completely stop caring about her cold-hearted uncle from now on. Meanwhile, a tranquil sun shines over the luxurious royal estate, masking the brewing tension within. A servant gently pours freshly brewed tea, signaling a moment of quiet introspection in the Duke's study. Gerard sighs as he serves the tea, noting how incredibly quiet and lonely the massive mansion feels without the young lady. Castle dryly claims he prefers the peace and quiet, though his assistant knows the stoic warrior is just hiding his loneliness. An unexpected knock at the door breaks the silence as Gerard requests permission to enter with urgent news. Leto steps into the room to announce that a messenger has just arrived from the Duke of Valiart. Castle's golden eyes narrow with intense focus as he demands to know the purpose of his father's sudden message. The messenger reveals a heartbreaking truth. The young lady has grown weak and refuses to touch her food while waiting for her uncle. Concerned for her well-being, the loyal butler hesitantly asks if the Duke intends to visit his suffering niece. Silence fills the room as Castle stares ahead, struggling to maintain his cold, detached exterior. Castle dismisses the concern, coldly stating the child will recover once she settles in with her grandfather, ignoring Gerard's dismay. Sensing his growing irritation, the Duke sharply orders his staff back to their posts, ending the discussion immediately. Left entirely alone in the quiet study, the fearsome warrior is left to battle his own rising guilt. Looking down at the untouched pastry on his desk, he recalls how eagerly the little girl used to devour her favorite snacks. He vividly remembers her pure, radiant joy back when her only worry was enjoying her sweet treats. Unable to focus on his duties any longer, Castle frustratedly slams the document onto his wooden desk. He lets out a defeated sigh, completely unable to banish the image of his weeping niece from his mind. He desperately warns himself not to form any deeper attachments to a child so fragile and innocent. He decides he must sever their bond completely, convinced that staying away is the only way to keep her safe. He quietly curses under his breath, realizing his cold heart has already been completely compromised by the little girl. With a sudden burst of resolve, the powerful Duke leaps up from his seat, making his final decision. Under the cover of a bright full moon, the scene shifts to the dark, silent forest. A cool night breeze whispers through the trees, carrying the silent threat of an impending clash. Racing through the dark on horseback, Castle convinces himself that he is only going to catch one brief glimpse of her. The butler's worrying words about her refusing to eat continue to echo heavily in his mind as he rides. He continues to rationalize his sudden journey, telling himself he is merely checking on her physical condition. He quickly arrives at the towering gates of the Valiart mansion, keeping his presence entirely hidden from the guards. Deciding against making a dramatic scene at the front gates, the skilled warrior prepares to sneak inside undetected. Scaling the massive stone wall with effortless grace, he silently vaults into the moonlit gardens of the estate. He lands softly on his feet, instantly blending into the deep shadows cast by the towering trees. Looking up at the grand mansion, he recalls that she was placed in his late sister's old chambers. Suddenly, a faint rustle in the nearby bushes catches his attention, freezing him in place with lethal focus. Out of the darkness, two cloaked intruders emerge, holding drawn blades as they creep toward the estate. The masked assassins whisper their plan to split up and strike their target inside the mansion. A chilling, cold voice suddenly whispers directly behind the assassin, freezing the blood in his veins. Before the intruder can even react, a gleaming razor-sharp blade is pressed firmly against his throat. Towering over his prey, Castle coldly remarks on the intruders as the terrified assassin gasps out his legendary name. A flash of absolute malice crosses Castle's face as he asks if they are truly prepared to face the deadly wrath of Valiart. With terrifying speed, his strong hand clamps tightly around the assassin's throat, cutting off his desperate scream. Pressing the blade closer, Castle demands to know the identity of the mastermind who dared to send assassins after his family. Just as the cold-hearted Duke sneaks into the estate, a lethal blade suddenly swoops down from the shadows to strike him. Sparks fly in the dark as their razor-sharp swords violently clash together. Castle gasps in pure shock as he recognizes his opponent's unexpected fighting style. The elderly Duke is equally stunned, lowering his weapon as he realizes he nearly struck his own son. Demanding answers, Castle learns from his father that they have just survived a sudden coordinated enemy ambush. A terrifying premonition of his niece crying in mortal danger flashes through Castle's mind. Leaving the remaining cleanup to his father, Castle frantically bolts back toward the mansion. Racing through the dark corridors, he desperately prays that the little girl is still safe in her bed. He throws the heavy doors open, his heart mounting with intense dread. Spotting a bundled blanket on the bed, he sighs in immense relief, believing she is fast asleep. His relief instantly evaporates into pure terror as a disturbing detail catches his eye. Muttering an angry curse, he aggressively grabs the blanket to check on his niece. With a sharp pull, he violently tears the covers off the bed. The terrifying reality of the situation freezes him completely in his tracks. He stares in absolute horror at the decoy stuffed bear hidden beneath the sheets. Looking down at the pile of empty toys, the chilling realization of her disappearance sinks in. Panic takes over as the powerful Duke desperately wonders where his precious niece could have vanished to. Meanwhile, trapped in a dark nightmare, Aika struggles to breathe as a heavy weight constricting her chest makes her gasp for air. She wakes up in a cold sweat to find a monstrous black serpent coiled tightly around her body. Paralyzed with fear, the trembling girl realizes she is facing a deadly predator. The terrifying beast hisses a chilling confirmation of her worst nightmare. With a horrifying screech, the massive snake opens its jaws to swallow her whole. Screaming in absolute terror, Aika jolts awake from her vivid nightmare back into reality. Gasps rack her tiny frame as she frantically tries to understand the ominous warning behind her dream. Suddenly, the sharp clink of clashing swords outside sends a jolt of panic through her body. She vividly recalls her mother's crucial advice to always hide whenever the terrifying shadows arrive. Her mother's final warnings echo like a survival guide in her racing mind. A tense, silent pause hangs in the air as the imminent danger draws closer to her room. Realizing the enemies have arrived, the brave little girl leaps out of bed to find a hiding spot. Covering her mouth to suppress her whimpers, she prays that her grandfather will arrive in time to save her. She warns herself that getting caught by the intruders means absolute doom. Heavy footsteps suddenly echo outside, coming to a dead stop right before her hiding place. Huddled inside the dark cabinet, Aika trembles in sheer terror, fearing she has been found. Tears stream down her face as she silently cries out for her mother, her grandfather, and her beloved uncle. Outside her hiding spot, Castle's frustrated voice suddenly calls out as he desperately searches the room. A tense creak breaks the silence as the cabinet door begins to open. Castle gasps in shock as Aika's tearful voice quietly calls out to him from the dark. Hurriedly gripping the door, the panicked uncle flings it open to reveal his missing niece. Aika looks up in sheer disbelief, weeping tears of profound relief upon seeing her uncle's face. Bewildered and deeply relieved, Castle demands to know why she was hiding in such a cramped space. Her bare feet gently step out onto the cold floor as she runs to safety. Throwing her arms around his waist, she clings to him desperately, crying over how terrified she was. Aika tearfully rants about the shadows and her abandonment, while a sweating Castle tries to calm her down. The sudden realization that this isn't her first time hiding from danger strikes Castle with a wave of cold shock. A tragic memory reveals how her mother taught her to hide in the grandfather's closet during past threats. Looking at the dark wardrobe, the grim truth of her traumatic childhood becomes painfully clear. A heavy wave of horror washes over Castle as he realizes the dangerous life his late sister was forced to lead. Aika tightly grabs his dark sleeve, refusing to let go of her only lifeline. Looking up with big, tear-filled eyes, she begs him to never break his promise of leaving her behind again. Stunned into absolute silence, the stoic Duke can only stare down at his niece with profound guilt and determination. A fragile little girl's tears shatter a warrior's cold resolve as Aika screams that leaving her is no different from forgetting her, fiercely calling her red-haired uncle a liar. Clinging desperately to his dark blue cloak, the weeping girl begs him to take her along, vowing she will never let go. Castle lets out a heavy, conflicted sigh, his cold resolve rapidly melting away. Defeated, Castle scoops her into his arms, muttering his resignation as a bewildered Aika looks up at him. He gently places his exhausted niece down onto the soft bed. Brushing her hair back, Castle softly promises he is not leaving and coaxes her to rest. Refusing to believe him, Aika fiercely grabs his sleeve and calls him a liar while Castle swears his honesty. Aika commands him to wait right there as she scrambles away, leaving Castle completely baffled. A cheerful pink sound effect echoes through the room, shifting the tense atmosphere. A red string now binds the little girl's wrist to her uncle's. Aika happily suggests they sleep tied together to ensure they return home together, leaving Castle utterly shell-shocked. Aika cheerfully wishes him goodnight, leaving a sweat-dropped Castle completely speechless under the moonlit sky. Bright morning sunlight streams through the grand window, welcoming a peaceful new day. The exhausted grandfather lets out a weary sigh, bracing himself for the morning. Castle and Aika sleep peacefully, still bound by the red string. The grand carriage awaits in the courtyard, prepared for their departure back home. Castle announces he is taking his niece back with him as the joyful girl waves goodbye to her grandfather. The grandfather sternly threatens to strip Castle's title if he makes her cry again, which Castle dismisses. The grandfather laments missing his beloved granddaughter while Aika brightly promises to visit him often. The grandfather warmly tells her to run back to him if her uncle ever bothers her. The ecstatic little girl happily agrees as she runs toward the waiting carriage. Castle quietly confirms with his father that all of last night's stealthy intruders were successfully captured. A chilling aura surrounds the elder duke as he vows their enemies will learn the danger of underestimating them. Castle bids his father farewell, instructing him to keep in touch if anything else happens. The grandfather officially entrusts Aika to Castle, who confidently accepts as they prepare to drive away. The carriage finally arrives back at the massive and sunny Valiar mansion. Dressed in a lovely blue dress, Aika beams with pure, radiant happiness. The brown-haired maid, Zenda, squeals in delight, ecstatic to see her young mistress return home. Spinning her around, Zenda confesses how empty the mansion felt, while Aika giggles and says she missed her. Zenda fiercely vows to do everything in her power to protect Aika and advocate for her wishes. Touched but worried, Aika silently hopes her loyal maid won't get scolded for defending her. Zenda playfully reassures her she can handle the staff, prompting a joyful agreement from the little girl. Aika celebrates having Zenda completely on her side, finding her loyal support incredibly reassuring. A brilliant, mischievous idea sparks in Aika's mind to win over the rest of the staff. She realizes that if she recruits everyone to her side, she will be fully protected. A cute mental diagram shows the loyal mansion staff forming an impenetrable shield against her uncle. She secretly plans to use her cuteness to stop her uncle from ever scolding her. Aika eagerly declares her mission of befriending everyone, leaving a curious Zenda wondering about her master plan. Aika conspiratorially asks Zenda to bend down so she can whisper her secret strategy. Leaning close to her maid's ear, Aika whispers her adorably devious plan. Zenda can't help but chuckle warmly at the little girl's charmingly cute strategy. Aika proudly asks for confirmation, grinning ear to ear about her upcoming charm offensive. The maids giggle in the hallway, completely charmed by Aika's adorable antics. The rest of the servants smile warmly, their hearts completely won over. Castle and Gerard walk through the mansion, utterly bewildered by the staff's dazed, happy faces. Tiny feet in brown shoes sprint eagerly down the long carpeted corridor. Dressed in a beautiful yellow floral gown, Aika stands ready to strike. While Castle grumpily tells her to behave, Gerard warmly greets the young lady and asks if something is wrong. Shyly fidgeting, Aika sweetly confesses that she has brought a special gift for them. Holding out a massive red ribbon bow, the adorable girl happily presents it to a stunned Gerard. A sudden twist catches Gerard completely off guard as he blushes in pure disbelief at Aika's unexpected offering. Brimming with radiant joy, adorable Aika presents a beautifully wrapped red ribbon bow to show her deepest gratitude. Gerard weeps tears of absolute joy while the grumbling, red-haired Duke watches the heartwarming exchange in silent disapproval. While Gerard proudly wears his new accessory, Castle secretly fumes, mentally urging him to accept it quickly to avoid complaints. Bidding her uncle a cheerful farewell, Aika skips steps away, leaving a lingering silence in her wake. An awkward, heavy tension instantly fills the corridor as the two men process the sudden crushing silence. Realization hits the proud, red-haired Duke like a truck as he stares blankly in pure, unadulterated outrage. His internal screaming reaches a boiling point as he is left utterly empty-handed and incredibly jealous. The scene shifts to the grand dining hall as a brand new day of mansion antics begins. Little Aika gapes in absolute wonder at the beautifully presented, tree-shaped deep-fried breakfast waiting on her plate. The head chef, Sophie, proudly explains her special vegetable creation is a heartfelt thank you for Aika's kind gift. The room fills with happy chatter as the household marvels at how delicious the non-meat dish tastes. Castle grumpily warns Sophie not to let Aika drag her into things, but the chef warmly insists Aika brings nothing but joy. Unable to contain his petty jealousy any longer, the intimidating Duke flatly demands to know where his gift is. Aika ruthlessly shuts down his expectations, cheerfully ignoring his sour mood to focus entirely on her delicious potatoes. Just as the awkward tension peaks, a sudden spark of memory flashes through the young girl's mind. Setting her cutlery down, Aika turns to her uncle with a surprisingly serious request. She holds out a crisp, folded letter, instantly catching the attention of the highly suspicious Duke. Castle's eyes widen as he recognizes the highly prestigious sealed crest of the imperial family. Beaming with pure excitement, Aika joyfully demands that her uncle escort her to the palace under the emperor's invitation. Castle skeptically questions her royal connections, only for Aika to reveal the emperor was her late mother's dear friend. With a cold, flat refusal, the Duke completely crushes her excitement, prompting an outraged tantrum from his niece. Coolly turning his back, Castle cryptically blames his empty chest, leaving the little girl entirely baffled by his dramatic exit. He dismissively orders her to finish her food and walks away, leaving a heavily pouting Aika in his dust. Sophie immediately sees right through the tough exterior, playfully whispering that the master is just a sulking softy. Chewing on her treats, a determined Aika realizes she must quickly find a way to appease her stubborn uncle. Night falls as quiet, heavy footsteps echo through the dimly lit corridors of the silent Valiart mansion. Walking alongside his master, Gerard mentally notes that the Duke's lingering irritation is definitely due to gift envy. The loyal aide deeply ponders why the young lady would leave her beloved uncle completely empty-handed. Their stroll brings them right to a door left slightly and suspiciously ajar. Pushing the door open, a soft, mystical glow emanating from a small box on the cabinet catches their attention. Resting inside the beautifully wrapped box is a stunning, meticulously crafted golden marigold brooch adorned with a red gem. The elaborate pink ribbons draping around the box hint at the immense effort poured into this special creation. Gerard ecstatically realizes that Aika was late because she was busy handcrafting her absolute finest masterpiece exclusively for her uncle. Pretending to be completely unbothered, Castle mutters a grumpy complaint as he picks up the glittering accessory. A rare, genuine smile breaks across the Tsundere Duke's face as he tenderly admires his beautiful new treasure. Desperate to gloat, Castle smugly asks Gerard if he received a special boxed gift too, only to hear a satisfying negative response. A sweet memory reveals Aika proudly admiring the large yellow marigold brooch she specifically designed for her favorite uncle. With his mood completely cured, a proudly strutting Castle demands his aide get straight to the business report. Gerard immediately gets serious, reporting that 38 enemy intruders have been eliminated, with 7 still on the run. Inspecting his prized brooch, Castle's gaze turns ice cold as he ruthlessly orders the total annihilation of the remaining foes. Changing plans on a whim, the overprotective Duke commands their departure to the palace tomorrow, despite his backlogged work. Standing tall with the brilliant marigold brooch proudly pinned to his chest, Castle dismisses his loyal aide. Morning light washes over the massive, beautiful palace towers as the grand journey finally begins. Dressed in a breathtaking pink layered gown with delicate rose accents, Aika looks like a true royal princess. Castle stands in his full noble uniform, the massive handmade marigold brooch gleaming proudly on his shoulder. Urging his niece to hurry up, the stern Duke boards the grand carriage as a flustered Aika chases after him. Suddenly halting in his tracks, a vital realization strikes the formidable commander. With surprisingly gentle care, Castle wraps a dark protective uniform cloak securely around her shoulders. Aika's golden eye dilates in absolute shock as she catches a sudden, terrifying reflection of a hidden imperial token. A majestic golden palace pierces the sky as our young heroine steps into a dangerous world of royal secrets. Inside the opulent corridors, the palace staff walks with quiet, synchronized precision. The young lady marches forward, her golden eyes flashing with sudden, intense determination. She hesitantly admits her growing discomfort, feeling the weight of countless eyes upon her. Clutched tightly in her hands is an ornate gold nameplate bearing her uncle's noble title. The stern, red-haired Duke orders her to wear it, completely ignoring her embarrassed protests. Suddenly, a cheerful shout echoes through the grand gilded hallway, shifting the mood. Beautiful music fills the air as royal musicians play, while a complaint about the ruler's delay arises. Waiting in the luxurious reception room, the red-haired Duke grumbles about the Emperor's tardiness. The little girl gasps as a sudden presence nearby makes her heart skip a beat. A mysterious, dark-haired figure approaches from behind, radiating an imposing royal aura. Standing tall in his majestic imperial uniform is the stunning ruler of the empire. The young lady stares in absolute bewilderment at the breathtaking man before her. The gentle emperor gazes down, welcoming his long-awaited young visitor with a soft smile. The ruler's grand noble title, Winchester Gaia Celador, is officially revealed in all its glory. A sudden flashback triggers a memory of her mother's crucial instructions regarding the emperor's name. She locks eyes with him, noticing the signature mystical purple gaze of the royal lineage. Looking closely, she realizes with absolute shock that his dark hair matches her own. The adorable girl finds herself deeply puzzled by their striking physical similarities. Snapping back to reality, she lets out a startled gasp in front of the monarch. Gripping her pink floral skirt, she gathers her courage to formally introduce herself. With elegant grace, she performs a picture-perfect, adorable royal curtsy. The dark-haired emperor smiles warmly, thoroughly charmed by her impeccable manners. He slowly kneels, bringing himself down to her height with utmost respect and care. Looking her in the eyes, the gentle ruler treats her with absolute kindness. He extends his gloved hand forward with genuine warmth, inviting her closer. Beaming with pure happiness, the ecstatic girl joyfully reaches back. The emperor's cheeks flush with pure delight at her adorable, sparkling reaction. Without hesitation, he pulls the precious girl into a warm, protective embrace. Holding her close, the emperor tenderly confesses his long-standing anticipation for this moment. He whispers his deep gratitude to the young lady for visiting him today. Pulling back, the emotional emperor notes her incredible resemblance to her late mother. He warmly confirms his deep, enduring friendship with both her mother and her uncle. Pointing to her necklace, the curious emperor asks if her uncle gifted it to her. A brief pause captures a moment of quiet, adorable anticipation before she answers. Flustered and blushing, she shyly confirms her overprotective uncle made her wear it. Remembering her master plan, she eagerly announces she has brought him a special gift. The curious emperor reaches with a gentle smile as she searches her bag. She holds out her hands, presenting a beautifully crafted, vibrant red ribbon bow. With a radiant grin, she offers the handmade gift as thanks for his royal invitation. The stunned emperor stares in pure disbelief that she made something just for him. A loud, dramatic throat clear suddenly cuts through the heartwarming atmosphere. Standing proud, the red-haired duke smugly boasts a massive, flashier ribbon on his chest. The petty duke silently flaunts his superior gift, leaving the others completely speechless. Shrugging off the duke's jealousy, the emperor happily accepts his precious new accessory. The delighted monarch gently pats her head, prompting a bright smile from the girl. He warmly declares his intention to return her incredible kindness with a gift of his own. The emperor instructs his nearby maid, Sola, to retrieve a special item. The loyal maid returns carrying a highly mysterious polished black wooden box. The little girl tilts her head in curiosity, eagerly wondering what secrets lie inside. The emperor reveals a long-held treasure left behind by Aika's late mother, Saria, meant to aid her future. Winchester warmly apologizes for the long delay in delivering this precious secret maternal keepsake. With a gentle click, the magnificent royal jewel box is finally unlocked and opened. Inside the box rests a beautifully crafted, gleaming golden key shaped like a delicate flower. Overwhelmed with emotion, Aika gazes in awe, realizing this was a final gift from her beloved mother. The golden key of ancient secrets is lifted, promising forgotten wisdom to its rightful young owner. Winchester encourages Aika, expressing her mother's absolute belief in her unique ability to find something special. A wave of deep, quiet emotion washes over the room as the precious connection is made. Clutching the golden key tightly, Aika feels her late mother's warmth radiating through the small artifact. Tears of joy well up as she embraces the bittersweet legacy left entirely to her. Snapping back to reality, the adorable girl eagerly realizes she must formally express her gratitude. With absolute sweetness, Aika bows deeply as the delighted emperor warmly welcomes her future visits. A bright, blissful smile lights up her face as her heart overflows with pure happiness. Running to her uncle, Aika immediately puts the formidable duke to work by handing him her treasure. The overprotective duke and his anxious maid promise to guard the priceless key with their lives. Shifting the mood, the emperor suddenly announces a special introduction to a very important guest. The massive double doors swing open, casting a brilliant light upon a mysterious young boy. Aika's eyes instantly turn to sparkling stars at the thrilling prospect of making a new friend. With slow, polite steps, the elegant young noble walks forward to meet his hosts. The emperor gently advises her to be kind, noting the young boy's shy but sweet nature. Stepping forward, Winchester officially introduces the silver-haired boy and invites him to say hello. Aika watches in quiet fascination, eager to learn more about the quiet boy before her. The elegant young heir, Ruthvi Winterus Calpodia, is formally introduced with a polite, gentle smile. With flawless, noble etiquette, the young boy politely extends his hand to greet the young lady. Standing face to face, the two children prepare to embark on a beautiful, life-changing friendship. A sudden nostalgic shift transports us back 2 years ago into a peaceful, sunlit field of wild daisies. A younger, innocent Ruthvi stands amidst the blooming flowers, finding solace in nature's quiet beauty. Plucking the lovely white daisies, the sweet boy wonders if his father would appreciate such a heartfelt gift. Walking down the palace halls, young Ruthvi suddenly overhears a tense, private royal conversation regarding the succession. An explosive, furious shout echoes through the corridor, demanding an immediate marriage to secure an heir. Ruthvi peeks behind the door, his heart sinking as they dismissively mention him as a mere backup. The chilly atmosphere grows heavier as a cold, stern presence looms over the trembling young boy. Duchess Palin Denotium is revealed, looking down with a highly critical, disapproving gaze. Beside her stands Duke Ricardo Willow Calpodia, demanding to know why the boy entered without knocking. Stuttering an apology, Ruthvi is ruthlessly scolded for having dirty hands and behaving beneath his status. In a heartbreaking display of cruelty, the Duchess violently slaps the beautiful daisies out of his hands. Duke Ricardo remains cold and completely indifferent, deciding that his son's childish innocence must end today. Calling him by his full name, the stern father looms over the utterly terrified young child. The ruthless Duke commands his son to go to the palace and learn the harsh realities of power. A heavy, inescapable hand grabs his shoulder, delivering a chilling ultimatum about his future responsibilities. The shocking truth is unveiled as he is cold-bloodedly told he must prepare to become the next emperor. Back in the present, Ruthvi hides his painful past behind a polite, well-practiced royal smile. Sensing a strange depth in his purple eyes, Aika gazes at him with intense, pure curiosity. The two children happily clasp hands, officially cementing a heartwarming bond between their powerful families. Winchester watches with pure, radiant joy, hoping the two 7-year-olds will find true happiness together. An advisor politely interrupts, reminding the busy emperor that his official duties urgently require his attention. Winchester leaves them with a warm, caring blessing, urging Aika to seek him out whenever she needs. With a final nod, the emperor bids farewell to Castle, scheduling their next formal meeting. As the adults depart, the beautiful, towering palace stands ready for the children's new adventures. A breathtaking garden pavilion, surrounded by blooming roses, sets the stage for a legendary friendship to blossom. Cruel secrets and forbidden friendships are about to collide as Castle commands the children to stay close, while Aika begs him to join their play. Aika pouts childishly, declaring that her overprotective uncle won't be allowed to join their games later. With a bright smile, Aika happily drags Ruthven along to explore the palace grounds. Ruthven watches quietly as Aika lists off various childhood games they could play together. The silver-haired heir unexpectedly rejects her ideas, leaving Aika completely stunned. Ruthven abruptly pulls his hand away, dismissing her playful suggestions as mere child's play. With a cold and distant look, he firmly states that he does not participate in trivial games. An awkward, heavy silence descends upon the stone pathway as they stand miles apart emotionally. Aika panics internally, struggling to make sense of the boy's sudden icy shift in attitude. A wave of social anxiety washes over Aika, while Ruthven remains completely unbothered by the tension. A sudden, brilliant spark of inspiration lights up Aika's golden eyes. She tries a gentler approach, asking if there is something else he might enjoy doing. She holds out a handful of white daisies, hoping to find a common ground. The sight of the simple flowers triggers a sudden, sharp shock in Ruthven's purple eyes. A traumatic memory flashes back as his cruel mother violently knocks innocent flowers from his hands. Shaking off the past, Ruthven turns away coldly, ignoring her reminder that even adults love flowers. Aika warmly shares a memory of her late mother's favorite flower shop, unknowingly opening old wounds. An oppressive, dark echo of his family's harsh expectations rings painfully inside his head. Aika gasps as her delicate white daisies slip from her hand and fall onto the cobblestones. Ruthven demands to be left alone, coldly stating they do not need to force a fake friendship. The word flowers lingers in his mind, leaving him caught in a spiral of internal conflict. Refusing to be deterred, Aika offers him a bright, welcoming smile that defies his chilly rejection. Ruthven stares at her in absolute shock, completely thrown off by her relentless warmth. When he reluctantly admits he only dislikes them a little, she playfully presses him for the truth. Demanding that he stay right there, Aika suddenly dashes off, leaving the young heir utterly baffled. He watches her retreating figure, deeply confused by her chaotic and unpredictable energy. Clenching his fist, Ruthven tries to convince himself that he has no need for a friend. Aika returns like a beacon of light, greeting him with a dazzling, triumphant smile. Ruthven's icy armor begins to crack as he gazes at her with wide, quiet wonder. In her open palms lies a beautifully woven daisy ring, a gift crafted from the heart. He quietly repeats his stubborn mantra, though his eyes tell a completely different story. He insists he is not lonely, but Aika quickly reminds him that he is still just a kid. Later, Aika enjoys a peaceful meal with Castle, savoring the delicious soup in the dining hall. She beams with pure confidence, declaring that complex issues are best left to the grown-ups. Back in the garden, Aika happily promises to make flower rings with him during their next visit. A silent, powerful connection begins to bridge the massive gap between their two worlds. Her radiant, unbothered smile slowly cuts through his deeply ingrained fear of rejection. Ruthven looks up at her, his gray world suddenly flooded with vibrant warmth and color. A silent invitation to finally let his guard down hangs beautifully in the air. Blushing deeply under the bright blue sky, the young heir looks at her with a softened gaze. The majestic royal emblem on his chest glimmers, marking the start of a life-changing bond. Surrounded by the Grand Palace garden, the two children stand ready to build a new future. Aika's infectious optimism continues to chip away at the walls surrounding his lonely heart. Ruthven realizes that perhaps his painful past doesn't have to dictate his future. His purple eyes reflect a newfound sense of peace as he looks at his very first friend. A quiet sense of hope settles over the young boy, replacing his old fears. Nestled in the grass, the simple daisy ring shines as a symbol of their quiet promise. Presenting the handmade flower ring, Aika calls his name with absolute sweetness. Ruthven flinches in surprise, his cheeks flushing red at her sudden closeness. Turning his head slightly, the adorable young heir struggles to hide the overwhelming happiness filling his chest. A fragile ring of wild daisies becomes the ultimate symbol of an unbroken promise. As the ruthless Duke commands his son to abandon childish play, the terrified young boy bitterly rejects the very idea of friendship. Overwhelmed by agonizing trauma, the young heir breaks down in silent, heartbreaking tears under the heavy weight of his family's expectations. Realizing her playmate is deeply hurting, Aika calls out his name in sheer, wide-eyed bewilderment. Apologizing profusely, Aika gently assures the boy that he does not have to force himself to be her friend if it brings him so much sorrow. Snapping back to the present, the emotional young heir quickly wipes away his tears, deeply touched by her unexpected kindness. She gazes at him in breathless awe, hoping her sincere warmth has finally reached his guarded heart. Standing beneath the endless blue sky, a beautiful and powerful declaration of friendship officially bridges the massive gap between their worlds. Shifting the somber mood, the bright-eyed girl eagerly begins babbling about a delicious cake her overprotective uncle bought her. Clasping his hand tightly, Aika warmly invites him to visit her grand estate to try their incredible chef's delicious desserts. While the two happily plan their next playdate, a sudden menacing chill slices through the air, sending a cold shiver down Aika's spine. An unsettling darkness looms over the beautiful garden as the boy anxiously asks her what is wrong. Trembling violently, the young girl clings to herself as a bizarre, supernatural freeze suddenly grips the warm summer air. Displaying perfect noble chivalry, the silver-haired boy wraps his warm coat around her shoulders and urges them to seek shelter immediately. Aika panics internally, recognizing this chilling sensation as the exact dizzying aura she felt when she first foresaw the future. From the shadows, a mysterious dark figure steps forward, watching the departing children with cold, calculating interest. The shadowy noble instantly identifies the two children, recognizing their immense political value to the Empire's power struggle. Duke Lagia de Deslin wears a sinister smirk, realizing his rivals are already moving to secure an alliance with the young heir. Mocking his rival's cunning moves, the devious dupe orders his loyal aide Achille to prepare for their own departure. Night falls over the kingdom, shrouding the day's political conspiracies under a majestic full moon. A grand carriage clatters down the quiet cobblestone streets, carrying its precious passengers away from the palace. Seeing his niece sulk, Castle playfully teases her about being sad to leave her very first friend behind so soon. Clutching a delicate bunch of yellow daffodils, Aika stares out the window, her heart heavy with longing for her friend. Recalling their sweet farewell, Aika remembers promising a hopeful Ruthven that she would return to the palace in exactly 10 nights. Before she could leave, the silver-haired boy suddenly stopped her, frantically searching his pockets for a parting gift. Out of his pocket, he pulled a handful of beautifully wrapped, colorful candies to give to her. With a radiant, beaming smile, Aika proudly offers him the sweets, declaring them to be her absolute favorite flavors. Staring down at the vibrant candies cradled in his hands, the lonely boy is deeply moved by her pure-hearted gesture. As Aika waves goodbye, Ruthven suddenly musters his courage and shouts out that he has a special gift for her as well. Handing over a small bouquet of vibrant yellow flowers, he shyly admits that their bright color reminds him of her. Overjoyed by the heartwarming gesture, Aika beams with pure bliss while cradling the precious yellow blooms. Returning to the present, the little girl sighs softly, already missing her new friend's quiet company. She laments the sudden, bizarre drop in temperature that cut their beautiful playdate far too short. Suspicion lingers in the air as Aika wonders what truly caused that ominous, bone-chilling cold. Gazing up at the moonlit sky, she quietly worries if her sweet new friend made it back safely. Meanwhile, another royal carriage speeds through the dense, dark forests under the cover of night. Safe inside his carriage, Ruthven sits in quiet contemplation, staring intently at the colorful pouch of candies. Sitting across from him, his puzzled servant notes that the young heir hasn't taken his eyes off the gift. Kamai, a loyal servant of House Kelpodia, politely offers to safely pack the colorful sweets away in his bag. Delivering a flat refusal, the young master firmly clutches the precious gift, insisting on holding it himself. The servant is utterly shocked when the young master, who detests sweets, happily pops one of the candies into his mouth. The next morning, a brilliant sun shines over the breathtakingly grand estate of Marquis Linier. Cute hamster plush slippers patter rapidly down the hallway as someone rushes in a hurry. A loud, dramatic slam echoes through the silent hallways of the luxurious estate. Bursting through the doors, a cheerful Aika eagerly calls out to see if her uncle is inside. Caught mid-change, the handsome, muscular duke sighs, questioning why his niece always manages to barge in at the worst moments. Blushingly reacting to his shirtless form, Aika panics as her uncle calmly asks if she came to ask him something. Tugged by curiosity, Aika questions her uncle about the emperor's past friendship with her late mother, noting they share the same hair color. The duke's sharp yellow eyes narrow as he sternly commands her to get straight to the point. Complaining about his utter lack of patience, Aika pouts childishly, setting up an intense, high-stakes conversation about royal secrets. Determined to uncover a closely guarded secret, the black-haired girl nervously asks a sudden question about the emperor. Her uncle, the red-haired duke, is visibly caught off guard by her shocking inquiry. The persistent girl wonders if the mysterious sovereign secretly has a child of his own. An illusion of a dark-haired man hanging upside down plays in her hyperactive imagination. In the shadowy depths of the empire, dangerous political conspiracies continue to brew. Staring with wide, curious eyes, she asks if her uncle also has children. The red-haired Duke reacts with utter bewilderment to her sudden barrage of questions. Defiant and full of attitude, the young girl insists she has every right to ask. Clasping her hands together, she desperately pleads with him to satisfy her curiosity. He flatly denies the claim and demands that she leave his study immediately. Her mind immediately spins a dramatic tale of a tragic, fateful romance under a shower of roses. The red-haired Duke sighs in exasperation, completely overwhelmed by her wild fairy tale theories. Satisfied with his answers, a bright and cheerful smile lights up her face. A heavy slam echoes through the hallway as she is kicked out of his room. Well, that is one way to end a high-stakes interrogation. Pouting with puffed-out cheeks, the dramatic girl mutters about her uncle's annoying secrecy. Night falls over the Grand Leguer estate, setting the stage for a critical event. Dressed in elegant black formal wear, the red-haired Duke prepares himself to depart. In her bedroom, the young girl contentedly lies on her stomach while coloring. Seeing him head towards the door, she casually asks where he is going. He cold-heartedly tells her she has no business following him on this trip. An uncomfortable silence fills the room as a strange intuition ticks in his mind. Looking back, the suspicious Duke feels an overwhelming sense of dread at her quiet obedience. She flashes a deceptively sweet smile, warmly wishing him a safe journey. Her uncharacteristically cooperative behavior only deepens his paranoid suspicions. Shaking off his doubts, the Duke grabs the door handle to make his departure. A luxurious horse-drawn carriage waits under the starry night sky to whisk him away. Outside, his loyal guard steps forward to report on their secretive operations. The guard confirms that most hostile remnants have been successfully handled. With his orders finalized, the grand carriage rolls out through the towering iron gates. Sitting alone in the carriage, the red-haired Duke adjusts his glasses in deep thought. He wonders if his mischievous niece is currently plotting trouble in his absence. A sudden realization strikes him as his sharp yellow eyes narrow in suspicion. His gaze locks onto a massive locked wooden chest sitting directly across from him. Sensing a familiar presence inside, he coldly demands that the hidden intruder reveal themselves. An oppressive aura fills the carriage as he sternly repeats his command to step out. The heavy lid of the wooden trunk slowly pushes open, revealing a tiny hand. Bursting out of the trunk, the cheerful black-haired girl greets him with a massive shout. She sheepishly laughs, completely unbothered by her cover being blown. When he demands to know how she snuck in, she reveals her clever stealth tactics. The Duke realizes his private journey is officially over, defeated by her sheer persistence. Overwhelmed by her relentless energy, his icy composure completely melts away. He reluctantly gives in, sighing as he permits her to join him. A sudden burst of sheer joy erupts inside the carriage. Overjoyed, she leaps directly into his arms and declares him the absolute best uncle. The carriage speeds down the moonlit road toward their glittering destination. She chatters excitedly about her grandfather's grand party and the delicious food. Arriving at the destination, a breathtaking, brilliantly lit mansion stands majestically under the moon. Her eyes sparkle like stars as she gazes in absolute wonder at the gorgeous estate. She excitedly dances around, ignoring her uncle's warnings to stay close and behave. Gazing at the carriage, she fondly recalls her late mother's beautiful memories, ready to step into a brand new adventure. Walking hand in hand into the grand venue, the little girl curiously asks her red-haired uncle if her grandfather arrived first, only to receive a clueless reply. Pouting with annoyance, she reminds him that her grandfather is his own father and he definitely should know the answer. Suddenly, the young girl gasps in surprise as a strange sensation catches her off guard. Walking down the grand corridor, she notices the guests' eyes locked onto them, whispering as they pass. The red-haired Duke keeps a stoic face as murmurs spread about his rare and captivating presence. The whispering nobles immediately question the identity of the mysterious child walking beside the legendary Duke. Seeing footsteps approach, the young girl wonders how these strangers already seem to recognize her. A sudden, bone-chilling draft sweeps through the hall, triggering a violent shiver of dread within her. An oppressive feeling of absolute panic grips her heart as it begins to race uncontrollably. An older man with a walking cane approaches, calling out to the rarely seen Duke. The red-haired Duke responds with cold irritation, questioning why he shouldn't attend his own family's grand banquet. The sharp sound of a cane striking the floor echoes loudly through the tense hallway. Smiling deceptively, the older gray-haired noble mentions his relief that the Duke survived his recent dangerous trials. Clinging tightly to her uncle's coat, the young girl stares at the mysterious crest on the cane, feeling a strange familiarity. A crucial memory resurfaces, warning her to stay far away from those associated with snake-like eyes. In a nostalgic flashback, a mother's hand points to a book instructing her young daughter to study these family crests. The mother gently reassures her brilliant daughter that she will recognize the dangerous symbols immediately. The book displays a crimson shield flanked by deadly serpents, identifying House Deslin as the ultimate snake. Back in the present, the intricate emblem shining on the old man's cane triggers a terrifying realization. Her memory fits the pieces together, identifying the tree and chain crest as the emblem of the dangerous turtle faction. Overwhelmed by absolute terror, the little girl realizes she must escape from this dangerous presence immediately. An ominous darkness swirls around her as she desperately seeks a way to flee. Before she can move, a reassuring hand gently rests on her shoulder to steady her. Looking up, the young girl sees her uncle's calm reflection mirrored in her wide, frightened eyes. Her uncle remains steady beside her, a tower of absolute protection. The gray-haired noble sighs, dismissing his own dark thoughts as mere old age. The dangerous turtle crest of House Rondo looms in her mind, sending a fresh wave of panic through her. Her mother's urgent warnings echo in her thoughts, screaming at her to be on guard. The red-haired duke turns a cold, analytical gaze toward the suspicious gray-haired noble. The old noble mutters again about worrying over useless things as he ages. Clearing his throat, the older man is formally identified as Jamil de Rondo, the notorious Marquis Rondo. Shivering in fear, the young girl hides behind her uncle, remembering her mother's warning that Marquis Rondo is dangerously allied with Duke Deslin. She trembles violently, unable to shake the supernatural chill and the dark resonance of the old man's voice. Sensing his niece's terror, the Duke glances down in silent, protective anger. Deciding to end the encounter, the Duke coldly announces their departure, wishing the Marquis a pleasant night. Marquis Rondo reacts with mild surprise, wondering why they're in such a massive hurry. Reaching a hand out toward the child, the old man wonders if she belongs to the Chancellor. With a lightning-fast grip, the red-haired Duke violently grabs the Marquis's wrist, stopping him in his tracks. Unleashing a terrifying aura, the Duke warns Marquis Rondo to leave immediately before things get violent. Sweating with fear, the older noble quickly backs down, claiming he meant no offense. Still shaken, the little girl stares up at her uncle, amazed by his fierce protectiveness. The scene shifts to the beautifully lit, empty grand staircase of the luxurious banquet hall. Below, the high society guests continue to mingle peacefully, unaware of the tense confrontation that just occurred. The young girl suddenly perks up as a familiar, cheerful voice calls out to her. Running toward them with open arms, her smiling grandfather warmly welcomes his beloved princess. The grandfather's face lights up with absolute joy at the sight of his darling granddaughter. A warm, joyful atmosphere instantly dispels the lingering shadows of the room. Giggling happily, she hugs her grandfather and rubs her cheek against his smooth face as her grumpy uncle watches from behind. Snuggling close, she eagerly tells her grandfather that she has a very important question to ask him. She looks up with intense curiosity, asking if she had ever met Marquis Rondo when she was a baby, leaving the mystery hanging in the air. A shocking revelation begins to unfold as her grandfather reacts to the unexpected mention of Marquis Rondo. Deep in thought, the red-haired Duke struggles to recall why the Marquis's voice sounds so hauntingly familiar. Pouting defiantly, the young girl insists her grandfather's voice is infinitely cooler and deeper than any ordinary old man. The Duke's icy composure shatters when Aika reveals her late mother warned her of the dangerous snake factions. A warm memory flashes back to her mother Saria, pointing out the dangerous family crests in an old textbook. The Duke falls into a heavy silence, deeply moved by his sister Saria's hidden protective legacy. Breaking the tension, her grandfather joyfully announces a spectacular surprise gift he has prepared for his princess. A breathtaking golden-domed academy rises majestically, setting the stage for a grand new adventure. Her grandfather proudly reveals his plans to build a magnificent royal academy exclusively for her future. Under the starry night, the Duke secretly acknowledges his father's brilliant play to secure Aika's safety. The Duke dryly suggests acquiring an existing school instead, leaving Aika thoroughly confused by their bickering. Aika excitedly imagines laying the very first brick of her school while her uncle dreads the manual labor. Her grandfather's eyes sparkle with delight as he asks if she already has a special classmate in mind. Aika excitedly names Prince Calypso, causing her uncle to grumble at her casual connections to the royal family. Ending the sweet family reunion, the Duke sternly demands she step down to prepare for their incoming guests. The majestic grand ballroom glimmers brilliantly as high society guests begin to fill the opulent space. Contentedly sipping her colorful fruit drink, Aika happily enjoys her brief moment of absolute peace. The famously handsome Duke is instantly swarmed by elegant noblewomen eager to win his rare favor. Watching her uncle's frozen, bored expression, Aika mischievously wishes she could take over his greeting duties. A mysterious, refined blonde woman in a stunning black lace gown gracefully steps into the crowded hall. Sensing her sharp presence, the Duke turns back with a look of intense, guarded surprise. Countess Hella de la Mode makes a striking entrance, teasing the stoic Duke about his rare public appearance. Leaning in with a sharp whisper, Hella warns him that dismissing her tonight will lead to devastating regrets. Aika's eyes instantly ignite with dramatic excitement as she turns her legendary matchmaking lens onto the scene. Her wild imagination immediately paints Hella as her uncle's secret girlfriend amidst a shower of romantic red roses. The Duke instructs Aika to stay put with Gerard while he handles the unexpected business. Delighted to help her uncle's love life succeed, Aika willingly slips away to give them private space. Spotting the loyal guard, the cheerful girl runs over to Gerard, ready for her next side quest. Aika eagerly whispers to Gerard, asking if the gorgeous blonde countess is her uncle's secret liver. Gerard bursts into a sweat of nervous laughter, quickly clarifying that the two are strictly political allies. Aika gasps in sheer shock as her beautifully crafted romantic fantasy instantly crumbles to pieces. Spotting a glowing indoor fountain, Aika excitedly points and begs Gerard to let her sit near the water. Fearing she might catch a cold from the mist, Gerard gently guides her to a cozy table nearby. Smiling brightly, the little girl hops onto the tall chair, swinging her feet in absolute delight. Her eyes widen in pure ecstasy as Gerard presents a spectacular feast of cakes and desserts. Gerard reassures her the Duke will return soon, offering to escort her back to the carriage if she gets bored. Strongly refusing to leave her uncle's side, Aika insists on staying, prompting Gerard to briefly check on things. Left entirely to her own devices, the cheerful girl happily hums a tune, enjoying her sweet paradise. From the dark shadows of the ballroom, a hostile pink-haired noblewoman narrows her eyes, targeting the lonely child. Unaware of the lurking danger, Aika rests her cheek in her hand, daydreaming of her uncle's future. The beautiful marble fountain of the estate continues to shimmer under the glowing banquet lights. The indoor fountain continues to mist beautifully, serving as a tranquil centerpiece to a gathering storm. Aika suddenly blinks in confusion, starting to wonder why Gerard is taking so long to return. Getting increasingly bored and restless, she debates whether to stay put or set off on her own. Cruel, whispered gossip suddenly cuts through the air, casting dark doubts on her true parentage. The malicious nobles mockingly question if the single chancellor kept her hidden away out of deep shame. Overhearing their poisonous words, Aika freezes as they debate whether the Marquis intends to marry her mother. The pink-haired woman sneers viciously, claiming a powerful man can easily get away with such a shameful flaw. Gripped by sudden sadness, Aika looks down at her sweets, her heart heavy with the venomous rumors. A comforting memory of her mother's loving embrace warms her heart, but will she find the strength to face this toxic high society alone? Scheming nobles whisper malicious rumors about her legitimacy, questioning her future as an heir. Walking nearby, the young girl is forced to overhear their cruel, mocking comments targeting her grandfather. As the snobbish pair continues to gossip, she resolves with quiet pride that her mother never hid her out of shame. The gossiping duo freezes in sudden shock as their malicious chatter is abruptly interrupted. Stepping forward bravely, the little girl confronts them directly for spreading such terrible lies. Standing her ground, she demands they face her instead of whispering in the dark corner of the hall. Defending her mother's proud legacy, she scolds the pink-haired woman, triggering a furious, explosive reaction. The enraged pink-haired noblewoman turns on the girl, viciously blaming her existence for their family's bad reputation. Overcome with blind rage, the woman raises her arm to strike down the defiant child. With a whippet sneer, she violently splashes her dark red wine directly at the defenseless little girl. A loud splash cuts through the ballroom air, marking a shocking act of high society cruelty. Squeezing her eyes shut, she braces for the cold splash, only to realize she remains completely dry. A towering, powerful figure suddenly steps in front of her, blocking the attack with cold, quiet authority. The smug noblewoman's face instantly pales with sheer terror as she recognizes the formidable man before her. The legendary red-haired Marquis Leguier stands tall, his sharp gaze radiating absolute death. Gerard rushes over to the frightened girl, quickly checking her safety and guiding her away. Confident his niece is safe, Marquis Leguier sends Gerard a cold nod, turning his attention to the culprits. Sweating with fear, the pink-haired woman frantically wonders how much of their conversation the dangerous lord overheard. She desperately recalls their brief past meeting, hoping she holds some favorable standing in his eyes. In her mind, she sees his cold, elegant profile from earlier in the evening. She desperately clings to the false hope that she had managed to catch his attention. The Marquis instantly crushes her hopes, daring her to continue her pathetic gossiping right to his face. He ruthlessly mocks her sudden silence, asking where her loud, arrogant voice went. Shaking with fear, the noblewoman weakly tries to defend herself against his harsh words. Marquis Leguier coldly points out her hypocrisy, threatening both Rosina Green and Tommy DeMito with absolute financial ruin. Stunned in sheer horror, the two schemers realize their foolish gossip has cost them everything. Walking away without a single backward glance, the powerful lord leaves them begging for a mercy they will never receive. The tense drama of the banquet room fades as the peaceful night sky settles over the grand courtyard. Strolling through the quiet gardens, the red-haired Marquis notices a familiar little figure waiting in the cold. He walks over, playfully teasing his little niece for standing around like a small peanut. While the Marquis jokingly scolds Gerard, Aika hilariously flails her arms to defend her loyal guard. Clenching her dress nervously, the young girl prepares to ask her uncle a deeply personal question. A warm memory of her loving red-haired mother flashes through her mind, shining with pure affection. Looking up with bright, hopeful eyes, she wonders if she can find that same warmth with him. The stoic lord looks down at his niece, his icy expression softening ever so slightly. Sensing her vulnerability, he remains silent as a deep, unspoken bond begins to form between them. A nostalgic flashback shows his sister Saria gently patting his head, reminding him of her warmth. Breaking from his thoughts, Marquis Leguier clears his throat to hide his growing fondness for his niece. Playfully accepting her charm, he grumpily asks if her excessive cuteness is supposed to win him over. A few days later, a luxurious carriage rolls through the bustling sunlit streets of a vibrant town. Sitting inside, the cheerful girl beams with pure happiness, holding a golden nameplate close to her heart. Crossing his arms, his red-haired uncle looks at her with an amused, curious expression. Bouncing with infinite energy, she excitedly rambles about visiting her mother's favorite flower shop. Looking up with wide, sparkly eyes, she shyly asks if they can explore the local market together. Her uncle immediately rejects the idea, crossing his arms and stating they are only buying flowers. Her bright expression instantly collapses as she begins to tear up dramatically. Sniffling quietly, she thinks about how much she really wanted to visit the market. Looking thoroughly exhausted by her dramatic waterworks, the Marquise sighs as she continues her silent crying. She whimpers softly, describing all the amazing dolls and delicious snacks they could have found. Finally yielding to her adorable manipulation, he promises to take her next time, sending her into a state of absolute joy. A seemingly peaceful journey is about to spark a massive confrontation. Her uncle warns her to slow down, but she excitedly rushes ahead. They arrive at their destination as she cheerfully greets the flower shop. A brown-haired flower girl turns around in complete shock at the sudden greeting. Aika excitedly calls out to Neri, asking how she has been doing. A sudden movement shifts the scene into an emotional, tearful reunion. Neri tightly embraces the little girl as tears of relief escape her eyes. Sobbing happily, Neri expresses her overwhelming relief that Aika is safe and sound. Aika looks up in concern as Neri mentions how heartbroken she must have been. Neri deeply regrets letting Saria leave on that fateful day. Hearing about her mother, the red-haired Marquise listens with guarded intensity. Clenching her nameplate, Aika is determined to uncover her mother's past. Neri continues to struggle with the heavy burden of her past regrets. Aika directly asks if Neri knows what truly happened on that fateful day. Holding her breath, Aika waits desperately for the flower girl's response. Wiping away her tears, Neri begins to recount the day before the tragic accident. A beautiful flashback reveals a smiling, red-haired Saria admiring the flowers. Neri confesses her immense relief and how deeply she has missed Aika. Visibly touched, the young girl softly speaks Neri's name in return. Neri guides them inside and curiously asks who the flowers are meant for. Aika proudly lists everyone she wants to gift flowers to, including her uncle. Her stoic uncle casually dismisses the gesture, saying he doesn't need anything. Aika hilariously objects, insisting he will definitely change his mind once he sees them. Neri offers to personally select the freshest and most beautiful flowers for them. A stunning collection of freshly prepared flower bouquets is neatly arranged. Neri gently places a lovely purple flower in Aika's hair, surprising her. Smiling brightly, Aika expresses her heartfelt gratitude to the kind flower girl. Aika runs after her uncle as he begins to head back outside. Aika eagerly requests one more flower despite Neri's warning about its weight. The red-haired Marquis turns around and acknowledges his niece's arrival. A colossal, vibrant sunflower stands proud under the warm golden sunlight. Her uncle questions the massive flower, but she proudly insists it suits him perfectly. Aika flashes a brilliant, heartwarming smile while holding her giant flower. Her uncle grumpily wonders where he is supposed to put such a massive flower. Pouting dramatically, the little girl calls her stubborn uncle incredibly mean. Yielding to her cuteness, the stoic Marquis grumpily accepts the massive sunflower. Her uncle mockingly tells her to grow bigger, prompting a frustrated scream of defeat. Inside the carriage, Aika reacts in surprise to a sudden commotion outside. Stepping outside, the Marquis demands to know what is causing the disturbance. The guard reveals that their controversial guests from the banquet have suddenly arrived. The guard explains that the desperate nobles are refusing to leave the gate. The guard asks how they should handle the anxious noble duo's desperate apology. The Marquis remains silent, contemplating how to deal with the troublemakers. He gives his niece the choice to join him or stay safely inside. Showing true courage, Aika confidently decides to face the scheming nobles directly. Spotting them, the trembling pink-haired woman desperately calls out to the formidable Marquis. In a shocking display of desperation, the arrogant nobles drop to their knees. The brown-haired nobleman frantically begs for mercy, promising never to speak carelessly again. The pink-haired woman frantically pleads for leniency, swearing to never repeat her mistakes. To seal their desperate apology, she presents a dazzling, highly valuable red necklace. In a desperate bid for survival, the ruined nobles offer a carriage full of lavish gifts to beg for forgiveness. Her red-haired uncle, Marquis Laguerre, turns to his little niece, asking for her final judgment on the matter. Sensing her hesitation, the powerful lord gently reminds her that she is under no obligation to accept their peace offering. To the desperate noble's absolute horror, Aika flatly rejects their expensive gifts. Instead of seeking revenge, the bright-eyed girl offers a surprising, pure-hearted response. Appreciating their courage to apologize face-to-face, the gentle child decides to forgive them. However, she sternly warns the trembling duo never to repeat their cruel mistakes again. Overwhelmed with immense gratitude, the relieved nobles quickly depart in their carriage, singing her praises. The scene transitions to the majestic sunlit spires of the Grand Imperial Palace. Sitting quietly under a massive tree, the silver-haired boy named Ruthve reflects on her incredible capacity for forgiveness. Joined by Aika, the young prince expresses his concern, but she cheerfully reassures him that she is completely fine. When Ruthve praises her mother, Aika beams with pride, calling her mother the coolest person in the entire world. Watching her infectious joy, a soft, genuine smile warms the young prince's face. Clutching a beautiful bouquet of white flowers, the boy promises to treasure her thoughtful gift forever. Giggling happily, the little girl proudly admits she handpicked the perfect flower just to match his gentle nature. Thrilled by her kindness, Ruthve excitedly reveals that he also brought a special present just for her. He carefully presents a beautifully wrapped pink gift box adorned with a yellow bow. With her eyes sparkling with absolute excitement, Aika eagerly asks if she can open it right away. She happily digs into the package to uncover the hidden surprise. Her face lights up in pure delight as she discovers what is inside. Inside the box sits a pair of incredibly adorable, fluffy white bunny slippers. The heartwarming exchange highlights a moment of absolute innocence and friendship. Squeezing the fuzzy slippers tightly, Aika squeals with joy at the wonderfully cute present. Seeing her immense happiness, Ruthve smiles warmly, glad his gift made her so happy. Clasping her new slippers, Aika excitedly suggests playing hide-and-seek or drawing under the warm afternoon sun. Looking at his bright companion, the young prince silently vows to play whatever she wants, cherishing every moment together. Suddenly, an icy, stern voice cuts through their peaceful afternoon, demanding to know what is going on. Ruthve's face instantly pales with terror as he is harshly scolded for neglecting his future duties. A stern, green-haired man with a mustache berates the young prince for wasting his precious time. Pointing to the boy's status, the oppressive adult coldly expresses his deep disappointment in Ruth's behavior. Terrified, the young prince immediately bows to apologize, while Aika watches in absolute shock and confusion. The harsh man ruthlessly mocks the idea of a rest day, reminding the future crown prince that there is no time for play. Stunned by the adult's sheer cruelty, Aika's confusion quickly morphs into boiling anger. A dangerous, fiery determination ignites in the young girl's eyes. Unleashing a fiery aura of pure rage, she prepares to confront the man for daring to bully her friend. The tense confrontation escalates as a shadow looms over the quiet castle gardens. Dismissing the boy's pleas, the cold adult forcefully commands Ruthve to follow him for immediate instruction. The arrogant nobleman suddenly freezes in surprise as something abruptly blocks his path. Standing bravely in front of the trembling prince, Aika spreads her arms to block the looming threat. "I'm just a language model and can't help with that." Glaring right back at him, the fearless girl analyzes his features to identify the powerful stranger. Recalling her vast knowledge, she quickly connects his green hair, blue eyes, and vine-wreathed shield crest. In her mind, she identifies the prestigious crest belonging to the formidable Duke of Nodium. Furious at his behavior, she wonders why a man of such high standing would stoop so low to bully a child. When the man demands her identity, she proudly stands tall and announces her name as Aika de Valiart. The nobleman sneers at her name, mockingly noting that her family has finally stopped hiding her. As he arrogantly introduces himself as Gale de Nodium, Aika realizes he is not the Duke, but actually the Duke's snobbish son. Gale condescendingly lectures her on basic manners and showing respect to her elders. Refusing to back down, Aika fiercely fires back, declaring that adults who bully children deserve absolutely no respect. Dismissing her defiance, Gale coldly warns the little girl that the young prince's path is far too arduous to waste on mindless play. A fiery confrontation ignites as a brave young girl steps up to protect her terrified friend from a ruthless noble, defiantly threatening to report Gale's harsh treatment of the 7-year-old prince directly to the emperor himself. Sweating profusely, the arrogant nobleman instantly cowers at the mention of the emperor, muttering in fear about the notorious Valiart temper. Refusing to let him off the hook, Aika angrily calls the cowering nobleman a mean old man. Inspired by her courage, the young prince finally finds his voice and declares he was not being bothered. Aika stands tall as a protective shield, her golden eyes shining with unwavering determination. Just when the tension peaks, a sudden shift leaves the young girl completely wide-eyed with shock. Overwhelmed with emotion, the young prince tightly embraces his brave protector in a heartwarming moment of relief. Holding her close, Ruthve softly whispers his gratitude, assuring her that he is finally okay. The young prince tightly holds on to her dress, finding solace in her comforting presence. Breaking the tender moment, the stern nobleman coldly addresses the young lord, demanding his immediate attention. Standing tall, Ruthve firmly defends his actions, declaring he has never neglected his arduous training or dishonored the imperial family. With absolute resolve in his purple eyes, the young prince vows to never falter. Clearing his throat, the cornered noble begrudgingly backs down from his harsh demands. Turning away, the grumbling noble mutters about the unmarried emperor before warning the prince not to waste any more precious time. Before departing, the arrogant adult fires a final condescending warning directly at Aika. Pouting dramatically, Aika voices her deep disappointment in the Nodium family, while the prince gently tries to soothe her anger with a soft laugh. Brushing off the sour mood, Aika grabs his hand and eagerly asks if they can finally play. Aika's face lights up with infectious joy as she happily leads him toward their next adventure. The young prince looks on in wonder, curious about the exciting destination she has in mind. The scene transitions to the grand towering shelves of the majestic Imperial Palace archives. The polite archivist, Gerard, kindly reminds them to handle the books with care, placing the archive key safely in Aika's bag. Beaming with pure excitement, the sweet girl happily thanks Gerard while clutching her pink bag. Overflowing with energy, Aika excitedly drags the young prince deeper into the massive labyrinth of books. The two friends stare in absolute awe, completely spellbound by the endless rows of ancient literature. Spotting the fairy tale section, Aika eagerly suggests exploring it, earning a warm nod of agreement from her companion. While the prince quietly steps aside to search another aisle, Aika desperately brainstorms a way to cheer him up. Suddenly, Aika's attention is pulled away as she spots something unexpected nearby. Finding a curious empty gap in the bookshelf, the mischievous girl realizes it is the perfect size for her to squeeze inside. A brilliant, mischievous idea sparks in Aika's mind, promising a perfect little surprise for her friend. She plots to hide inside the shelf and jump out to give the prince a harmless, playful scare. Giggling quietly, the adventurous little girl crawls into the empty shelf, completely out of sight. To her surprise, the space is incredibly deep, leading her further into a mysterious hidden passageway. Squinting through the darkness, she is stunned to find a bright opening on the other side of the wall. Feeling a sudden wave of unease, Aika decides it is time to turn back and escape the eerie darkness. Back in the archives, Ruthvi calls out to his friend, completely unaware of her sudden disappearance. Receiving only silence in return, a chilling sense of dread washes over the young prince. Panic sets in as her name echoes through the vast empty halls of the archive. Suddenly, a door is violently thrown open as a powerful presence bursts into the scene. With eyes blazing with fury, the formidable red-haired Marquis demands an immediate explanation for the commotion. Looming over them, the intimidating lord demands to know exactly what has happened to his precious niece. Shaking with fear, the archivist struggles to speak as the impatient Marquis demands to know if his little peanut simply went home early. The horrific truth is finally delivered. Aika has completely vanished without a trace, leaving her uncle in stunned disbelief. Sobbing uncontrollably, the guilt-ridden prince takes full blame for her sudden disappearance, trembling from head to toe. In a surprising moment of tenderness, a firm hand gently rests on the sobbing prince's shoulder. The Marquis softly reassures the boy that it is not his fault, ordering him to wipe his tears and follow him. Filled with renewed hope and determination, the young prince quickly nods and follows close behind. Charging forward, the frantic Marquis orders an all-out search party, his heart gripping with absolute terror for his niece's safety. Back in the pitch-black abyss, a terrified Aika can only pray for her own survival as the shadows close in. Elsewhere in the castle, utter chaos erupts as a guard is violently hurled across the room. Trembling on the floor, the terrified guards desperately beg the unstoppable Marquis to stay calm, but with his precious niece missing, his terrifying wrath is about to unleash absolute hell on anyone in his way. With a deadly glare, the furious Marquis warns anyone against blocking his path. A terrified palace guard desperately warns the Marquis that his intrusion borders on absolute treason. Confronted at the inner chamber, the Marquis demands the Emperor step aside, but the ruler firmly refuses. The Emperor desperately begs the furious Marquis to calm down, promising to personally find Aika. Emitting a chilling aura, the enraged Marquis threatens to end the Emperor's life right then and there. The Marquis bitterly blames the ruler's reckless gift of the archive key for his niece's disappearance. Admitting his mistake, the Emperor pleads for more time, promising that the little girl remains safe. Losing all patience, the furious Marquis grabs the Emperor's collar, refusing to wait any longer. Haunted by past tragedy, the broken uncle vows he will not lose his precious niece too. Tightening his grip, the Emperor implores him to put his trust in Syria's maternal protection instead. The magical key was actually a safe, sacred inheritance left behind by the girl's late mother. Smiling softly, the Emperor reminds Castle that he could never refuse a request from his beloved Syria. The reminder of his sister's memory leaves the fierce Marquis completely silent and deeply conflicted. Releasing his hostile grip, the Marquis begrudgingly agrees to stand down for the moment. The tense silence is suddenly shattered as a frantic guard bursts into the Imperial Hall. A wave of immense relief washes over the palace as they announce the young lady has finally been found. The scene shifts back to the majestic archives where the intense search finally reaches its end. Sobbing with relief, the young prince throws his arms around Aika in a desperate hug. The crying prince asks if she is hurt, but the cheerful girl quickly reassures him she is perfectly fine. The girl's cheerful smile instantly freezes as a familiar, ominous nickname echoes from behind. Turning around, Aika is terrified to see her uncle engulfed in a towering inferno of pure rage. Under his intense glare, the trembling girl desperately stammers out a harmless excuse about a playful surprise. Before she can finish her story, she is suddenly swept off her feet with a startled gasp. The terrifying tension melts away as a warm, comforting embrace completely envelops the young girl. Underneath his scary exterior, the terrified uncle tightly embraces his precious niece, overwhelmed with relief. Clinging to him, the surprised girl softly whispers his name, realizing how deeply he truly cares. Releasing his hug, the stern uncle drops a massive bombshell, immediately banning Aika from the palace. Hearing the cruel decree, the heartbroken young prince desperately cries out in utter protest. The emperor tries to intervene, urging the overprotective marquis to reconsider his harsh decision. Looking utterly defeated, the young prince solemnly promises that no further danger will ever befall her. Ignoring all protests, Castle carries Aika away as she loudly invites the prince to visit her home instead. Left alone, the young prince clenches his fist, making a silent, powerful vow to protect her. Citing his resolve, the marquis suddenly halts as a strangely powerful energy emanates from the young boy. The marquis stares in absolute shock, sensing an incredibly divine mystical aura radiating from the young prince. Softening his stance, the thoughtful marquis begrudgingly agrees to consider the prince's future visits. Instantly brightened by the sudden hope, the cute young prince waves a cheerful goodbye. Breathing a heavy sigh of relief, Aika quietly apologizes for keeping the true magical encounter a secret. The story suddenly rewinds to a few hours prior, revealing the mystical truth of what really happened. Deep within the hidden glowing passageway, Aika is stunned to find a magical fluffy companion waiting. An incredibly cute, refined white bunny wearing a classy monocle and a bright red bow stares back. The young girl's eyes bulge in absolute shock as the adorable creature suddenly starts speaking to her. The elegant little bunny blinks in mild surprise at the girl's chaotic and dramatic reaction. To her complete disbelief, the magical rabbit asks if she knows a woman named Syria. Shocked, Aika asks how it knows her mother, leaving the curious rabbit utterly stunned by the revelation. Beaming with joy, the bunny introduces himself as Lepus, a dear companion of her late mother. When the girl hilariously mistakes him for a ghost, the offended rabbit frantically denies being a spirit. Realizing how much time has passed, Lepus notes with surprise that they must wrap up their chat. After learning her name is Aika, Lepus kindly instructs the young girl to wait right there. With a graceful leap, the magical bunny dives headfirst into a glowing, watery dimensional portal. Left completely stranded in the magical chamber, a bewildered Aika can only stare in absolute open-mouthed disbelief. Just as she thinks she has stumbled upon a way out, the young girl is suddenly trapped by a shimmering, unbreakable barrier. With a sudden gasp, she is violently pulled backward as she desperately clutches a heavy stone tablet covered in mysterious runes. Before she can recover, a fluffy white rabbit paw gently taps the ancient tablet, declaring it to be a special gift left by her mother. Staring in absolute bewilderment at the stone tablet, she demands to know what it is, only for the cute rabbit to casually claim it is himself. Unconvinced, she squints at the cold, hard stone with a look of pure skepticism, questioning how a fluffy bunny could possibly be a block of rock. Shifting back in time, the memory reveals a beautiful red-haired woman holding the sacred stone tablet with a warm, gentle smile. The classy white rabbit explains her mother was a seeker, leaving her completely baffled by the unfamiliar legendary title. A heavy sadness fills her eyes as she softly reveals the tragic news that her mother has recently passed away. Hearing of her death, the elegant rabbit looks down in quiet sorrow, finally understanding the true weight of her mother's cryptic last words. The rabbit gently explains her mother's prophetic promise that a precious, chosen successor would one day arrive, though he never expected her to be so young. He warns her that her mother charged him with explaining her grand destiny and protecting her from the dangerous entity known as the Predator. Baffled by the menacing name, she tilts her head in confusion as the rabbit prepares to show her the truth of this ancient threat. With a sudden command to watch closely, the magical rabbit unleashes a brilliant, blinding burst of pure cosmic energy. Within the swirling vortex of light, ancient pages and books fly all around them as the mesmerized girl stares at the breathtaking magic. Pointing to an ancient drawing of a skilled hunter with a bow, the rabbit reveals that the predators are ruthless, relentless hunters. Showing her scrolls covered in ancient hieroglyphs, he sternly warns her that these hunters are incredibly dangerous and must be avoided at all costs. He takes her back to a time when a powerful deity maintained the world's balance before disappearing and leaving behind absolute relics of divine power. He explains how the massive burden of maintaining world balance was shared among the chosen seekers, who acted as divine messengers. But peace was shattered when envious people emerged to hunt the seekers and steal their relics, giving rise to the terrifying predators. As the cosmic light fades, the rabbit delivers a shocking revelation. She has inherited the legendary power of a seeker herself, leaving her frozen in sheer shock. Realizing the terrifying truth of her inheritance, she is gripped with sheer panic at the thought of being hunted down. Sensing her mounting terror, the brave little rabbit proudly puffs out his chest, promising to keep her safe from any danger. Staring up at the majestic archive ceiling, she cannot shake the terrifying realization that her life is now in constant mortal danger. Turning her gaze back to her tiny, fluffy companion, she questions how a small rabbit could possibly protect her from ruthless hunters. The rabbit explains that when a seeker successfully awakens a dormant relic, it grants the user incredible superhuman abilities. An elegant scroll highlights her late mother's past achievements, revealing how she gained immense power by awakening numerous sacred relics. The illustration depicts her mother's incredible gifts, from binding enemies in heavy iron chains to shielding herself from torrential downpours. Her eyes instantly light up with sparkling wonder as she marvels at her mother's extraordinary and majestic powers. She suddenly remembers that swallowing her mother's special gem has given her strange glimpses of the future, leaving the rabbit utterly flabbergasted. The shocked rabbit freezes in absolute disbelief, his eye widening in sheer panic at her reckless confession. The rabbit realizes that her mother must have forcibly extracted the relic's dormant power to protect her, leaving the young girl completely puzzled. Brushing the shocking revelation aside, the rabbit urges her to focus on gathering relics and growing stronger to withstand the hunters. He warns her that while hunters cannot track the relics themselves, they can easily sense the presence of any active seeker. Shifting to a memory of her past, the young girl is shown with her eyes glowing with a brilliant mystical gold aura. She recalls her hands channeling a powerful, concentrated orb of pure divine energy. The ancient scroll reveals the vital importance of learning how to completely conceal one's magical energy to evade the hunter's keen senses. The rabbit asks if she has encountered the legendary creature serpents yet, wondering if she has unlocked his true potential. He clarifies by describing a massive, menacing snake with a single glowing red eye, triggering a sudden, chilling memory. A terrifying memory flashes back, showing a giant black serpent coiled around her bed as she screams in absolute terror. She frantically insists it was nothing more than a bad dream, her face sweating as she tries to deny the scary encounter. The rabbit commands her to summon him by calling his true name, but she trembles in fear, terrified of facing the scary serpent again. Sensing an immediate menacing threat looming just outside, the rabbit warns her there is no time to lose and urges her to return home. Against a deep, starry backdrop, he frantically urges her to leave at once before she gets caught and scolded by her angry uncle. Looking completely confused, she questions what he means, completely unaware of the raging storm of fury waiting for her in the real world. With a sudden forceful push from the rabbit's paw, she is sent falling backward into a dark portal, screaming out in utter shock. A fancy frame delivers a comical update, confirming that she did indeed get terribly scolded by her furious uncle afterward. Shifting to a few days later, a clear blue sky marks the passage of time as the scene transitions back to the Grand family estate. The majestic, towering mansion of the Reguier estate stands gloriously under the bright afternoon sun. Sitting on her bed and crossing her arms in deep frustration, she struggles to figure out her next move, knowing she cannot delay her destiny any longer. Suddenly, the memory of her tiny companion's urgent advice echoes in her mind, prompting her to finally call upon the legendary serpents. Summoning her courage, Aika prepares to face the terrifying legendary serpent. The chilling memory of the monstrous serpent-scaping moss still haunts her. Just thinking about that terrifying encounter sends cold shivers down her spine. Just as she attempts the summon, her Uncle Castle suddenly interrupts her. Utterly startled, she screams in shock at her uncle's sudden intrusion. Castle asks why she is so startled, and she defensively blames his sudden entry. Castle announces his departure for the palace, instructing her to finish her lunch vegetables. She desperately begs to join him at the palace, but Castle flatly refuses. She furiously reminds him of his promise, but Castle casually dismisses her protests. Castle firmly crushes her hopes of visiting the palace, leaving her soaking in frustration. She grows anxious that she will never see the Emperor or her young prince Ruspe again. Lost in deep thought, she desperately wonders how to handle this dilemma. The scene shifts abruptly to the royal palace where discussions are underway. Castle adamantly refuses to let Aika visit, citing the danger she faced previously. The Emperor tries to persuade Castle, urging him to respect her mother's serious final wishes. Castle remains silent, carefully weighing the Emperor's compelling argument. The Emperor notes that Castle must have a plan, which Castle confidently confirms. A mysterious document with a complex magical crest is presented for review. The Emperor realizes this clever plan will allow Aika to safely access the archives. Castle expresses deep concern over the political backlash from jealous nobles. The Emperor reassures him, promising to handle all preparations and invite them officially. Back at the estate, Aika sits on her bed in deep silence. Confirmed that her uncle has left, she resolutely decides to try again. She takes a deep breath and begins to utter the sacred name. With all her might, she yells the name of the legendary beast. She blinks in confusion as nothing immediately happens around her. She panics and looks around, baffled by the complete lack of response. A cold droplet of water suddenly splashes onto her shoulder, signaling trouble. A torrential downpour abruptly begins to flood the area. Completely drenched, Aika looks up in sheer panic as the water rises. Submerged underwater, she desperately struggles to breathe as the pressure builds. Sinking deep underwater, she desperately wonders if calling serpents caused this terrifying nightmare. The massive serpent stares down coldly as she demands an answer. The towering black beast coils itself through the flooded bedroom chamber. Gasping for air, she suddenly finds herself back on dry land. Instead of a monster, a tiny, adorable snake asks if she cove. She stands completely frozen, dumbfounded by the tiny creature's cute appearance. She is deeply confused, trying to reconcile the terrifying monster with this cute baby snake. The tiny serpent politely introduces himself as the legendary Serpents. She instantly notices that his eyes perfectly match the mystical gem she swallowed. The little snake sways cutely, instantly melting her heart with his charm. Aika introduces herself and asks about his future-seeing power, prompting Serpents to ask if Lepus told her. Serpents warmly praises her intelligence as she happily points to her glowing eyes. Serpents explains that his future-seeing powers will grow stronger and more accurate with effort. Serpents promises to aid his summoner, earning an enthusiastic thank you from an overjoyed Aika. She sadly confesses that she cannot return to the archive to update Lepus. Looking at Castle's carriage, Serpents wonders if Castle will allow Aika to visit the palace. Refusing to be discouraged, Aika pumps her fists with newfound determination. Meanwhile, the grand carriage arrives at the sun-drenched Imperial training grounds. Unaware of her mystical contract, Castle strictly forbids her from visiting the palace. But how long can he keep her away? Castle sternly demands to know what trouble Aika is plotting, completely ignoring his grumbling guards. Quick on her feet, she eagerly shifts the topic, declaring she wants to invite Rusby over. Castle reluctantly gives his approval, much to her absolute delight. He quickly adds a massive catch, demanding she study under a new tutor. She flashes a sweet, calculating smile, preparing to drop another major request. The Grand Mansion stands peaceful, oblivious to the high-stakes negotiations unfolding inside. Castle waits in tense silence, warily bracing himself for her next move. He promises to take her along once things are safer, igniting her excitement. As she begins to scheme, Castle immediately warns her against making weird conditions. He boastfully reminds her how expensive his personal assistance truly is. Aika beams with supreme confidence, completely unfazed by his dramatic complaints. Castle freezes in absolute shock as her next proposal catches him off guard. Confused by the mention of a kiss, Castle questions what is going on. Aika proudly explains that her mother valued her sweet kisses at 1,000,000 gold. Castle sighs, instantly recognizing his late sister's mischievous influence at play. He fondly remembers her mother's witty banter and how she drove hard bargains. Castle jokingly demands 2 kisses as payment, prompting Aika to gasp at the price. She loudly accuses her uncle of being too greedy, leaving him defending his value. Accepting the deal, Aika tells her uncle to lean down for his payment. She plants a sweet kiss on his cheek, instantly melting a stern facade. She enthusiastically showers him with kisses, leaving the tough warrior completely defenseless. When asked why she gave him 3, she sweetly explains one was a gift. Castle instantly grows suspicious, wondering if this sweet gesture is actually a clever bribe. She happily runs off to write her letter, leaving the dramatic guards completely heartbroken. She begins her heartfelt letter to Rusby, lamenting how short their playtimes always are. Lying on the floor, she happily pens her sweet invitation with pure joy. Her letter travels across the city, carrying promises of delicious cake and garden adventures. Outside the palace, young Ruspis stands quietly, completely unaware of the incoming surprise. The letter ends with her eager hope of playing together and awaiting his reply. A gorgeous red envelope is presented, instantly catching the young prince's purple-eyed gaze. He gently holds the precious letter, his heart racing with quiet anticipation. The quiet palace corridors seem to brighten with a newfound warmth and hope. Delighted by her words, Rusby happily sits down to draft his eager response. Suddenly, a cold, authoritative voice demands to know if the letter is from Aika. His father's stern face appears, instantly freezing the warm atmosphere in the room. The luxurious crest on his chest highlights his unyielding, high noble status. Under his father's heavy pressure, Rusby hesitantly reveals the invitation to her estate. The father instantly grows suspicious of the illegitimate child who suddenly appeared. To him, this sudden invitation feels highly calculated and suspicious. He flatly forbids Rusby from going, leaving the young boy utterly devastated. He sternly repeats his command, warning his son to avoid unnecessary contact. Refusing to give up, Rusby nervously calls out to his father. He dares to object, shocking his father who never expected a rebuttal. Rusby cleverly argues that strengthening ties with the Valiarts benefits their political standing. His eyes flare with a fierce, unwavering determination to protect this new friendship. He confidently adds that he still owes her a great debt from before. His father coldly asks if he has forgotten his noble standing. He harshly reminds Rusby of his grand destiny to become the crown prince. Rusby begs for permission, promising to work twice as hard at his studies. Stunned, his father realizes the obedient boy is finally standing his ground. His father reluctantly consents, warning him to never bring shame to the Kalpodia family name. Rusby smiles with joy at his father's unexpected approval. Reflecting on the encounter, the young prince marvels at how he finally stood up to his father. Though terrified to his core, his determination to protect his bond carries him through. Glowing pink blossoms reflect his sheer happiness at the thought of reuniting with Aika. In his mind, she shines brightly, holding a bouquet of yellow wildflowers with a warm smile. Lovely garden flowers bloom, signaling a beautiful turn of events. Standing before a giant sunflower, Rusby's heart flutters with anticipation for their playdate. A soft, hopeful smile graces his face as he dreams of their reunion. As the sun sets, his only desire is to see his precious friend again soon. Suddenly, a splashing premonition of water breaks through his peaceful thoughts. He envisions Aika desperately drowning in deep water, filling him with intense dread. The terrifying vision of her falling into a watery abyss spurs his urgent desire to protect her. He agonizingly questions if his presence in her life has brought her into grave danger. The ripples of his anxiety settle as the visionary waters calm down. Destiny marches forward as the focus shifts toward their long-awaited reunion. A bright new day begins under a clear blue sky. The grand carriage arrives at the majestic estate under the sun. Servants carefully style and part the young prince's silver hair. Presenting a beautifully wrapped gift, a styled Rusby warmly greets his dear friend. Eagerly offering her the pink gift, he receives Aika's ecstatic gratitude. Aika notes his fancy hairstyle, prompting a flustered Rusby to nervously worry if it looks weird. Aika beams with pure joy, instantly melting all of his worries away. Surrounded by flowers, Rusp smiles back, completely captivated. Grabbing his hand, Aika excitedly leads him away to ask if he has ever baked a cake. She joyfully reminds him of their sweet promise to bake together today. In the sunlit kitchen, a voice asks the eager children if they have changed into baking clothes. Standing side by side, Aika and Rusby look adorable in bear aprons. The head chef warmly welcomes them, ready to guide their sweet culinary adventure. The baking begins as sweet cream is carefully squeezed. They smoothly spread the frosting over the round cake base. Slices of fresh red strawberries are carefully placed on top. A beautiful red ribbon is wrapped around the finished cake. The chef loudly praises Rusby's impressive decorating skills, catching him by surprise. Blushing, the humble young prince quickly downplays his talent as nothing special. Suddenly, a massive dollop of whipped cream splatters messily. The two kids stare in comical shock at the messy culinary accident. Pointing to his cheek, Aika sweet-naturedly informs him that he has cream on his face. She gently reaches up to wipe the stray cream off his cheek. Their eyes lock in a quiet, intimate moment that leaves him frozen. A flustered Rusby suddenly starts hiccuping, catching a confused Aika off guard. The chef suddenly bursts in, asking if they are ready to finish up. Flustered by the intrusion, Rusby nervously explains that she was just wiping cream off his face. Smiling warmly, the chef presents colorful icing pens for them to write messages before their picnic. The bright afternoon sun shines gloriously over the clear sky. Lush green trees sway gently in the refreshing afternoon breeze. A lovely picnic blanket is spread out, loaded with delicious treats. A silver fork gently cuts into a perfect slice of cake. Aika eagerly takes a massive bite, her mouth stuffed with cream. Chewing happily, she praises the incredible taste as Rusby warmly agrees. Just when everything seemed perfect, a sudden change of fate was about to tear their peaceful world apart as Zenda happily notes how much better the cake tastes when they bake it themselves. Zenda excuses herself to fetch more drinks, while Aika bids her a quick return and Rusby politely offers his gratitude. Once they are alone, Aika eagerly asks Rusby if he wants to see something incredibly pretty, instantly capturing his curiosity. She proudly presents a cute yellow pouch that her mother lovingly made just for her. Aika explains that she keeps all of her most important belongings and sweet candies safely tucked inside. Smiling brightly, she happily shares a piece of candy with Rusby, who accepts the sweet gesture with a grateful smile. Pointing toward the distance, Aika suggests playing near the lake, prompting Rusp to warn her against getting too close. Suddenly, a massive dark bird with glowing red eyes swoops down from the branches. Aika gasps in sheer shock as the wild creature strikes without warning. She screams in panic as the bird flies away with her precious bear pouch clutched in its talons. Desperate to recover her uncle's contract, Aika bolts after the bird while Rusby frantically begs her to stop running. In her blind panic, her foot suddenly catches on a sharp rock hiding in the grass. Rusby trips and crashes hard onto the ground in absolute shock. Staggering up, he looks toward the lake with intense worry as he calls out Aika's name. The stolen pouch hangs precariously from a thin tree branch dangling directly over the deep water. Arriving at the water's edge, Aika realizes she might just be able to reach the dangling pouch with her hand. She carefully extends her arm out over the shimmering blue lake. Straining every muscle, Aika whispers to herself that she only needs to reach a tiny bit further. She stretches as far as she can, desperate to grab her mother's precious keepsake. Suddenly, her footing completely gives way, sending her sliding helplessly down the slippery bank. She lets out a terrified scream as she plummets headfirst toward the deep water. A massive splash erupts as she crashes violently into the cold, unforgiving lake. Submerged in the watery abyss, Aika thrashes in absolute panic as she realizes she cannot breathe. Sinking deeper into the darkness, her fading thoughts desperately cry out for her mother and her uncle. From the surface, a brilliant light cuts through the dark water as she silently calls out Ruspi's name. Suddenly, a warm, protective, magical energy envelops her, miraculously allowing her to breathe underwater. The sunny afternoon sky sparkles above the water as a mysterious force begins to take hold. Looking up in sheer disbelief, Aika realizes Ruspa is using his incredible levitation magic to lift her out of the deep lake. Guided by his glowing power, she floats gently through the air back toward the safety of the grassy shore. Rusp gently takes her hand, warmly reassuring her that she is completely safe now. Looking up with wide, shimmering eyes, Aika gazes at her young savior in absolute awe. Years later, an older Aika questions her tutor, Leto, about seeing her own name written on an official budget document. Leto is utterly baffled when Aika worriedly asks if she is somehow bankrupting the household. Leto chuckles warmly, reassuring her that her uncle was merely teasing and that they are in no danger of going bankrupt. Overwhelmed by the mention of a golden carriage, Aika politely declines, her mind racing with confusion. Suddenly, a shocking premonition hits Aika, freezing her in her tracks as tension fills the air. She is startled by a strange, ominous sensation as a dark red aura begins to glow around Leto. Leto asks if she is all right, but a trembling Aika quickly reassures him before hastily pulling her hand away. Raising her arm, Aika bids Leto a sudden farewell and quickly runs off. Leto watches her abrupt departure with a deeply confused and concerned expression. Aika sprints down the corridor as fast as her legs can carry her. The small purple snake on her shoulders, Serpens, speaks up to ask if she saw the aura. Aika confirms seeing the red light around Leto, though she laments that she did not actually see the future. Serpens urgently commands her to turn around and look at Leto's back one more time. Aika halts immediately, whipping her head back with sudden, sharp determination. She stands firmly on the stone floor, focusing her mind to trigger her latent powers. Through her eyes, a dark vision unfolds, showing Leto walking into a shadowy stable surrounded by a sinister blue mist. Serpens asks if she has finally witnessed the glimpse of the future. With unwavering resolve, Aika dashes back to stop the impending danger before it is too late. Meanwhile, a mysterious hand reaches out to claim a crucial document from the desk, sealing their fate. A tense confrontation begins as Leto is scolded by his master for failing to secure a crucial document by today's deadline. The red-haired uncle demands to know if the report walked away, forcing Leto to promise a morning replacement. The massive wooden door slams shut, leaving a heavy silence. Leto slumps in utter exhaustion, facing a grueling, sleepless night ahead. Behind a pillar, Aika and her purple snake Serpens celebrate their successful delay tactic. Clutching the stolen report tightly, Aika prepares to execute her next move. Leto frantically retraces his steps, desperate to remember where he left the paper. Hidden from view, Aika rejoices that her secret intervention succeeded for tonight. A close-up highlights the crucial document safely secured in her hands. The young lady steals her resolve, preparing to reveal her secret card. Aika bursts into the office, desperately trying to intercept the adults. The red-haired uncle and Leto turn in surprise at her sudden intrusion. In a clever distraction, Aika sweet-talks Leto by offering him a piece of candy. The red-haired uncle warns her about ruining her teeth, but she defiantly rejects his scolding. Shifting their attention, Aika presents a dramatic piece of news to the shocked men. A grim news clipping describes a brutal attack on a brown-haired man nearby. Terrified, Aika warns them that dangerous thieves are actively hurting innocent people. Aika warns Leto to inspect his house, prompting a confused Leto and a teasing red-haired uncle to chime in. Leto reassures her of his sturdiness, but Aika frantically insists he must take the danger seriously. Unwilling to listen further, the red-haired uncle carries her away so they can work. Her uncle strictly commands her to study and remain behind for her own safety. Dragged by her dress, Aika reluctantly accepts her confinement for the week. A dramatic sound effect echoes, sealing her isolation from the looming threat. Left alone in the quiet corridor, Aika stands in defeated, somber silence. Serpens reassures her that she successfully bought Leto precious time to escape danger. Determination burns in Aika's golden eyes as she reflects on her desperate intervention. A silent prayer lingers in the air as she hopes Leto survives. The scene transitions to a quiet, starry night under a full moon. Shrouded in darkness, Leto's quiet cottage stands waiting under the starlight. Leto rides his horse swiftly through the deep moonlit forest toward his home. Horse hooves kick up dust as he approaches the fateful destination. Leto reflects on Aika's strange behavior, wondering if it was merely childish curiosity. Unlocking his door, Leto smiles warmly, deeply touched by the young lady's concern. Stepping inside, Leto freezes as an ominous shadow suddenly shifts in the dark. Alerted to the intrusion, Leto shouts into the darkness to confront the trespasser. A sudden movement cuts through the dark as the intruder escapes. The intruder swiftly escapes across the rooftop under the night sky. Moonlight illuminates the empty roof as the silent escape is completed. Leto rushes to the window, catching only a fleeting glimpse of a vanishing figure. A cold sweat breaks across Leto's face as intense dread grips his heart. Terrifying suspicion sets in as Leto prepares to inspect the damage. He discovers his personal desk has been violently ransacked in his absence. Holding a broken padlock, Leto realizes the thieves targeted highly specific, confidential files. A new dawn breaks, casting a warm golden light over the palace. Inside the study, the red-haired uncle is stunned to learn about the break-in at Leto's house. Exhausted, Leto reports that 3 coordinated intruders targeted his home before escaping. While Leto explains he only survived due to Aika's warning, the red-haired uncle adjusts his glasses and advises him to take an escort. The red-haired uncle scoffs at Leto's past refusal of an escort while Leto warmly departs. Left entirely alone, the red-haired uncle sits in tense, calculating silence. Opening his drawer, he reveals a newspaper clipping, exposing a darker conspiracy. A shocking conspiracy starts to unfold as the red-haired Uncle Castle discovers chilling details in Aika's homemade collage. He notices how she meticulously altered words, transforming a simple thief into 3 dangerous assailants. The changes continue to reveal themselves, showing how she swapped hair colors and victims' genders. Castle stares in sheer disbelief as the final pieces of her bizarre corrections fall into place. He realizes that Aika's corrections perfectly predict the actual attack on Leto's house. A heavy calculating silence fills the room as he ponders the terrifying truth. Castle throws the papers aside, stubbornly dismissing the impossible idea that the child can predict the future. Meanwhile, Aika stands in the starlight, her glowing golden eyes concealing a power beyond comprehension. A new dawn breaks, casting a warm golden light over the magnificent palace. Aika beams with pure joy as her beloved grandfather arrives, distracting her from Cassel's cold gaze. Her doting grandfather embraces her warmly, expressing his absolute affection for his favorite little princess. Castle immediately cuts in, strictly commanding the young girl to focus on her upcoming lessons. He explains that her previous language tutor was unavailable, meaning she has a new teacher starting today. Defeated by the academic pressure, Aika can only sigh and reluctantly accept her fate. Her grandfather quickly tries to comfort her, eagerly offering to take her on a fun toy shopping spree. Aika excitedly requests to visit the Imperial Palace, which instantly puts Castle on high alert. Realizing her dangerous slip-up, she frantically backtracks, demanding a golden carriage instead to ease the tension. She quickly explains she only wants a tiny toy carriage, desperately hiding her secret plans from Castle. Her grandfather holds her close as he announces that her new language tutor has just arrived. Confident footsteps echo through the hallway, signaling the arrival of an intriguing new player. Aika turns around in curiosity to face the mysterious guest. A cold, overly polite greeting echoes from the shadows, instantly raising her suspicion. A wavy-haired man bows elegantly, introducing himself as Belfoy Logis, her new language instructor. The scene shifts momentarily as the fateful first lesson is set to begin. A tense atmosphere settles over the study room as the tutor prepares his materials. Logis formally announces his role, taking charge of Aika's education in place of her former teacher. Smiling warmly, Logis questions if the young lady can already understand a bit of the language. Aika proudly raises her hand, prompting Logis to ask her to write down whatever words she knows. She begins writing on the paper, listing the names of her mother Syria and her grandfather Elod. She adds her uncle Castle's name to the list with steady determination. Absorbed in her task, Aika writes diligently while the tutor keeps a watchful eye on her. Suddenly, a wave of shock hits Aika as she realizes she made a massive blunder. Trembling, she asks Logis how to spell Ruspi's name, hoping she hasn't raised any suspicions. Smiling pleasantly, Logis steps forward to check her progress on the paper. He swiftly snatches the paper away, ignoring her desperate protest that she wasn't finished. Logis reviews the list, dryly noting that her father apparently lacked any talent for teaching. Deeply offended by the comment, Aika demands to know why he is bringing up her mother. Her purple snake serpents hisses in absolute fury, ready to attack the insolent tutor. Tensions rise in the silent classroom as Logis stands before the board holding her paper. Fortunately, the maid enters the room with a smile, asking Aika if she enjoyed her first lesson. The maid suggests ending the lesson for Aika's snack time, which Logis politely accepts. Logis bids her a pleasant farewell, but Aika can only stare back with cold suspicion. Eating her cupcake, Aika listens as Serpens questions why she didn't speak up against the tutor. Serpens fumes with anger, expressing intense fury over how the tutor dared to speak of Syria. Aika simply smiles brightly, choosing to focus on her delicious treat for now. As night falls, a bright full moon rises high into the silent starry sky. The grand palace stands under the cover of darkness, harboring deep family secrets. A framed portrait of her late mother, Syria, hangs quietly on the wall. Her grandfather gazes at the portrait, reflecting on how Syria's quiet nature always concealed massive trouble. He remembers the terrifying day she suddenly vanished, only to return with a blood-covered infant in her arms. This family's darkest, blood-stained secret is finally dragged into the light. The blood-spattered, red-haired mother Syria suddenly reappears after vanishing, holding a baby and offering a chillingly calm greeting to her father. Stunned to his core, the yellow-eyed lord stares at his long-lost daughter, barely believing she has returned. Demanding answers, her father desperately questions where she has been hiding for 2 years and who the baby is. A hollow, bitter laugh echoes through the silent chamber, slicing through the tense confrontation. Tears well up in the red-haired woman's golden eyes as she softly apologizes to her father. Recalling her refusal to explain, the grieving grandfather rests his head in deep sorrow. He bitterly scolds his departed daughter's memory for leaving him behind to mourn. Holding a drawing tightly, he vows to protect his beloved granddaughter Aika at any cost. The simple, heartwarming crayon drawing showcases Aika's deep love for her grandfather. A sudden click breaks his painful memories, pulling him back to the present. Aika opens the door, peering into the study with wide, glowing golden eyes. Her grandfather immediately brightens up, urging Aika to sleep so they can play tomorrow. Aika revealed she has a specific destination in mind, prompting his enthusiastic agreement. Grasping her hands, the little girl enthusiastically requests to visit the Grand Imperial Palace. His smile falters in sheer panic as he nervously tries to deflect her dangerous request. He recalls Castle's strict warning never to give in if Aika asks for the palace. He frantically suggests visiting a rare library instead, hoping to satisfy her endless curiosity safely. The young lady frowns slightly, calculating her next emotional move to convince him. Aika softly appeals to his heart by mentioning wanting to find her late mother's traces. Deeply moved by her sentimental plea, the old man struggles to maintain his resolve. He asks if she wants to go that badly, and her shining eyes give him the perfect answer. They seal a secret pinky promise to keep this Imperial Library trip hidden from Castle. Swings her feet in joyful anticipation of the secret adventure. Zenda nervously styles Aika's hair while warning her of Castle's inevitable fury. Aika energetically jumps down, fully prepared for her highly classified mission. Beaming with joy, the young lady happily bids farewell as she sets off. Zenda suddenly stops her, insisting she must carry an essential item for her journey. Aika freezes in absolute shock as she is handed an unexpected item. Sunlight bathes the majestic palace garden as the secret mission officially begins. The magnificent Imperial Palace stands bathed in golden sunlight under a clear sky. To her dismay, she is forced to wear her Uncle Castle's heavy gold name tag. Serpens mockingly calls the massive gold plaque blinding, much to Aika's sheer annoyance. Standing in his formal imperial regalia, the grandfather strictly commands an attendant to hand over the key. He kneels down to hand Aika the key while coughing to cover up some imperial business. With a sweet kiss to his cheek, Aika happily promises to meet him later. Overwhelmed by absolute adoration, his golden eye instantly transforms into a heart. The attendants struggle to drag the weeping, protesting grandfather away while Aika waves cheerfully. Safely inside the vast library, Zenda sternly warns her not to wander off. Serpens smirk silently, knowing they're about to execute their secret plan. Aika dashes down the high bookshelf, sensing a mysterious energy nearby. Zenda gazes after her, quietly remarking that ancient relics always call to one another. Aika's feet come to a sudden halt right before a hidden compartment. Clutching her heavy name tag, she whispers to her snake companion about entering. She turns to find Zenda sporting an incredibly intense, watchful smile. Aika laughs nervously under the maid's unwavering and highly suspicious gaze. Sweating bullets, Aika desperately whispers to Serpens about how to lose their watchful guardian. Serpens confidently declares he has a flawless plan to solve their maid problem. The purple snake smirks wickedly, ready to unleash some absolute chaos. Realizing Zenda's eyes are still glued to her, Aika frantically begs her serpent to act. A sudden rustling sound draws their attention, signaling the perfect distraction is set in motion. A sudden rustling sound echoes as a shelf of ancient books begins to tumble, setting a dangerous plan into motion. Zenda gasps in shock as books suddenly cascade from the library shelves. Seizing the distraction, Serpens eagerly urges her to make a move, and she quickly agrees to proceed. Aika screams in wonder as she is pulled through a swirling portal of bright purple light. With a loud thud, she crashes down into a mysterious glowing sanctuary. Aika complains about falling from above, while Serpens casually explains that spatial travel is always unpredictable. Lepus happily worried about being caught, Aika frantically explains she must leave soon but promises to return later. Lepus insists she stay, warmly offering his help to resolve her dilemma. Lepus uses his magic to summon a glowing book, flipping through its pages rapidly. Lepus carefully directs his magic to synchronize the inner and outer flow of time, declaring the spell complete. Aika gasps in pure disbelief at the magical transformation unfolding before her. Lepus explains that he has projected a vision connecting her to her alternate timeline self. Lepus reassures her that outsiders won't notice her absence, leaving Aika thoroughly impressed by his incredible skill. With the immediate problem solved, Lepus eagerly asks Aika to explain what has been going on. A mystical energy pulses through the quiet magical sanctuary. The magnificent starry dome sparkles above, witnessing their fateful reunion. Lepus praises Aika's growing future sight abilities, and Aika credits her serpent companion for helping her immensely. Seeing the tension between her companions, Aika strictly commands them to stop fighting and get along. Aika questions her goal of collecting relics and fighting hunters, asking how she can recognize and deal with them. Lepus gently interrupts her, stating he needs to explain that critical point first. Lepus floats into the air, asking her to wait for just a brief moment. Presenting an ancient book, Lepus explains it details the hunters and notes that her seeker's ability will allow her to read it. Staring at the cover, Aika reads the word predator in utter surprise. The magical book describes predators as lawless plunderers who instinctively track the powerful aura of relics. A dark, menacing figure stalks silently in search of sacred ancient artifacts. The text warns that once a relic is found, a sudden, full-body chill indicates a predator is already nearby. Aika ponders the meaning of the chill, recalling her mother's warning about how her senses focus when a hunter is near. A sudden realization strikes Aika, freezing her to her very core. She recalls shivering violently in Castle's arms, realizing she had brushed off her body's natural warnings. A terrifying realization dawns on her as she pieces together the clues from her past. Shivering violently, Aika recalls hearing the strange old man's voice somewhere in her past. When Aika reveals she has experienced that chill before, Lepus gasps in sheer alarm. Terrified by her revelation, Lepus mutters that this threat has arrived far too soon. Lepus tries to calm her, noting that Serpents' presence will help her sense danger, prompting the snake to fiercely vow protection. A chiming grandfather clock interrupts their conversation, signaling their time is running out. Lepus urges her to return before the projection falters, and Aika reluctantly prepares to leave. As Aika runs off, Lepus suddenly calls out to deliver one final crucial piece of information. The white rabbit tilts his head in utter bewilderment. Aika stares in surprise as her purple serpent lets out a highly suspicious gasp. Annoyed by the sudden bickering, Serpents demand silence while Aika demands to know what is going on. Lepus exposes that the snake's real voice is much lower and less annoying, leaving the flustered serpent frantically defending itself. Turning to her companion, Aika asks Serpents if the rabbit's claim is actually true. Blushing deeply, the purple snake sheepishly mumbles that he wasn't trying to hide his true voice. Serpents admits he adopted a softer voice to avoid scaring Aika when they first met. Aika gasps in sheer amazement at her companion's sweet, protective gesture. Overwhelmed with emotion, Aika asks if he truly changed his entire voice just for her sake. Clasping her hands over her heart, Aika is deeply moved by the snake's secret kindness. Grasping her pet warmly, Aika excitedly declares that his real voice is actually super cool. Lepus smiles softly, finally accepting the snake's loyalty as they prepare for the dangerous battles ahead. The quiet, magically charged atmosphere of the Grand Library sets the stage for a tense return. Crawling on the floor, Aika hopes she can slip away before her uncle discovers her absence. Suddenly, her eyes widen in absolute shock as she looks up. Her heart drops as her red-haired Uncle Castle stands before her, arms crossed and staring right down at her. Castle mockingly welcomes his niece and questions why she is here instead of being safely at home. He sternly calls her full name, Aika de Valiart, and reminds her of his strict warnings as she desperately tries to play dumb. Castle's golden eyes narrow menacingly as he darkens the mood, asking if he needs to help her remember. Terrified of whatever punishment awaits, Aika frantically waves her hands, begging for mercy. In one swift movement, Castle grabs the collar of her dress, hoisting her up effortlessly. Aika screams in despair as Castle drags her away, while the spiritual figures of her grandfather and maid can only offer silent apologies. Promotional title card for Chapter 23 of I Live with My Villain Uncle, showing Aika, Castle, and magical companions. In one swift movement, Castle grabs her dress, hoisting her up effortlessly despite her startled gasp. Aika screams in despair as Castle drags her away while her grandfather and maid can only look on with apologetic smiles. The scene shifts as a royal carriage speeds through the moonlit forest at night. Sitting inside the carriage, Aika is baffled by the tense and heavy silence filling the carriage. She nervously glances at Castle, who remains completely silent, prompting her to wonder how to break the ice. Unable to bear the oppressive silence, Aika facepalms and desperately begs her uncle to say something. Slowly, she gathers her courage and softly calls out to her uncle. A colorful flower-adorned prompt appears, posing the burning question of whether her uncle is mad. Desperate to defuse the situation, Aika decides to cheer her uncle up by acting as cute as possible. Castle sighs in exasperation, wondering if she actually calls this talking. A system notification declares her cute act super effective as Castle's anger begins to subside. The carriage continues its journey as Castle lets out a long, weary sigh. Castle gently pats her head, sighing as he asks what he is going to do with her. Sensing the shift in the atmosphere, Aika joyfully realizes her uncle is finally no longer angry. Feeling relieved, Aika giggles happily, which puzzles her uncle as he questions her sudden joy. Inside the carriage, Aika asks why he returned so early, while Castle explains he heard rumors of her wandering around. Castle looks at her with a gentle gaze, asking if she was actually good while he was away. Aika sweetly explains that while she loved being with her grandfather, she missed her uncle much more. Overwhelmed by her sheer cuteness, Castle blushes and looks away, wishing he could express his true feelings. Aika brightens up and asks for his formal forgiveness, but Castle teasingly refuses to give a straight answer. As the carriage arrives back at the estate, Aika happily remarks how glad she is that he returned early. The next morning, Aika stealthily runs into Castle's lavish bedroom as he sleeps peacefully under the covers. With a joyous shout, Aika dives onto the bed, waking her uncle up with a sudden morning greeting. An annoyed hand quickly grabs Aika's bright yellow dress, lifting her up mid-giggle. Holding her up like a puppy, Castle groans about his strict rule against morning wake-up calls. To his bewilderment, Aika flutters her arms in excitement, enjoying being held high in the air. The scene transitions to the dining hall as the maid meticulously prepares a grand breakfast. Castle enters the dining room, prompting the maid to ask about the young lady's whereabouts. Suddenly, Aika bursts into the room, excitedly waving a paper to grab her uncle's attention. Beaming with excitement, Aika presents a flyer advertising a brand new museum opening. She eagerly looks at the illustrations of ancient treasures, determined not to miss this perfect opportunity. Aika enthusiastically asks her uncle to accompany her, but Castle looks skeptical of her interest in such things. Castle sweeps her up into his arms, while Aika excitedly asks to invite her friend Rusby. Aika lets out an adorable dramatic whine to sway her uncle's stubborn heart. Castle looks down at his niece, preparing to deliver his final decision. Surrounded by a warm golden glow, Castle holds Aika close, giving in to her cute demands. Thrilled by his silent agreement, Aika bursts into a radiant, beautiful smile. With a sweet kiss to his cheek, Aika seals the deal as the maid watches on with a fond smile. Castle blushes warmly, warning her that they will leave immediately if she causes any trouble. Delight turns to pure ecstasy as the young girl savors a delicious, creamy dessert. Bathed in brilliant morning sunlight, the Grand Royal Estate stands as a testament to absolute luxury. The red-haired Castle impatiently awaits his niece by a luxurious royal carriage, wondering what is keeping her. Desperate to meet her friend, the young girl urges them to hurry while Castle watches her suspiciously. Castle notices her tense behavior and demands to know why she is dressed so defensively. Shaking her head frantically in denial, she leaves her uncle completely baffled by her bizarre movements. The mystery traces back 30 minutes earlier, where the maid discovers a loose tooth in the girl's mouth. Terrified of being teased as a toothless child, she begs the maid to keep her loose tooth a secret. Despite the maid's gentle reassurance, the girl's vivid imagination paints a terrifying picture of her uncle mocking her. Back in the carriage, she hides her mouth in sheer panic while her uncle senses something is amiss. Shifting to their destination, the magnificent museum dome gleams under a flawless blue sky. Bursting out of the carriage with pure excitement, she leaps toward her grand new adventure. Her uncle calls out a stern warning, reminding his energetic niece not to wander too far. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls her name, causing her to halt in surprise. Standing before her is a charming silver-haired boy dressed in a smart outfit with suspenders. With a warm and gentle smile, the young boy greets her affectionately. Overjoyed, she eagerly grabs his hands and compliments his handsome new look. Flattered by her praise, the silver-haired boy immediately counters with a heartwarming compliment of his own. Blushing deeply from a sweet word, she beams with adorable happiness. Nearby, the boy's brown-haired escort formally greets Castle, who acknowledges their shared duties with a sigh. Eager to begin their grand investigation, she gently places a plaid detective cap on his head. He smiles warmly, completely ready to join her playful detective game. Together, they finish adjusting their matching outfits, signaling the official start of their quest. Dressed as adorable detectives, the children declare their investigation open, leaving the adults completely bewildered. A brief, quiet interlude settles over the grand estate as their mysterious mission begins. The scene shifts through the grand, sunlit archways of the magnificent museum. The silver-haired boy adjusts his cap, looking back with a look of pure adoration. Turning with bright, curious yellow eyes, she prepares to search for hidden treasures. As the children play happily, Castle watches them with a flat, utterly unimpressed expression. Hand in hand, the young detectives eagerly wander deeper into the massive museum halls. Elegant ancient artifacts and golden relics line the luxurious display cases. The museum's pristine collection of jewels glimmers under the soft light. Gasping in surprise, her eyes widen at a fascinating discovery. Her companion leans in close to point out an interesting hidden detail. Her eyes sparkle with absolute wonder, leaving the young boy slightly flustered. A sudden memory reveals the boy stayed up late researching museum history just to impress her. As she joyfully hugs his arm, a towering figure suddenly cuts off her path. Castle stands directly between the two children, physically blocking their close contact. Frustrated by his intrusion, she demands her uncle step back while Castle playfully teases her. Smirking smugly, Castle secretly notes her keen eye for valuable artifacts while remaining fiercely protective. The two escorts watch their master's childish jealousy, laughing quietly at his immature behavior. Beginning their official tour, the children eagerly examine a massive golden festival urn. In the next phase of their tour, Castle is forced to wear ridiculous royal treasures, looking deeply annoyed. Brave and adventurous, she playfully tests her hand inside the legendary stone Mouth of Truth. Walking together through blooming flowers, she happily thanks him for making the tour so memorable. But the peaceful warmth instantly shatters as a terrifying, ominous red aura wraps around her feet. Oblivious to the danger, she admires a horseshoe relic, unaware of a dark silhouette looming behind her. Suddenly, her breath hitches as an overwhelming, sinister force paralyzes her in place. A freezing, deadly chill washes over her, matching the terrifying warnings of a predator. A massive, shadowy hand reaches down from the darkness, poised to strike our unsuspecting heroine. A sudden wave of raw terror paralyzes Aika as she senses a deadly hunter lurking nearby. Gasping in pure shock, she realizes the lethal predator is dangerously close. Fearing immediate detection, she frantically plans a silent escape before they are spotted. Sensing her sudden stillness, Castle demands to know why she is frozen. Filled with genuine concern, Rusp steps forward to ask if she is all right. She quickly fakes a reassuring smile, secretly hoping she can still change the future. Castle breaks the tension, impatiently reminding them to buy their souvenirs. Whispering in secret, Sir confirms the danger and advises immediate evasion. Disregarding Castle's warnings to stay together, she suddenly bolts away on her own. She yells back a frantic request to secure a specific horseshoe decoration from the display. Castle calls out in utter disbelief at her sudden chaotic exit. He stands completely baffled by his niece's bizarre sudden request. Complying with her strange demand, he reaches down to retrieve the worn metal horseshoe. He grumbles over her unique taste, questioning why she chose the ugliest souvenir available. Rusby surprises Castle by politely requesting the exact same horseshoe decoration. Castle smugly boasts about the item, leaving the young prince completely speechless. The playful mood vanishes instantly as Castle senses an ominous presence approaching. A powerful, long-haired nobleman arrives as Duke Duslin is politely greeted. Rusby maintains strict royal etiquette, formally greeting the mysterious Duke Duslin. Duke Duslin smoothly inquires about the whereabouts of Castle's newly adopted niece. Castle instantly bristles, coldly demanding to know the Duke's true business with her. Laughing it off, Duke Duslin departs while cryptically promising to meet her next time. Castle glares after him, silently swearing to protect her at all costs. A grim, unspoken vow hangs in the air, questioning if a next meeting will ever occur. Disgusted by the tense encounter, Castle mutters about the vile snake ruining his day. As evening approaches, the tense atmosphere finally lifts under a warm golden sunset. Aika's cheerful voice echoes as her uncle and Rusby wait patiently with sweet treats. Castle teasingly scolds her for being late, while she frantically makes excuses. Rusby happily presents a colorful ice cream cone he saved especially for her. Castle asks if she forgot something, prompting her to realize she left her souvenir. With a knowing sigh, Castle pulls out the metal horseshoe and hands it over. Examining the dull metal, she wonders if her actions successfully altered her terrifying vision. Rusby suddenly calls out her name, breaking her deep train of thought. He looks at her with absolute adoration, proposing they play together again very soon. Radiating pure happiness, she eagerly agrees to their next grand adventure. A quiet transition settles over the estate as the peaceful day draws to a close. Back in her room, she relaxes happily beside her loyal companion, Zeb. She examines the sturdy iron horseshoe, finding comfort in its unexpected weight. She admits to Sarah that finding the true artifact was harder than expected. Relieved that they successfully avoided the dangerous hunter, she resolves to keep up the momentum. Her peaceful reflection is interrupted as her private tutor arrives for her lessons. The teacher assigns writing practice, and she eagerly prepares to begin her work. Humming a happy tune, she writes diligently while her teacher observes her with a calculating gaze. Suddenly, the teacher brings up a curious historical rumor about the emperor. He catches her completely off guard by asking if she has ever met the emperor. A chilling tension fills the room as she senses an underlying motive behind his question. As her suspicion grows, the iron horseshoe suddenly begins to emit a brilliant mystical glow. Swirling magical energy floods the room as a hidden truth threatens to erupt. Narrowing his eyes, the tutor drops a bombshell, claiming she has met the emperor before. Frozen in absolute shock, she realizes her secret cover might be completely blown. A hidden conspiracy threatens to shatter Aika's peaceful life as her brown-haired tutor suspiciously instructs her to lie about her past, forcing her to reluctantly agree. Standing over the young girl, the tutor continues his interrogation, questioning if she has ever met the emperor or received his letters. Growing highly defensive of her family history, Aika firmly questions his prying motives, leaving the tutor silently calculating his next move. Decisively cutting off his line of inquiry, Aika sternly reminds the brown-haired man of his proper role as her teacher. Her surprisingly sharp response catches the tutor completely off guard, forcing him to realize she is much more observant than he anticipated. Desperately trying to ease the sudden tension, the flustered teacher tries to pass off his suspicious questions as normal conversational learning. Looking up with deep skepticism, the golden-eyed girl remains completely unswayed by her tutor's clumsy attempts to change the subject. Plastering on a fake, cheerful smile, the deceitful tutor offers to help resolve any worries she might have. Leaning close to her loyal snake companion, Aika quietly voices her growing doubts about her teacher's bizarre and suspicious behavior. The quiet halls of the grand estate remain perfectly silent. Striding away down the corridor, the brown-haired tutor lets out a heavy sigh of relief after his exhausting interrogation. The plotting spy notes how difficult it is to manipulate a clever child. Wearing a dark and sinister smirk, the deceitful tutor boasts that his true motives remain completely hidden from the young girl. A terrifying hooded figure looms in the shadows, scheming to expose Aika as the emperor's illegitimate child to gain royal favor. The sinister plot thickens as the enemy prepares their next move. Night falls over the grand estate, calling Aika to rest. Furious over the blatant threat, her dark purple snake companion warns Aika to stay on high guard around the strange teacher. Smiling warmly, the gentle girl comforts her overly anxious protector, though her companion refuses to let his guard down. A majestic glowing white horse suddenly echoes through the starry cavus. Gasping in surprise, the golden-eyed girl suddenly reacts to a strange sound. Scrambling across the bed, Aika frantically asks Sir if he also heard the mysterious noise echoing nearby. Believing her uncle has returned, she eagerly tries to find the source of the sound while Sir remains skeptical. Disappointed but tired, Aika reluctantly agrees to lie down and rest as her purple companion gently coaxes her back to sleep. Soft blooming blue flowers sway gently under the peaceful moonlight. Drifting off into a deep slumber, the young girl finally rests. In the realm of dreams, the majestic glowing horse runs wild across a starry sky, calling out for her uncle. Suddenly, Aika's golden eyes snap wide open in absolute shock. Bolting upright in her bed, a sudden realization strikes her. A mystical, unseen force suddenly shudders through the silent room. Deep inside the bedside drawer, the golden iron horseshoe begins to emit a brilliant, blinding light. Frantically shaking her companion awake, Aika urges Sarah to look at the incredible phenomenon unfolding right before them. Popping his head out of his pink sleeping cap, the startled snake gasps in shock at the brilliant magic. Bathed in the warm, radiant glow, Aika stares at her legendary souvenir in absolute wonder. Leaning over the bed to inspect the glowing relic, Aika asks Sarah if she can wake up the sleeping artifact. As she cradles the heavy metal horseshoe in her hands, the brilliant magical light suddenly vanishes into thin air. Determined to wake the magical artifact, Aika plans a secret trip to the library, wondering if her protective uncle will allow it. Wearing a determined expression, the purple snake encourages her, eager to see the mysterious treasure awaken. Suddenly, a startling sound from behind causes the young girl to freeze in sheer panic. Standing tall in the dark doorway, her red-haired Uncle Castle demands to know why his niece is still awake. Looming over her bed, Castle questions her late-night activities while Aika nervously tries to find an excuse. Sweeping her up into his arms, the protective uncle playfully lectures his niece about the dangers of staying up past her bedtime. "I'm just a language model and can't help with that." Silently staring down at his niece, Castle studies her face with an unusually intense, discerning gaze. Just looking back up at him with wide golden eyes, Aika curiously asks why he is staring so intensely. Grabbing his shirt with both hands, the clever girl decides to seize the moment and begs her uncle for a favor. Castle is left completely stunned when Aika suddenly demands to visit the imperial palace, leaving her shocked by his quick deduction. Gently teasing his niece, Castle explains that her constant prying about the palace made her true desires incredibly obvious. Clinging tightly to his neck, the determined girl begs her uncle to take her to the royal grounds. Giving in to her adorable pleading, Castle smiles and offers to show her a secret before she goes to sleep. Leading her deeper into the estate, a massive bookshelf swings open to reveal a hidden secret passage. Whispers of danger fade as her uncle carries her deep into a hidden underground chamber. Castle cryptically promises that the basement now holds something incredible. His heavy footsteps echo down the dimly lit stone stairs. Aika gasps as a sudden magical light catches her eye. Her golden eyes widen in absolute amazement at the unfolding sight. A massive glowing blue pillar radiates ancient and powerful magic. The subterranean chamber reveals a breathtaking sanctuary of glowing pools. Aika eagerly asks if this is a secret base, prompting Castle to explain it is actually a portable teleportation artifact linked directly to the library. Casa reveals he will no longer stop her from visiting the Imperial Palace. Castle shoots her an intense look while Aika reacts with sheepish confusion. A vision of the Emperor appears, explaining the device is a joint protective gift. Aika is stunned to realize the Emperor himself prepared this artifact. Castle casually downplays his intense effort in constructing the secret device. A tiny hand reaches out toward the glowing blue monument. Overjoyed, Aika wraps her arms around Castle, declaring her absolute love. Aika promises to be completely obedient as Castle holds her close. Staring ahead with intense determination, Castle decides this is for the best. A gentle, rare smile graces the protective uncle's face. Bright sunlight pierces through green leaves as the scene shifts. The narrative flashes back to a crucial meeting a few days prior. The majestic golden towers of the Imperial Palace gleam under the sun. Seated on his golden throne, the Emperor grimly notes that someone is targeting Aika. Castle sits on the opposing sofa, somberly confirming the growing threat. They recalled a suspicious carriage accident that put Syria in danger. A dark vision depicts the violent sword attack on the Valliard estate. The Emperor grimly notes the sudden fatal accident of her private tutor. The Emperor explains his desperate plan to install the teleportation artifact for her safety. The Emperor directly asks Castle for his thoughts on the defensive measure. Back in the present, the glowing pillar hums with intense energy. Aika excitedly asks if they can use it immediately, and Castle confirms. Castle delays the lesson until tomorrow, leaving a pouting Aika disappointed. The magical light of the subterranean chamber fades as night deepens. The next day, Castle instructs Aika on how to activate a button. A massive glowing magic circle erupts around them with swirling runes. Castle confirms the teleportation worked perfectly as they arrive at their destination. Aika gasps in sheer bewilderment at her sudden new surroundings. The black-haired Emperor stands before her, warmly welcoming Aika back. A lavish tower of glistening tarts and sweets sparkles before her. Aika stares at the incredible dessert feast in starry-eyed wonder. Aika cheers with gratitude while the Emperor happily encourages her to feast. The golden-eyed girl joyfully takes a massive bite of a sweet cookie. She suddenly panics, realizing one of her teeth is extremely loose. Noticing her sudden pause, the Emperor asks why she stopped eating. Aika nervously covers her mouth while the Emperor watches with concern. Tears welling in her eyes, Aika whimpers about a taste of blood. The Emperor reacts in absolute horror, imagining the worst has happened. Panicking, the Emperor demands an imperial doctor while Aika frantically protests. The Emperor worries the cookie was poisoned, but Aika tries to explain. Crying, Aika reveals she simply lost a loose baby tooth. The Emperor is left utterly dumbfounded, unaware that darker threats still loom. A royal secret is suddenly exposed in the most unexpected way. The Emperor warmly reassures a frantic Aika that her lost baby tooth is just a natural milestone. Handing her a clean handkerchief, the Emperor calmly instructs her to staunch the bleeding while he summons Castle. Terrified of her protective uncle finding out, the little girl gasps in absolute panic. Standing before the giant dessert table, Aika desperately begs the Emperor to keep her secret, leaving the ruler deeply perplexed. Clutching her fist with fiery determination, the golden-eyed girl vows to hide all evidence before her uncle can investigate. Panicking, Aika suddenly leaps off her ornate chair, ignoring the startled Emperor's calls to wait. Standing on her tiptoes, the clever girl forces her lost tooth into the Emperor's hand, demanding his absolute silence. Outside, the breathtaking sunset signals that their royal visit has finally come to an end. Castle politely declines a carriage escort, deciding to personally walk his beloved niece through the beautiful palace grounds. Leaning from the carriage window, Aika bids the Emperor a polite and incredibly hasty farewell. Watching her run off, Castle wonders why his normally enthusiastic niece is suddenly in such a frantic hurry to leave. The Emperor merely chuckles to himself, faithfully keeping the young girl's secret safe from her suspicious guardian. Turning to Castle, the Emperor mysteriously announces that he has a special gift to deliver. Handing over a golden pouch, the Emperor leaves Castle highly skeptical of the secret he is hiding. The horse-drawn carriage moves swiftly down the stone streets under the fading golden sunlight. Sitting across from her intensely observant uncle, a sweating Aika makes incredibly awkward small talk to deflect suspicion. The heavy carriage wheels roll through the grand metal gates of the Valliard estate. Bolting from the carriage, Aika ignores Castle's reminders about changing her clothes and writing her letters. Though Aika shouts a hasty confirmation, Castle narrows his eyes, sensing that something is deeply amiss. A heavy sense of suspicion lingers as Castle notes that her reactions have been unusually sluggish. Moonlight streams through the bedroom window as night falls over the grand estate. Flopping face first onto her bed, the exhausted girl lets out a heavy sigh after completing her chores. Her purple snake companion Cern suddenly wakes, urging Aika to test the mystical relic they brought home. Sarah reminds her of the secret names she discovered within the Imperial archives. Creeping over to her desk, Aika quietly slides open her drawer to retrieve the heavy iron horseshoe. Clutching the ancient artifact in her notes, the golden-eyed girl prepares to cast the awakening spell. Squeezing her eyes shut, Aika confidently shouts the first incantation into the silent room. Sarah notes that her missing tooth is completely ruining her pronunciation, making the spell fail. Stubbornly refusing to fail, the determined girl screams the magic words even louder. Despite her vocal efforts, the purple snake observes that the cold metal artifact remains completely lifeless. Suddenly, a massive shockwave of brilliant white and gold magic erupts from the dormant relic. Gasps of wonder echo as Aika cradles the intensely glowing horseshoe in her small hands. A celestial vortex of stars and constellations opens within the bedroom, tearing the fabric of reality. An ancient, glowing mandala crest materializes, heralding the awakening of a legendary power. A brief moment of transition builds anticipation for the next legendary chapter. Staring at the blinding magical phenomenon, Aika stands completely frozen in absolute disbelief. The legendary third relic finally manifests, revealing a magnificent glowing white horse. The elegant white beast immediately pouts in disappointment, questioning if Aika is truly its destined master. The haughty horse complains about its name being mispronounced, while a sheepish Aika blames her missing tooth. Softening its tone, the majestic horse smiles and thanks her for finally breaking its long slumber. Suddenly, the horse grabs Aika by her clothes, playfully offering to repay her with a ride.
With a swift kick, the magical beast leaps forward, ready to take flight into the night sky.
A sudden gust of wind sweeps through the room as they are instantly launched into the heavens. Gasping in sheer shock, Aika clings tightly as they soar high above the grand palace. The magnificent glowing horse runs freely across the starry sky, leaving a glittering trail of stardust behind. Clinging to the beast, a terrified Aika screams in panic at the dizzying, unimaginable height. Suddenly, the wild, magical ride ends as Aika tumbles back onto her soft bed sheets. Sitting up in a daze, Aika is checked on by a worried Sarah while the proud horse boasts of its flying speed. The noble horse asks for its master's identity, prompting Aika to proudly introduce herself. Wearing a playful conspiratorial wink, the legendary beast asks if she enjoyed her first taste of absolute freedom. A thrilling ride across the starry heavens leaves the young golden-eyed girl breathless as she ponders its surreal reality. She notes that the legendary beast's back was far more rigid than she originally anticipated. The majestic white stallion blushes slightly as she admits her sheer terror of flying so high up in the sky. Her heart melts as she recalls how beautifully its white coat shimmered under the glowing full moon. Safely back in her bedroom, Aika watches the horse eagerly accept her compliments and boast of its immense handsome charm. She instantly deflates the creature's massive ego by clarifying that she never actually called it handsome. Curved by a frame of blooming white flowers, Aika curiously inquires about the legendary creature's magical abilities. A brilliant magical sigil activates as the spirit boasts of its supreme teleportation power. Swirling portals reveal scenic shores, proving it can cross mountains and vast oceans in a single blink. She questions if the beast can turn invisible like Sir, prompting Equus to brag that such high-level illusion magic is effortless. A sudden intrusion by a startled maid carrying clean laundry threatens to completely expose their magical secret. Well, that's one way to avoid bedtime, but explaining a literal phantom stallion is going to take some serious creativity. Aika frantically lectures the proud beast about the extreme dangers of being spotted, leaving it highly bewildered. Satisfied with their rocky introduction, the elegant spirit announces it will rest inside her letters for now. The magical entity dissolves into a glittering gold trail, retreating back into the horseshoe artifact. Seer enthusiastically praises Aika's incredible accomplishment of securing her third relic, boosting the young girl's pride. The scene shifts to the Grand Palace, where a crucial and unexpected piece of correspondence has arrived. Seated beneath a gleaming chandelier, Castle carefully reviews the highly confidential royal letter with intense concentration. His loyal butler nervously asks if Castle opened the mysterious gold pouch during their long carriage ride. A close-up of the desk reveals the golden pouch alongside a tiny, pristine baby tooth. A warm, satisfied smile spreads across the butler's face as the long-held secret is finally out in the open. The letter concludes with a friendly signature from Winchester, warning the protective uncle to look after Aika's dental health. The butler enthusiastically informs his master about the young lady's adorable milestone. Castle immediately erupts in a terrifying fury, appalled that his beloved niece hid something so important from him. Amidst a blazing background of rage, the protective uncle orders preservation magic for the tooth and a strictly soft food diet. Clutching the golden pouch, the butler quickly retreats to carry out his master's intense commands. Walking down the corridor, the butler suddenly spots a familiar maid passing by. A playful, knowing smile spreads across his face as he prepares to surprise her. He unleashes a cheerful, energetic shout that echoes down the quiet palace hallway. In a sudden burst of affection, he wraps his arms around the startled maid from behind. She violently pinches his cheeks in retaliation for his unprofessional behavior, while he whines for a little praise. Their playful banter quickly shifts to a serious discussion regarding the recent attack on the Valliard estate. The butler's expression immediately brightens as he prepares to deliver some incredibly joyous news. He holds up his hand, revealing the young lady's tiny lost baby tooth resting on his paw. The green-eyed maid squeals in absolute delight, recalling that the tooth had been loose for a while. She wonders if their master's already aware, knowing how deeply Aika worried about keeping the secret safe. The butler shudders as he recalls Castle's terrifying fury, confirming that the mad dog is indeed a force to be feared. Despite the danger, the maid happily insists they must prepare a grand celebration for the momentous occasion. Under the cold light of a full moon, a sinister shadow gathers over a rival faction's estate. A furious nobleman violently slams his clenched fist onto a heavy desk, cursing the Valliart household. He angrily rants about the insolent Laguerre brat dodging noble council meetings to construct an academy. The magnificent spires of the newly constructed Valliart Academy gleam brightly under the daylight sky. The gray-haired noble commands his agent to stop the academy's construction at all costs, demanding total secrecy. A voice whispers from the shadows, confirming absolute obedience to the dark mandate. Alone in his study, the old lord sighs deeply, scheming to exploit Castle's newly discovered vulnerability. He laments that Ayaka's heavy guard makes striking his target nearly impossible. The tense plotting is interrupted as a butler enters to deliver an unexpected package. The noble lord coldly inquires about the sender of the mysterious delivery. The servant reveals a beautifully wrapped box bearing the distinct seal of the Cheshire Company. Recalling his deep ties with the merchants, the lord confidently prepares to open the gift. As the lid rises, his smug smile instantly freezes into a mask of pure, unadulterated horror. A devastating shockwave of horror strikes the rival faction as the gray-haired lord screams in absolute disbelief at the gruesome gift before him. His trembling butler gazes into the open container, realizing with utter dread that the decapitated heads of their finest assassins have been sent back to them. Panicked and furious, the old nobleman orders an immediate investigation into the delivery, but his butler quickly points out an ominous note left inside. Surrounded by the cold severed heads, the parchment mockingly confirms that the Valliart family received their previous gift with open arms. The message concludes with a chilling, blood-curdling threat, warning the conspirators to guard their own necks before they suffer the exact same fate. In a fit of helpless terror and rage, the old lord curses Castle, realizing he has crossed paths with a truly ruthless monster. Under the cold glow of the starry night, Castle stands silently by his palace window, looking out over his vast, secure domain. The red-haired commander remains deeply lost in thought, his sharp golden eyes reflecting the absolute lack of mercy he shows to his enemies. A sinister, satisfied smile creeps across his face, relishing in his overwhelming superiority. Looking up at the massive full moon, the powerful lord wonders with dark amusement if his enemies enjoyed his terrifying retaliatory gift. The scene shifts back to the warmth of the estate where Aika lies awake on her bed under the watchful eye of her loyal brown-haired maid. The golden-eyed girl suddenly gasps in shock as she notices a mysterious surprise waiting for her right on the bedsheets. With a pounding heart, she cautiously reaches out toward the unexpected treasure, her eyes shining with curiosity. Beside a small, beautifully wrapped green present lies a letter from the legendary Tooth Fairy congratulating Aika on growing up. Beaming with pure joy, Aika excitedly boasts to her brown-haired maid about receiving an actual present in exchange for her lost tooth. Her braided maid giggles warmly, playing along with the adorable fairy tale to keep the young girl's spirits high. While the maid assures her that her uncle doesn't know yet, she warns Aika that her awkward pronunciation might soon give the secret away. Determined to protect her pride, the cute girl strictly commands the maid to keep this dental disaster a complete secret. Hoping to avoid any further questioning, a panicked Aika bolts out of her room, leaving her bewildered maid behind. The braided maid fondly recalls how she and the butler stayed up late writing the fake Tooth Fairy letter, wishing their young lady wasn't so embarrassed about growing up. Entering the grand dining hall, Aika is suddenly taken aback by an unexpected presence. Her heart skips a beat as she spots her formidable red-haired uncle standing tall by the lavishly set table. Aika instinctively starts to call out to him, but she instantly cuts herself off in a panic to avoid revealing her missing front tooth. Scrambling behind a heavy dining chair, the terrified girl desperately vows to remain completely silent during breakfast. Sensing her bizarre behavior, Castle turns to his sweating, nervous niece and curiously asks what is bothering her. Covering her mouth and trembling with anxiety, Aika hilariously claims she is simply performing physical exercises to keep herself healthy. Amused by her incredibly poor acting skills, Castle lets out a knowing smile as he prepares to tease her. Leaning in dangerously close, the red-haired lord playfully suggests her bizarre tooth loss was a result of some legendary battle. Castle breaks her defense entirely, teasingly revealing that he knows all about his little peanut's missing front tooth. Devastated that her grand secret has been blown, Aika weeps dramatically, wondering if her uncle is secretly a mind-reading ghost. Castle chuckles and asks if the tooth came out cleanly, while a blushing, embarrassed Aika sheepishly twiddles her fingers. His terrifying aura vanishes completely, replaced by a gentle, affectionate warmth as he gazes at his adorable niece. Framed by beautiful blooming roses, the doting uncle softly asks if she suffered any pain when the tooth fell out. Aika looks up in sheer bewilderment as her uncle gently places his large hand on her head, comforting her. Relieved that she wasn't hurt, Castle crosses his arms with a smile, though he internally panics about how to handle his precious niece's milestone. Eager to prove her strength, Aika enthusiastically stuffs her face with a massive piece of meat, showing she can eat just fine. Castle watches her with affectionate amusement, gently warning his hungry niece to eat slowly so she won't upset her stomach. However, his playful expression quickly fades into a deeply serious, calculating gaze. Reviewing her secret newspaper collage, Castle analyzes the incredibly specific details Aika altered, realizing her code has a deeper meaning. A sharp, intrigued smirk returns to his face as he ponders the brilliant intellect of his small niece. His mind swirls with questions, deeply wondering what dangerous secrets the mysterious young girl is struggling to hide all on her own. Later that afternoon, a soft knock echoes at the heavy wooden double doors of Aika's private chambers. The gentle rustle of elegant flowers sets a peaceful, serene atmosphere inside the quiet bedroom. A familiar, cheery voice sings out from behind the door as the brown-haired maid announces her arrival. Entering the room with a bright smile, Zenda wheels in a beautiful tea cart filled with delicious pastries and warm tea. An excited Aika bounces with joy while the braided maid happily asks her to wait just a brief moment. She holds out a beautifully crafted cream envelope sealed with a pristine red wax stamp. Sniffing the mysterious paper with pure delight, Aika notes that the elegant letter carries an incredibly pleasant scent. Zenda looks down at her with a knowing, excited expression, eagerly asking if the young lady recognizes the sender. With a sparkling grin, the maid reveals a gorgeous pearl and gold chain adorned with the mystical heavy iron horseshoe relic. Overjoyed by the surprise, Aika enthusiastically thanks Zenda for the stunning horseshoe necklace. Unfolding the crisp paper, her excitement turns to curiosity as she begins to read the letter. Aika suddenly turns pale, calling out to her maid while Zenda asks in deep concern what is wrong. The letter reveals that Rusby must travel to his family's distant territory, cutting off their correspondence. Worried about his departure, Aika asks if his destination is far, and Zenda explains it lies in the remote north. The vast distance is illustrated by the freezing northern peaks compared to the warm southern plains of Castir. Tucked neatly inside the envelope, a collection of beautiful pressed flowers catches Aika's eye. She happily reads that the flowers were dried directly from the Marquise's garden. Aika is deeply touched, realizing that Ruspa personally dried the lovely blossoms just for her. A warm memory flashes of the silver-haired boy smiling gently at his desk with a yellow flower. Cherishing the heartfelt gift, Aika decides to store the delicate flowers safely to keep them pristine. She hands over the letter to her doting maid, hoping to prepare a return gift. Zenda gently advises that they lack the time to dry flowers, suggesting a different token of affection. The clever maid suggests buying a cozy fur hat or scarf, a brilliant idea that thrills the young lady. Aika joyfully imagines how adorable the silver-haired boy would look in a warm winter hat. She fondly remembers their happiest moments together, laughing side by side. Determined to reply, Aika eagerly sits at her desk to pen a heartfelt letter. Her focus is interrupted as Sair, the purple snake, crawls onto her shoulder to demand they practice her abilities. Sair lectures her to accept his energy, warning her to look for real dangers instead of minor accidents. Although Aika wants to prevent people from getting hurt, Sir firmly tells her to ignore trivial futures. An ominous darkness sets in as Sir warns that focusing on minor injuries will blind her to major catastrophes. The serpent emphasizes that selecting what she foresees is vital for keeping herself alive. Aika is amazed when Sir promises to filter the future visions for her. She passionately holds her companion, declaring her sole mission is to save her beloved uncle. The little purple snake stares in silence, deeply moved by her fierce determination. Aika smiles brightly, asking Sir to make a sacred promise with her. She holds out her hand, eagerly waiting to seal their pinky swear. Sir's mismatched eyes gaze back with absolute seriousness as he prepares to make the vow. The snake's tail wraps around her finger, sealing the mystical contract. Instantly, a terrifying vision of running down a dark, empty corridor flashes in her mind. Aika is struck with overwhelming horror, her face turning pale with panic. The blood-chilling vision reveals her powerful red-haired uncle brutally slashed and bleeding. An oppressive darkness settles over her mind as withered petals fall like silent teardrops. Snapping back to reality, Aika desperately pleads with Sir to keep his pinky promise. A heavy, solemn atmosphere underscores the absolute sacredness of the promise they just made. Terrified, Aika demands to know what Sir is talking about regarding her uncle's fate. Sarah sadly reveals that her uncle is returning injured, prompting an outraged scream of betrayal from the girl. Crying hysterically, Aika calls Sarah a liar, devastated that he kept her uncle's dangerous secret. She clutches her chest, weeping over how hard she has fought to keep her uncle safe. Sir insists he only did it to protect her, but a heartbroken Aika coldly tells him to be quiet. Dejected and betrayed, Aika storms away from the table, refusing to speak to the snake. A sharp slam echoes through the quiet bedroom as the door is thrown open. Rapid panic footsteps echo down the Grand Palace hallway as she runs in a frenzy. Tears streaming down her face, Aika desperately sprints through the corridor, screaming for her uncle. Ahead, the brown-haired guard Gerard opens a massive door with a startled expression. The running girl crashes violently into Gerard, crying out in pain as she falls. Gerard quickly stabilizes her, anxiously asking if she is hurt. Grabbing his uniform, Aika frantically demands to know why her uncle hasn't returned with him. Gerard attempts to brush it off and send her to bed, but Aika suspiciously asks why he came back alone. Gerard offers a sweating, nervous lie, but Aika immediately recognizes his tell, realizing he is hiding the grim truth about her uncle. Determined to alter a dark destiny, a panicked Aika bolts past her guard Gerard, shouting that she must find her uncle immediately.
Sprinting down the grand spiral staircase, the young girl rushes through the silent palace corridors with absolute urgency.
Recalling her uncle's usual habits of heading straight to his office upon returning, Aika desperately hopes she can catch him in time. Suddenly, she stops dead in her tracks, her golden eyes widening in complete shock at what lies ahead. Peering through the doorway, Aika's worst fears are realized as she spots her powerful red-haired Uncle Castle sitting with a heavily bandaged arm. A soft click of the door handle echoes in the quiet room, breaking the heavy silence. Unaware of his niece's presence, Castle calls out to his guard, asking if his little peanut is safely asleep in her room. Clutching a fresh bandage, the scarred lord instructs his guard to ensure Aika is kept away from the second floor to hide his injuries. Suddenly, her trembling voice calls out to him, catching the formidable red-haired lord completely off guard. Tears stream down Aika's face as her uncle turns around in absolute shock, his carefully guarded secret fully exposed. Castle quickly commands her to return to her room to protect her from the sight, but a devastated Aika can only stare at the fresh blood on his arm. Weeping hysterically about his pain, Aika is met with her uncle's sarcastic attempt to downplay the severity of his wounds. Scooping her up with his uninjured arm, the doting uncle gently lifts his crying niece to comfort her. Holding her close, Castle softly tells her to stop crying, teasingly warning that her eyes will swell up like a goldfish. Pouting through her tears, Aika demands to be put down, deeply worried that her weight will only hurt his injured arm further. Reassuring her with a gentle gaze, Castle promises that he is far too strong to die from such a minor scratch. Relieved but still deeply shaken, the emotional girl buries her face against her uncle's shoulder, weeping softly as she clings to him. Suddenly, the heavy thud of a boot steps into the room, signaling the arrival of an unexpected guest. A handsome blonde-haired man stands in the doorway, curiously asking Castle if this is the beloved niece he mentioned. Sniffling in confusion, Aika looks up from her uncle's chest, wondering who this stylish stranger is. With a warm and friendly wave, the charismatic blonde traveler introduces himself with a bright smile. Flamboyantly patting her head, the eccentric newcomer gushes over her cuteness and teasingly guesses her age based on her missing front tooth. Aika confirms she is 7, while the playful blonde man laughs heartily at her adorable reaction. The cheerful visitor introduces himself as Baron de Ramode, warmly explaining that he is a close friend of her uncle. Recognizing the name Ramode, Aika wonders if this elegant man is the prestigious Count Ramode she has heard about. A sudden memory flashes in her mind, recalling a beautiful blonde-haired lady standing alongside her red-haired uncle. Baron playfully suggests she call him uncle as well, since he and Castle are the same age. Aika gasps in sheer amazement, completely captivated by his theatrical and friendly charm. An overwhelming wave of affection fills the air as the young girl's adorable nature completely wins him over. Baron clutches his chest in dramatic agony, utterly defeated by the young lady's extreme cuteness. As the blonde man behaves dramatically, a sweat-dropping Aika watches in absolute bewilderment, silently questioning his sanity. Her sharp eyes quickly spot the bandages on his arm, prompting her to ask if Baron is also injured. Baron boasts that he got hurt during a sparring match where he defeated Castle, but a loyal Aika passionately objects, declaring her uncle can never lose. Thrilled by her fierce protective nature, Baron dramatically begs her to become his niece instead. Baron expresses deep regret for not visiting sooner to meet her, leaving Aika confused when he mentions someone named Hela. When Baron mentions Hela's endless boasting, Aika happily recognizes the pretty blonde lady from the royal banquet. Baron smiles and says Hela would love to hear that, while fondly recalling their bickering childhood relationship. Castle's patience completely runs out as he coldly orders his friend to get out, but Baron protests his harsh treatment. Baron dramatically appeals to Aika's kindness, prompting the sweet girl to warmly invite him to stay in one of their many rooms. Castle scolds her for offering his house without permission, but a clever Aika claims she is simply lending it to a guest. Castle questions her boldness in ignoring his commands, but Aika defends her choice by reminding him that Baron is also injured. Puffing her cheeks with determination, the stubborn young girl refuses to back down from her formidable uncle. Faced with his niece's unrelenting defense of their guest, a defeated Castle can only sweat drop in silent resignation. Relenting with a sigh, Castle permits Baron to stay for just one day, much to his friend's smug delight. The quiet night slowly transitions into a bright, peaceful morning as a new day begins. Later that morning, the group gathers around the lavishly set table in the grand dining hall for breakfast. Despite the delicious meal before her, Aika picks at her food slowly, looking deeply distracted. Baron notices her lack of appetite and asks if something is wrong, prompting a startled Aika to quickly claim the food is delicious. In truth, Aika is deeply worried about the purple snake Ser, who has not appeared since their fight, though her pride keeps her stubborn. Interrupting her train of thought, Castle warns her to stop spacing out and chew her food, casually announcing they are going out today. Determined to secure a brighter future, the formidable red-haired Lord Castle announces a sudden journey that changes everything. A magnificent mansion stands grandly under a clear, brilliant blue sky, signaling the start of a brand new day. A grand black carriage travels along a sun-dappled forest path toward their mysterious destination. An ecstatic Aika squeals with pure delight inside the moving carriage, unable to contain her excitement. Sitting proudly in his pristine uniform, Castle boasts about the immaculate condition of the estate they are visiting. Castle curiously questions Aika about the unusually massive bag she is carrying on her shoulders. Sweating nervously, Aika lies about bringing toys while secretly planning to collect powerful artifacts. Elegant blue butterflies flutter through the bright, peaceful sky as they arrive. A gorgeous white gazebo sits surrounded by colorful blooming flowers in the courtyard. A magnificent stone fountain sprays refreshing water under the warm morning sun. Stepping outside, Aika cheers with excitement as she finally sets foot on the beautiful grounds. A wide view reveals the breathtaking palace mansion in all its architectural glory. Close-up of Aika's cute yellow buckled shoes stepping onto the polished stone pavement. The young girl cheerfully skips along the path with absolute bliss surrounded by nature. Clasping her hands, Aika takes a moment to enjoy the peaceful, fragrant garden air. A mysterious person wearing a dark, elegant suit stands quietly nearby. Startled, Aika looks up as the newcomer warmly welcomes her back to the estate. The graceful caretaker Roa, wearing glasses and a neat suit, is formally introduced. Overjoyed to see her old friend, Aika runs and leaps into Roa's welcoming arms. Roa happily cradles the young girl, warmly asking if she has been healthy and safe. Showing off, Aika proudly boasts that she has grown taller and lost a front tooth. Carrying her, Roa smiles warmly as Castle approaches them from behind. The formidable red-haired Lord Castle smiles softly as he joins the welcoming party. Roa formally greets Castle as Marquis, noting it is their very first time meeting in person. Confused, Aika asks Roa if she already knew her uncle, prompting an explanation. Roa reveals they regularly sent letters, causing Aika to gasp in shock at the betrayal of her privacy. Castle changes the subject, asking Roa if everything has been properly organized in boxes. Chibi Aika fumes with anger while Roa holds her, leaving Castle completely unfazed. Castle playfully teases Aika about trying to sell his house yesterday, while she desperately defends herself. Sarcastically checking her excuses, Castle lifts the flailing girl by her dress to send her off to play. Pouting deeply, the stubborn Aika complains that her uncle is incredibly unfair to her. She loudly demands to be put down so she can walk on her own. Stumping her feet, Aika angrily marches away from her uncle and caretaker into the mansion. Bright sunlight streams through the tall arched windows of the quiet palace corridors. Sneaking inside, Aika quietly slips through the heavy doors to explore on her own. Suddenly, she stops dead in her tracks, letting out a soft gasp of surprise. Her golden eye widens in shock as a familiar portrait is reflected in her pupil. Standing alone in the grand hallway, Aika gazes up at a beautiful portrait of her mother. A fond memory resurfaces of her gentle, red-haired mother cradling baby Aika in her arms. In the memory, baby Aika cutely tells her mother that she looks even prettier in person. Her mother's warm promise to return quickly echoes from the past, leaving a bittersweet feeling. Looking downcast in the present, Aika softly calls out to her mother with a heavy heart. Suddenly, a startled expression crosses her face as a sudden sound breaks her focus. Recognizing the voice, Aika stubbornly demands to know why Sarah is speaking to her while they are still fighting. A heavy, silent pose lingers in the grand room as they stand apart. A quiet, heartfelt apology breaks the silence, catching the young girl off guard. Hearing the words, Aika looks up with tears welling in her large golden eyes. The purple snake Seer sheds a tear of remorse, looking deeply regretful for his actions. Clutching her chest, Aika looks down in emotional vulnerability as her anger melts away. Softly, Aika admits she is also sorry for getting angry first, hoping to finally mend their broken bond. A heartwarming resolution begins as they finally decide to make up. Aika smiles warmly as she happily reunites with her purple companion, Sir. Stepping inside, Aika is absolutely amazed by how spotless her mother's room is kept. Pointing at the tidy desk, Aika recalls the massive piles of documents once stacked there. Peeking over the desk, Sir nervously questions if she is allowed to search through it. Finding the door completely empty, Sir wonders if her mother hid her important secrets beforehand. Puzzled, Aika thinks deeply to deduce where her mother would hide her most precious belongings. Her searching eyes immediately lock onto a massive, elegant wooden wardrobe standing in the corner. Excitedly, Aika declares she has solved the mystery, realizing the item is hidden elsewhere. A warm memory resurfaces of her gentle mother proposing a playful game of hide-and-seek. Her mother's soft voice echoes from the past, urging her to find the hidden treasure. Driven by sudden inspiration, the young girl dashes down the corridor. Aika runs eagerly, absolutely confident she knows exactly where the secret gift is kept. Arriving at her destination, Aika eagerly opens a secret drawer. Her small hands slowly open the beautifully decorated wooden keepsake box. A leather-bound journal and a sealed scroll rest safely inside the chest. Clutching the precious relics, Aika is deeply moved by her mother's legacy. Wiping her tears, Aika struggles to keep her promise to her mother to remain strong. Sarah happily cheers her on as Aika regains her bright, unstoppable spirit. Looking ahead with determination, Aika is certain her mother left behind invaluable secrets. Under a starry night sky, the magnificent Kelpodia mansion stands silent and imposing. Inside, the silver-haired emperor sternly lectures young Rusby about his unsanctioned secret meetings. A heavy tension fills the room as the emperor prepares his decree. The emperor coldly commands his young son to immediately sever ties with the Valiart girl. An oppressive question hangs in the dark air, demanding the young heir's complete obedience. The quiet night outside stands in stark contrast to the brewing storm. Ruspa stands in stunned disbelief, utterly devastated by his father's harsh, heartless ban. When the boy tries to protest, his father coldly declares the situation has changed. The emperor explains that dangerous rumors of an engagement are being spread by rivals. Growing branch shadows outside highlight the rising political danger surrounding them. Nervously blushing, the young prince quickly denies any such romantic involvement with his friend. The emperor advises absolute caution, warning that mindless gossip will only invite ruinous trouble. The formidable ruler walks away, expecting his commands to be obeyed. Suddenly, the emperor calls his name, halting the young prince with an icy tone. Grabbing him, the emperor fiercely reminds his son of his heavy imperial duty as heir. With a final threat, he orders the boy to prepare for his immediate departure. A heavy, somber silence falls over the study after the confrontation. The complex political web surrounding the imperial family continues to tighten around them. Standing alone by the window, the emperor reflects on his hard decisions. An expression of pure exhaustion briefly passes over his stern face. His wife, Rosettia, laments that their son has rarely smiled since his rigorous training began. She deeply worries that such intense pressure is far too cruel for a young child. Sipping his tea, the emperor insists this harsh path is the only way forward. He explains that solidifying the boy's position is necessary to protect him from political enemies. Though her heart aches, the devoted mother reluctantly accepts her husband's firm decree. She notes that exchanging letters with Aika has recently brightened their son's spirits. The emperor observes that the Valiart family is also acting with extreme caution regarding Aika. He admits he only permitted their connection because of Rusby, remaining suspicious of her. He acknowledges that while the powerful Valiart family is their greatest shield, threats remain. The emperor ominously concludes that they must wait and see how the future unfolds. Determined to shield his son from a ruthless court, the emperor vows to pave a safe path before the boy comes of age. He resolves to prepare every strategic piece on the board, leaving absolutely nothing to chance. Standing alone by the window, the stern ruler reflects on the heavy burdens of the imperial throne. Meanwhile, the focus shifts to young Prince Rusby as he holds onto a precious collection of letters. Stepping away from the grand imperial carriage, Rusby walks out into a quiet, snow-covered winter landscape. Clutching a warm letter from Aika, the young prince reads her sweet words praising the beautiful flowers he sent. The letter continues with a gentle warning from a maid named Zenda, urging him to stay warm in the freezing estate. Blushing deeply, Rusby is touched to read that she is sending him a special purple fur cloak to wear. Walking through the deep snow, the prince deeply regrets not pushing himself harder to see her before his departure. Looking up at the falling snow, a rare, tender expression crosses the young boy's usually serious face. A snow-laden tree branch against the clear sky signals the quiet passing of the winter season. The bright blue sky clears, transitioning the story back to the vibrant Moor mansion. Outside the spectacular sunlit palace mansion, a playful voice demands a checkup. Inside, the formidable red-haired castle insists on examining Aika's mouth while she reluctantly complies. Opening her mouth wide with a loud shout, Aika proudly displays her missing front tooth. Castle teasingly warns her that losing all her baby teeth will bring big trouble, but she stubbornly objects. Pointing to her new jagged tooth, she asks why it resembles a saw, only for Castle to tease her listening habits. Unfazed, the energetic girl proudly declares she specifically requested pretty teeth, leaving her uncle amused. They bicker back and forth as Aika boastfully claims her maid praised her good behavior with reward cards. Castle jokingly retorts that naughty kids always get extra treats, sending the chibi Aika into a fuming rage. As he warned her to avoid offending the Tooth Fairy, Aika confidently dismisses his concerns. Suddenly, her golden eyes widen in absolute shock as she hears mention of the prestigious academy. Clasping her hands together in excitement, the young girl eagerly begs to join the academy too. She passionately plans to attend the school alongside her close friend Ruspe the moment he returns. Aika beams with pure joy, while Castle playfully questions if she even asked her silver-haired friend first. Her uncle walks away while warning her not to threaten the prince, leaving Aika to stubbornly defend her intentions. In a hilarious fit of anger, Aika bites her uncle's leg, prompting him to tell her to go organize her things. Retreating to her elegant room, Aika realizes she indeed has several important belongings to sort through. Lying upside down on her bed, she curiously shows a mysterious keepsake to her loyal purple snake companion, Sir. Inspecting the ancient scroll and notes, the young girl wonders if her mother left behind a secret code. The mysterious document reveals cryptic clues mentioning a pink flower, an infinity symbol, and hunger. Holding the paper, she tries to decipher the strange puzzle, identifying the infinity symbol and questioning the word hunger. Aika examines the detailed family crests on the parchment, puzzled by a drawing of a gold ring with a purple gemstone. Though Sarah suggests just taking a look, she insists on following her mother's instructions to solve the first riddle. Surrounded by books and scrolls, Aika explains that these hints are exactly like the treasure hunts they used to play. A heartwarming memory resurfaces of her younger self eagerly finding a hidden chest while her mother watched over her. Confident in her extensive studies and past games, Aika resolves that she will successfully crack her mother's riddle. Looking closely at her purple snake, she tells herself to stay patient as her future sight abilities gradually strengthen. Suddenly, a bright, magical energy coalesces in her room, revealing a glowing horseshoe crest. A magnificent, majestic white horse with sparkling blue eyes suddenly manifests from the light. The summoned beast Equus proudly offers to instantly transport the startled girl to any secret destination. Overjoyed, Aika warmly thanks her new companion, though she wonders why he keeps appearing without being called. A few days later, the scene shifts to the spectacular mansion bathed in beautiful daylight. Inside, a worried maid with a braided brown hair pleads with her young lady, warning her of the extreme danger. The maid gets completely dizzy with anxiety, frantically stressing about the high risk of getting hurt. Showing her mischievous side, Aika grins deviously, completely prepared for her next bold adventure. Analyzing the mysterious scroll again, she ponders over the complex structure of the hidden code. The delicate rose-pattern background frames the puzzling clues left behind by her mother. Driven by an unstoppable spirit, Aika remains absolutely certain that her rigorous preparation will pay off. Balancing her days between training her aura vision and researching old library records, the young lady edges closer to the truth. Under the starry night sky, Aika rides her magical horse Equus to sneak into the old records room. A bright new day dawns upon the magnificent mansion, bringing unexpected developments. Zenda nervously warns that her plans are far too dangerous, but Aika confidently dismisses her worries. Fearing she will get in trouble if her lady gets hurt, the frantic maid begs to take over the task. Aika remains completely unmoved, her gaze hardened with absolute resolve. With a stubborn shout, the young girl flatly rejects her maid's plea. Holding her embroidery hoop, the young lady prepares to sew. Zenda suggests they cooperate so they can share the credit, but Aika sassily points out that merely picking the thread does not count as working together. A sharp prick of the needle halts her clumsy stitching. Aika deploys her ultimate weapon, pleading with puppy dog eyes to get her way. The maid is completely defeated, clutching her heart at her lady's irresistible cuteness. Amazed by her young lady's growing, "I'm just a language model and can't help with that." Zenda offers to guide her hands and complete the difficult stitching herself. Excitedly, the young girl declares she wants to embroider the exact flowers Rusby sent her. The maid agrees, carefully preparing the needle to begin the shared project. Aika focuses intensely, determined to make the embroidery absolutely perfect. The needle glides gracefully, bringing a beautiful yellow blossom to life. From behind the door, Uncle Castle quietly watches his niece. Zenda gently guides her small hands to perfect the delicate stitches. Amused by the heartwarming scene, the red-haired man quietly departs. A magical flurry of stitches rapidly transforms the plain white cloth. Thrilled by the stunning, realistic flower design, Zenda asks if they truly made it together, which Aika proudly confirms. As Zenda promises to finish the rest, she embroiders at lightning speed, leaving her lady completely speechless. Zenda presents the finished handkerchief, prompting the delighted girl to praise the blooming yellow flowers. Clutching her new masterpiece, Aika runs eagerly down the grand corridor. Planning to keep her special gift pristine, she decides to place it in a box decorated with a ribbon. Wrapping the present in cherry paper, the young girl proudly admires her perfect work. Holding the gift close, her heart swells with pure anticipation. When Aika anxiously wonders if Ruspe will like it, Zenda reassures her that he will cherish such a heartfelt gift. The sun slowly sets, casting a warm golden glow across the horizon. A magnificent horse-drawn carriage pulls up to the towering gates. Returning to his estate, Ruspe is formally welcomed back by his butler and asks for an update.
A maid informs the young prince that a letter and a gift from Marquis Laguerre have just arrived. His purple eyes widen in sudden hope as he asks if the delivery is from his friend Aika. Realizing she might ask to meet, Rusby nervously wonders how he can possibly refuse her, debating whether to speak with his father. Knowing his father will not listen, he worries about becoming a nuisance until a shocking word catches his eye. The young prince stands frozen, completely stunned by the letter's contents. A horrifying realization grips him as he reads the word sick. A warm memory of Aika's bright, healthy smile flashes before his eyes. An overwhelming wave of panic and worry completely consumes his thoughts. Under the dark night sky, the silent mansion stands cold and quiet. Aika walks slowly down the long corridor, her head hanging low. She quietly wonders if her secret letter reached her friend safely. Sighing with deep disappointment, the young girl laments that they cannot meet for a long time. Suddenly, the maid rushes in with shocking news that Rusp has unexpectedly arrived. Aika gasps in utter disbelief as the young prince stands waiting out in the cold. The heavy iron gates stand wide open in the quiet night. Rusp sits quietly inside her bedroom while she hides under the blanket. Peeking out from her blanket, she flinches as Rusp softly calls out her name. Looking deeply worried, Rusby apologizes for his sudden visit, explaining that her shocking letter made him rush over immediately. Determined to protect his dearest friend, Rusp rushes to Aika's side, demanding to know where she is hurting. Hiding under her blankets, Aika panics as she realizes her little white lie has backfired spectacularly. She mentally screams in regret, never expecting her false illness would make him rush over in a panic. When Rusby gently offers to read her a storybook, the guilty girl quickly rejects his kind gesture. Desperate to help, the worried young prince asks if there is absolutely anything else he can do. He looks down in distress, completely overwhelmed by his inability to cure his dear friend. Peeking from her sheets, Aika's heart breaks as she sees how deeply her lie is hurting him. Suddenly, her loyal snake companion, Sir, pops up and urges her to confess the truth. Stealing her resolve, Aika finally calls out to her friend to get his attention. Sitting up at last, she looks at him with deep remorse and softly apologizes. The quiet room holds its breath as she gathers the courage to reveal her secret. Moonlight filters through the massive glass window, setting a solemn tone for her confession. With a heavy heart, Aika bravely confesses that she was never actually sick at all. A confused Ruspe asks for the truth while Aika begs him not to laugh at her. Flapping her arms dramatically, the embarrassed girl prepares to reveal the hilarious reality. Aika proudly points to her mouth, revealing the real culprit is just a missing front tooth. She shyly explains that she only wanted to hide until her new tooth finally grew back. Rusp stands completely frozen, processing the shocking realization that his friend is perfectly healthy. Aika laughs off her embarrassment while Rusp finally understands the ridiculous reason behind her dramatic letter. A sudden, intense wave of emotion grips the young prince's heart as he stares at her. A brilliant, breathtaking smile erupts on Rusby's face as pure, overwhelming relief washes over him. He laughs happily and reveals that he has lost his teeth too, sending Adka into complete shock. Reaching out, the young prince gently clasps her hand in a tender gesture of comfort. Rusp reassures her that losing baby teeth is entirely normal and she never has to feel embarrassed around him. He double-checks to ensure she isn't in any real pain and she quickly reassures him. A silent, warm bond of trust and relief settles deeply between the two childhood friends. Overflowing with sudden energy, the hyperactive girl leaps right off her bed in pure joy. Grabbing both of his hands, she eagerly begs her silver-haired friend to stay the night. Rusp nervously hesitates, confessing that he actually snuck out and needs to head back soon. The young prince feels incredibly torn, wondering how he can resolve this sneaking suspicion of getting caught. Suddenly, a booming voice shatters the peaceful moment as Uncle Castle looms over the doorway. The children gasp in absolute horror as the formidable red-haired Marquis catches them red-handed. The imposing lord stands tall, his authoritative presence filling the entire room. Castle addresses the young prince with a mocking nickname, signaling trouble is brewing. The ominous shadow of the Marquis demands a private word with the trespassing young boy. Rusby is left completely bewildered and terrified, fearing the severe consequences of his actions. The scene shifts to the magnificent mansion study under a brilliant glowing chandelier. Castle stands facing away, the sheer height difference emphasizing the immense tension between them. The red-haired man confronts the nervous boy for sneaking out of his estate without permission. Believing his punishment is imminent, Rusp immediately apologizes and offers to leave. The formidable lord remains silent, letting the heavy pressure of the room weigh on the boy. Breaking the silence, Castle unexpectedly orders the shocked prince to stay the night. The Marquis keeps his cool, unbothered expression, hiding his inner soft spot for the kids. Walking away, Castle notes that the boy's loyalty to Aika deserves a proper reward. He playfully tells him to enjoy his playdate today and prepare his excuses for tomorrow's scolding. The young prince stands absolutely speechless, stunned by the Marquis' surprising mercy. A bright, joyous smile warms his face as he passionately thanks the generous Marquis. In the grand corridor, a maid cheerfully wheels a service cart loaded with cozy supplies. Armed with pillows and matching sleepwear, the two kids prepare for an unforgettable pillow fight. As they settle into their cozy pajamas, an exciting new chapter of their friendship begins. But what dangers await them tomorrow? The room fills with warmth as Zenda checks on the cozy duo, who eagerly assure her they are perfectly comfortable. Smiling warmly, Zenda promises to leave the nightlight on while reminding them not to stay up too late. Tucking them in, the maid bids them sleep well while Aika and Ruspe cheerfully wish her a good night. A peaceful silence settles over the dimly lit bedroom as Aika stares thoughtfully at the ceiling. Lying awake under the heavy covers, the silver-haired prince looks pensive, lost in his own quiet thoughts. Reaching out to hold his hand, the black-haired girl happily whispers how much fun she had playing with him today. Looking toward the massive arched window, she softly calls out his name in the quiet room. Clasping his hand, she curiously asks what he has been up to back at his own estate. The scene shifts to his memories of the snow-covered castle during his family's grand domain inspections. Under his father's watchful eye, the young prince learned the heavy responsibilities of ruling their dangerous territory. Though it was his first time traveling so far, the young boy found the daunting journey surprisingly exciting. Smiling warmly, the young prince promises to take his dearest friend along on his next grand adventure. Suddenly, sitting up in bed, the silver-haired boy startles his friend as a crucial memory hits him. Promptly sliding out of bed, he assures her he will be back in just a single moment. Kneeling on the floor, the young prince eagerly rummages through his bag for a hidden treasure. A bright, triumphant smile lights up his face as he finally locates his special surprise. Rushing back to the bedside, the excited boy calls out her name to grab her attention. Surrounded by a beautiful floral aura, his hands gently extend a carefully wrapped gift toward her. He presents a beautiful lavender gift box adorned with a delicate white ribbon and rose. Thrilled by the sudden present, Aika gasps in delight and eagerly asks if she can open it right away. With a satisfying click, the lid of the elegant purple box is lifted to reveal its contents. Resting inside is a stunning, high-quality red plaid ribbon brooch adorned with a sparkling yellow gemstone. Holding up the sparkling accessory, she marvels at its beauty while he explains it was crafted by his family's master artisan. She curiously asks where to place it, prompting him to explain it can be attached to her neck or chest. Comically struggling with the clasp, the young girl is determined to pin the accessory to her pajamas. With a small click, she successfully attaches the stunning red brooch to her collar. Posing proudly, she eagerly asks her friend how she looks, sending him into absolute fits of joy. Smiling warmly, the silver-haired prince urges her to look deeper into the box for one more special surprise. Her eyes sparkling with curiosity, the black-haired girl eagerly reaches back into the gift box to search. Parting the soft white silk, she uncovers a beautiful braided silver bracelet featuring a teardrop purple gem. Staring at the glowing window, she gasps in pure wonder at the stunning contents of the gift box. Holding up the braided piece, Aika excitedly points out that the gemstone matches the exact shade of his eyes. He happily explains that it is a traditional tribal good luck charm meant to protect its wearer. Reaching out, the young prince gently fastens the delicate braided silver bracelet onto her small wrist. Gazing down at her sparkling new accessory, her heart swells with deep gratitude for his sweet gesture. She enthusiastically promises to wear it forever, while he happily vows to cherish her handmade yellow handkerchief. Though they both want to keep playing, they reluctantly agree to sleep before the maid catches them. Snuggled beneath the heavy blanket, the two friends finally settle down as the quiet night deepens. Unable to hold back her curiosity, Aika whispers to ask if he practiced any magic during his time away. Looking up at the ceiling, she wonders if her friend will grow up to become a powerful, cloaked wizard. A heavy silence falls as Ruspe stares blankly, his expressive eyes suddenly turning solemn. Turning his head away, the silver-haired prince quietly confesses that he still does not know his path. Sensing his sudden sadness, Aika wonders if she overstepped or if his strict family forbids his magical dreams. Her long dark hair spills across the pillow as she shifts closer to him in the dark. A close-up of his glowing purple eye captures the silent weight of his unresolved family expectations. Rusp turns to face her, his cheeks flushing pink as she suddenly closes the distance between them. Placing a gentle hand over his heart, the caring girl softly reassures him of her unwavering support. He looks up in utter astonishment, completely moved by the pure warmth of her comforting words. She promises to stand by his side and cheer for his happiness no matter what path he chooses. Staring into her eyes, he wonders if she will truly stay by him, leaving us eager for tomorrow's dawn. Flashing a brilliant, heartwarming smile, Aika promises to always stand by her silver-haired friend's side. Wide-eyed and completely speechless, the young prince stares back in absolute awe at her fierce loyalty. A joyous, radiant smile breaks across Ruspe's face as he enthusiastically accepts her heartwarming vow. Snuggled beneath the cozy blankets, the happy girl declares it is finally time for them to sleep. Blushing softly, the silver-haired prince nervously asks if he can hold her hand as they drift off. Grasping her hand gently, the prince beams with immense gratitude for her warm, comforting presence beside him. Chibi Aika cheerfully bids her dearest friend a sweet, playful goodnight as sleep finally beckons. He happily returns the sweet sentiment, letting a peaceful calm wash over the quiet bedroom.
Their small hands remain tightly locked, cementing a deep, unbreakable bond of childhood friendship. A serene silence settles over the room as both children drift into a deep, peaceful slumber. Morning light soon bathes the magnificent estate, marking the start of a brand new day of challenges. Outside the grand mansion, the energetic black-haired girl waves wildly to bid her silver-haired friend farewell. Leaning out of the luxurious carriage window, the prince bids her a fond, smiling farewell as he departs. As the carriage rolls away, the prince's bright smile slowly transitions into a quiet, introspective gaze. A heavy sorrow grips the young boy's heart as he fears they might never meet again. The majestic carriage finally arrives at the formidable snow-white gates of his family's grand estate. Upon his return, a stern maid politely informs the young master that his formidable father awaits him. Preparing himself for the worst, the silver-haired prince still resolves his heart for the imminent confrontation. His small footsteps echo softly down the cavernous, gold-trimmed halls of his family mansion. Standing before the heavy wooden study doors, the young boy hesitantly steps inside to face his fate. The imposing marquis stands with his back turned, his authoritative voice immediately filling the tense room. Bowing his head in deep respect, the nervous boy quietly acknowledges his father's powerful presence. On the polished desk lies an elegant sealed letter radiating an aura of official high-stakes business. The young prince looks up in utter bewilderment as his father delivers an entirely unexpected declaration. The stern marquis shock reveals that Rusby will finally be permitted to associate openly with Aika in a month. The marquis strictly orders his son to maintain flawless aristocratic conduct until the big day arrives. Unable to contain his shock, the young prince nervously asks what prompted this sudden miraculous change of heart. The Marquis explains that a strategic heads-up from Marquis Castle regarding the upcoming summer grand ball changed everything. On that spectacular night, the world will officially recognize Aika as the true lady of the noble Valiant family. This stunning revelation leaves the young prince absolutely speechless, his heart swelling with immense excitement. 1 week quickly passes, shifting the focus back to the bustling activity of the Valiant estate. The grand mansion gleams under a brilliant blue sky as preparations begin behind closed doors. An authoritative hand suddenly reaches out during a quiet meal to present a mysterious new item. Spotting the ornate black and gold envelope, the black-haired girl gasps in shock mid-bite. When Aika asks what the letter is, her red-haired uncle calmly reveals it is a prestigious royal invitation. Clutching the card, the energetic girl dramatically expresses her sheer excitement over the non-stop invitations pouring in. The imposing uncle instructs her to prepare diligently for her grand debut alongside her powerful grandfather. Spearing his food with icy precision, Castle vows to silence the jealous nobles once and for all. Flaunting his terrifying protective aura, the formidable lord warns that no one will dare disrespect his beloved niece. Overjoyed by her uncle's fierce protectiveness, the young girl's golden eyes sparkle with pure delight. Bouncing with excitement, she eagerly demands to know if her beloved knight Gerard will be escorting her. Playfully teasing his niece, the red-haired man refuses to spoil the surprise, driving her into a comical fit of frustration. The next day dawns under a brilliant sun, setting the stage for a dramatic, life-altering encounter. Heavy metallic footsteps suddenly echo ominously through the peaceful corridors of the estate. Turning around, the young girl stands completely frozen in sheer shock at the bizarre sight before her. Looming over her is a mysterious, fully armored figure, leaving us absolutely desperate to uncover their true identity. Time passes as the young girl reaches her 7th year, stepping closer to the dangerous world of high society. Step by step, her fiercely protective uncle works tirelessly to shield her from the scheming nobility. He remains determined to ensure that she can live a bright, joyful life untainted by dark political games. To permanently silence the whispers, Aika's grand debutante ball is officially set for the prestigious summer grand banquet, launching her into a thrilling new era. A silent, oppressive tension fills the grand, gold-trimmed halls of the majestic mansion. Deep in his private study, the red-haired guardian Leto sits in troubled silence amidst stacks of paperwork. He silently reviews a confidential document, overwhelmed by a persistent dilemma that has plagued him for days. He deeply questions if introducing young Aika to the high society banquet is truly the right decision. In his mind's eye, the protective guardian envisions his late sister Syria standing beside Aika's bright, innocent smile. He recalls a report explaining that Aika instinctively rushed straight to his room upon his unannounced return. Looking at his trusted bodyguard, Leto's gaze sharpens as he pieces together the mysterious clues. He remembers confirming that Gerard never told Aika about his reopened battle woos. He realizes that since Gerard would never lie, Aika's impossible intuition defies all logical explanation. He vividly recalls how Aika frantically warned him about dangerous intruders barging in to hurt people. He ponders the chilling realization that he acted with perfect foresight during the previous assassination attempt. A sudden startling truth flashes behind the Guardian's sharp golden eyes. He remembers his late sister Syria frequently vanishing on secret missions and returning in a complete mess. She had once vanished entirely, only to return holding a mysterious, secretly born infant. The tragic memory abruptly ends with her sudden, untimely death.
He firmly decides that he cares nothing for the identity of Aika's biological father, prioritizing only her absolute safety. He admits that digging deeper into Saria's past only uncovers a web of dangerous secrets. He resolves to trace his sister's mysterious steps from long before her fatal carriage accident. Returning to the present, Aika suddenly shrieks in terror at a massive armored figure standing before her. A towering knight clad in dark heavy plate armor stands imposingly amidst blooming red roses. Aika freezes in absolute shock as a familiar voice echoes from inside the helmet. The mysterious knight lifts his visor, explaining he dressed in full armor specifically to escort her to the grand banquet. The knight reveals himself to be a smiling Gerard, proudly wearing his shimmering plate armor. Aika excitedly compliments his impressive armor, while Gerard proudly admits he begged Leto for the outfit. He formally kneels before his young lady, his heavy metal armor clanking with absolute loyalty. Gerard gently takes Aika's hand, solemnly vowing to protect her with his very life. Aika anxiously worries about her uncle's safety, but Gerard reassures her that another knight will guard Leto. She happily declares him the absolute best guard, prompting a smug, satisfied grin from Gerard. Watching them, the worried maid sweat drops, questioning the absurd necessity of wearing heavy battle armor to a social banquet. Gerard enthusiastically boasts about polishing his armor all night, earning an adoring look from Aika and a sigh from the maid. The maid sweetly reassures Aika that Gerard's devotion is completely genuine and she is in safe hands. Overjoyed by the warmth surrounding her, Aika beams with a pure, radiant smile. The maid gently interrupts, reminding her that it is time to begin her essential banquet etiquette lessons. Encouraged by her energetic escort knight, Aika enthusiastically promises to do her absolute best. A beautiful, clear blue sky stretches overhead as the busy preparations begin in earnest. While studying diligently, Aika is thrilled to discover her missing tooth has already grown back perfectly. The next morning, a colorful designer named Esmeralda arrives to craft a collection of beautiful dresses. Leto asks his niece if she has chosen her favorite gown from the gorgeous selections. Twirling in her lovely new green dress, Aika complains that the hyperactive designer snatched it away the moment she pecked it. She eagerly declares her excitement for the upcoming event, though Leto playfully questions why she is so worked up. Leto's playful expression fades into a serious, calculated silence. He quietly calls out to his niece, preparing to ask a critical question. Aika tilts her head in curiosity, wondering what is on her uncle's mind. He hesitatingly brings up the day her grandfather visited the estate. Leto directly asks if Gerard told her he was injured, leaving Aika startled and defensive. He quickly denies any intention of scolding his bodyguard, claiming it is just a simple question. Aika nervously denies receiving any information from Gerard, trying to maintain her composure. Leto's sharp eyes narrow as he asks how she possibly knew to come running to his room. Panic sets in as Aika desperately tries to invent a lie to hide her secret ability to see the future. She awkwardly claims she merely heard his carriage, leaving Leto deeply suspicious as the high-stakes confrontation reaches a breaking point. Aika's heart races as she nervously tries to maintain her lie, terrified by her red-haired uncle Leto's uncharacteristically solemn demeanor. Leto lets out a theatrical sigh, completely disarming his niece, whose sweat drops at his sudden shift in attitude. Desperate to deflect, Aika dramatically recalls her sadness over his past battle wounds, prompting Leto to quickly reassure her that his arm is completely healed. Relieved that her uncle has dropped his intense questioning, Aika vows to be much more careful with her secret foresight in the future. Time continues to march forward under a starlit sky as the grand estate prepares for a monumental event. The long-awaited day finally arrives, and the lavish palace halls overflow with elegantly dressed nobles for the summer grand banquet. Under the starry sky, a grand carriage rumbles forward, carrying its high-profile passengers toward the royal palace. Inside the carriage, a nervous Aika confesses her anxiety to Leto, hoping she will get to meet her white-haired friend Rusby at the party. She eagerly anticipates their reunion, hoping they can cross paths as soon as they arrive. Her hopes are instantly crushed when her protective uncle delivers a blunt, stern rejection. Aika pouts in frustration, complaining that her elegant first banquet dress is being ruined by a clunky wooden name tag. Clutching the offending wooden accessory, Aika fumes that the forced identification has completely ruined her perfect outfit. Leto playfully teases his annoyed niece, laughing as he assures her that the name tag only makes her look even more adorable. At the party, a polished blonde boy and a stern red-haired girl watch the newcomers with keen interest. Aika enters the grand hall, her glittering blue dress immediately catching everyone's attention. The red-haired noble girl instantly drops her cold facade, gushing in absolute awe over how cute Aika's dress is. Taken aback by the sudden outburst, Aika freezes in silent bewilderment. Corbin quickly collects herself and delivers a stern, prideful lecture on the strict demands of high society etiquette for future leaders. The haughty young noble continues her intense lecturing, leaving Aika completely flabbergasted by her overwhelming energy. The aggressive lecture is suddenly cut short as a hand firmly intervenes. The charming blonde heir Louis Barocas steps in with a smooth smile, teasing his peer for being far too uptight and rude. The red-haired young lady, Corbin Laurel, introduces herself with a prideful but flustered huff. Louis quickly pivots to Aika, eagerly asking if the dark rumors surrounding her stay at the Marquise estate are actually true. Aika feels a pang of frustration, silently questioning why society spread such terrible lies about her beloved grandfather and uncle. A sudden wave of nervous tension washes over the young nobles as the atmosphere in the hall abruptly shifts. A hand rests firmly on the golden banister, signaling the arrival of an incredibly important figure. Whispers of awe ripple through the crowd as the commanding black-haired emperor makes his grand entrance. Addressing his noble guests, the benevolent emperor extends his warm wishes for a wonderful evening. Standing alongside her quiet, white-haired friend Rusby, Aika respectfully bows as the emperor approaches them. The emperor offers them a gentle, encouraging smile, wishing the children a wonderful time at the banquet. Overwhelmed by his royal grace, the girls blush furiously and eagerly shout their respectful assent. With his royal duty fulfilled, the emperor gracefully departs, leaving a trail of starstruck children in his wake. The young nobles instantly erupt into frantic, starstruck whispers, clutching their racing hearts over their brief interaction with royalty. Shaking off her shock, a friendly brown-haired girl warmly invites Aika to explore the banquet together. Aika blinks in surprise, touched by the girl's sudden kindness. The majestic chandeliers cast a warm golden glow over the bustling social gathering. Louis gets their attention, pressing a glowing blue jewel on his magical bracelet to demonstrate a special trick. Magical golden butterflies burst into the air, filling the room with the enchanting melody of a music box as the children watch in sheer wonder. Louis proudly explains that the magical artifact was a special gift from his father, leaving Aika thoroughly impressed. When asked about her own gifts, Aika casually mentions a doll and the academy, leaving Louis completely bewildered. Corbin points out present belief that an academy is an entire educational institution, questioning how such a massive thing could possibly be a casual gift. Louis is utterly humbled by her massive class difference, though Aika innocently shifts focus, begging him to show her the magical butterflies once more. His pride restored, the blushing blonde boy eagerly asks if she truly wants to see the magic again. Aika beams with a pure, radiant smile, completely melting his defense. While Louis happily prepares to repeat the trick, Resp stands in the foreground, looking thoroughly unimpressed and deeply annoyed. Aika tilts her head in mild confusion, realizing she has never actually seen anything like Rusby's reaction before. Suddenly, a silent hand reaches out toward the glowing jewel on Aika's dress. Rusp steps forward and reaches out to touch her jewel, claiming he only wants to examine it for a brief second. The instant his fingers touch the accessory, it unleashes a blinding, brilliant golden light. To everyone's absolute shock, a fluffy, golden magical beast materializes in a shower of brilliant sparkles. A sudden, piercing shriek echoes through the grand hall, instantly shattering the peaceful atmosphere. The source of the commotion is revealed as a fluffy, golden magical creature suddenly lands right on Aika's head, leaving her completely frozen in shock. Watching this bizarre spectacle unfold, the young nobles can only stare in absolute, jaw-dropping amazement. Their eyes sparkle with pure childlike wonder as they marvel at the adorable magical beast that just materialized out of thin air. The excited brown-haired girl turns to her peers, eagerly asking if the accessory she touched was actually a powerful magic tool. Smiling warmly, Rusp casually admits he simply forgot to mention the accessory's magical properties when he first gifted it to her. Completely enchanted by the cute creature, the brown-haired girl cannot help but gush over the cuddly golden beast. While the blonde boy realizes this magical artifact is exclusively coded for Aika, the prideful red-haired girl pouts in intense jealousy, wishing she could have one too. Aika excitedly tells Rusby how the creature climbed up her hair, leaving her envious peers throwing a comical tantrum in the background as the white-haired boy nods in quiet amusement. Beaming with joy, the young girl proudly displays her glowing accessory, thrilled by how perfectly it coordinates with her elegant blue dress. Wanting to share in the joy, Rusby pulls out a beautiful handkerchief, proudly revealing that he kept her special gift. The sweet, genuine bond between the two children shines through, casting a warm light over the busy ballroom. In a silent gesture of deep trust and friendship, they gently hold hands, cementing their unspoken promise. Under the warm golden glow of the palace chandeliers, the festive banquet continues to buzz with high society energy. While the children happily share sweet treats, a cynical older noble observes from the sidelines, complaining that the young girl is acting far too comfortable. The calculating gray-haired nobleman lounges on a luxurious velvet sofa, his cold eyes tracking every movement in the crowded hall. His companion agrees, noting how shocking it is that such an energetic and prominent child was hidden from high society for so long. Swirling his dark wine, the gray-haired man grows suspicious of the emperor's sudden, highly strategic announcement of a new princess.
He secretly analyzes the monarch's moves, realizing the seemingly gentle emperor is playing a deeply calculated game of political chess. Convinced of a hidden conspiracy, the nobleman desperately searches for concrete proof of the girl's connection to the crown when he is suddenly interrupted. A loyal informant leans in, whispering a highly confidential update directly into his ear. A dark, cunning grin spreads across the nobleman's face as he realizes a golden opportunity has just fallen right into his lap. Anticipating the upcoming drama, the noble watches with dark amusement while Aika remains blissfully unaware, happily devouring her fluffy cake. Meanwhile, Corbin crosses her arms defensively, her prideful expression returning as she prepares to reassert her status. Feeling a sudden shift in the room's energy, Aika turns her head, her curiosity instantly piqued. Breaking her tough exterior once more, Corbin demands to know Aika's name while simultaneously gushing over her adorable dress, leaving Aika utterly bewildered. Before Aika can even answer, Corbin suddenly holds up a hand and aggressively lectures her on the strict rules of high society etiquette. She dramatically commands Aika to act like a true future leader, insisting that perfect manners are absolutely non-negotiable for nobility. Thankfully, the charming blonde heir, Louis Baracus, smoothly intervenes to tease the uptight girl for being such a massive party pooper. Flustered by the interruption, Corbin quickly clears her throat and proudly introduces herself as Corbin Laurel. Sensing an opening, Louis pivots the conversation to address the wild, terrifying rumors surrounding Aika's family home. He goes on to describe the creepy supernatural tales of restless spirits haunting her grandfather's dark estate. To Aika's absolute horror, the boy eagerly reveals the final rumor, claiming that all the maids are actually highly trained assassins. Aika fiercely denies these ridiculous claims, though she secretly panics, wondering if the rumors about her terrifying household might actually have some truth to them. The dramatic tension is broken as the Grand Emperor begins to gracefully make his exit from the main ballroom. Seizing the moment, the friendly green-eyed girl extends a warm invitation to explore the banquet together. Just as they prepare to move, Louis asks about the mysterious gift, bringing them right back to the central puzzle. The blonde boy blushes, asking if she truly wants him to perform his magical butterfly trick once more. Meanwhile, Ruspa stands in the background, looking thoroughly unimpressed and deeply annoyed by the blonde boy showing off. Suddenly, the adorable golden creature squeaks happily, stealing everyone's attention with its incredible sparkling cuteness. The children's eyes widen in sheer delight as they're completely captivated by the magical beast's radiant charm. The excited girl turns back to Aika, completely amazed that Rusp was the one who gifted her such a spectacular magical item. Aika beams at her quiet friend while their jealous peers throw another comical tantrum, completely envious of their unique bond. Radiating pure joy, Aika proudly shows off her wooden tag, happily declaring that it actually complements her beautiful outfit perfectly. To her delight, Rusby reveals he is carrying the special handkerchief she gave him, proving just how much he treasures their friendship. Deep in the shadows, the gray-haired noble continues to stew over the Emperor's calculated announcement, plotting his next political move. His informant whispers a crucial piece of news, signaling that a dangerous conspiracy is already beginning to take shape. A sinister smirk plays on the noble's lips as he prepares to strike, while Aika remains blissfully unaware of the dark storm gathering around her. The lavish palace halls stand quiet for a brief moment, masking the high-stakes political intrigue brewing beneath the surface. Aika's face suddenly lights up with pure joy as she spots her beloved grandfather, completely shattering the tense atmosphere of the ballroom. Just when Aika thinks her night of secrets is safe, the brown-haired nobleman smiles warmly, noting how much fun everyone seemed to have. A cheerful brown-haired girl in a plaid dress gushingly praises Aika's cute squirrel, leaving the nobleman entirely bewildered by the mention of the mysterious pet. Running forward with absolute joy, Aika promises to show him later, prompting the smiling nobleman to ask if they should get moving. Dressed in a magnificent starry blue gown, a glowing Aika waves a bright, heartwarming farewell to her newly made friends. Standing outside the grand venue, her new friends wave back enthusiastically, shouting their promises to meet her again very soon. Cradling the young girl in his arms, the nobleman softly asks Aika if she made plenty of friends, and she beams with pride. Turning her head back, the joyful girl seeks confirmation from her dearest companion, the silver-haired Prince Ruspi, who smiles in agreement. A fleeting memory of her new friend's laughing faces fills Aika's heart with warmth and a deep sense of belonging. Looking on with a mixture of fondness and quiet longing, Ruspi softly acknowledges that they were truly wonderful kids. As the carriage departs, Aika looks back with a sudden, subtle hint of concern mirroring the quiet tension in the air. Noticing her gaze, the young prince tilts his head, wondering what could possibly be on his dear friend's mind. Flashing another brilliant, reassuring smile, Aika promises that next time they will hang out with just the two of them. Her sweet invitation catches Ruspi completely off guard, rendering him speechless amidst a soft, glowing aura. A tender, peaceful smile spreads across his face, cementing the unbreakable bond between the two childhood friends. Stepping out of the venue, Aika cheerfully waves goodbye, bidding her companion a fond farewell as she departs.
Suddenly, a shocking whisper catches her ears, causing her golden eyes to widen in sheer disbelief. From the shadows, two dark silhouettes discuss a mysterious matter, confirming that a secret operation has been going exceptionally well. Her heart racing, Aika turns back in horror, instantly recognizing the dark, familiar voice that shouldn't be here. Two cloaked figures exchange chilling orders in the woods, triggering a traumatic memory of the terrifying carriage accident. Determined to uncover the truth, she resolves to get a clear look at their hidden faces no matter what. But before she can take another step, she is suddenly yanked backward, letting out a sharp gasp of pure shock. The brown-haired nobleman holds her gently, suggesting it is time to sleep, while she nervously struggles to find her words. A powerful hand suddenly reaches down, firmly grabbing her sparkly blue dress to prevent any further escape attempts. Lifting her up effortlessly like a doll, her formidable red-haired Uncle Castle scolds her for blocking the path, providing a hilariously dramatic rescue. Her chibi uncle strictly orders her to sit properly for the ride home, completely ignoring her comedic, flustered protests. Back at the estate, a disgruntled Aika blows angry bubbles while sinking deep into her warm bathwater. Her gentle, green-eyed maid urges her to step out of the tub before she catches a cold, smiling at her cute stubbornness. Sitting patiently in her white nightgown, Aika lets her caring maid gently dry her long black hair with a towel. The maid warmly explains that she was stuck in another section of the banquet and missed seeing her grand entrance. Instantly brightening up, the adorable chibi girl excitedly rambles on about all the fun games and delicious cake she enjoyed. The smiling maid playfully predicts that Aika will soon receive elegant invitations, sparking the young girl's curious wonder. A beautiful array of formal, high society letters and invitations glimmers, waiting to be delivered to the young lady. The maid explains how these exclusive gatherings allow the noble children to enjoy sweet treats while building powerful alliances. Bouncing with sheer excitement, Chibi Aika squeals at the thought of bringing delicious pastries to their future meetings. Sitting in front of the mirror, the young girl is suddenly stunned as she catches sight of her stunning reflection. Gazing down at the gorgeous red plaid brooch on her nightgown, she recalls her formidable uncle's strange words from earlier. The scene shifts to the carriage riding under a glowing moonlit clock tower, filled with the tense whispers of a secret discussion. Inside, Aika questions her uncle about the magical brooch, while the red-haired Castle coldly insists it is no such thing. Calling her a little liar, the teasing uncle dismisses her story, sending her into a comical fit of fury as she denies it. Back in her room, she repeatedly presses the sparkling gemstone, utterly frustrated that the magic refuses to trigger. Suddenly, her golden eyes flash with a brilliant light as a stunning realization finally dawns upon her. She realizes that if the brooch were a simple magical tool, her silver-haired friend would have surely told her. A sweet flashback reveals Rusby carefully explaining how to pin the stunning red accessory when she is fully dressed. Staring at her reflection, she softly whispers her dear friend's name, sensing the deep secrets he might be hiding. Memory Rusby beams with a brilliant, heartwarming smile, admitting he simply forgot to mention how the accessory worked. Her maid looks on with a soft, affectionate expression, smiling at the young girl's endearing obsession with her friend's gift. Clutching the precious red brooch tightly to her chest, Aika feels a swell of deep determination in her heart. She recalls how much the young prince seemed to struggle while using his mysterious powers at the Grand Imperial Palace. Resolving to protect him, she decides to warn him against performing such dangerous stunts in front of others. She remembers his solemn warning that keeping his magical abilities secret is paramount to their safety, leaving us eager to see how she protects his secret. Dazzling under the bright blue sky, the Grand Imperial Palace stands ready to host the Empire's most powerful noble families. Her caring maid gently adjusts a bright red bow in her hair, reminding her that today's host family is a trusted pro-emperor ally. With a warm, loving embrace, the maid bids the black-haired girl a wonderful and worry-free afternoon at the tea party. In a playful parting exchange, the stubborn girl comically rejects the maid's reminder to wear her uncle's special protective necklace. The sleek black carriage rolls down a sun-dappled forest path, carrying the young lady toward her grand debut. To ensure her safety, her guardian spent days hand-selecting only the most harmless noble invitations for her first visits. The carriage finally arrives at the towering gates of the grand and beautiful estate. Stepping out of the carriage with elegant posture, the young lady prepares to make her first real step into high society. Radiating confidence in her cherry-patterned dress, she proudly celebrates successfully dodging her uncle's protective tracker. Spotting her from across the garden, her sweet brown-haired friend runs forward with pure joy to welcome her. Holding hands warmly, the two girls joyfully express how excited they are to finally hang out together. Turning toward the garden, the sweet hostess happily prepares to introduce the other young noble guests. Adorable but perfectly poised, a red-haired girl named Corbin steps forward to introduce herself with flawless aristocratic grace. A cheerful blonde-haired girl named Hayes introduces herself with a sweet freckled smile and a warm greeting. Smiling brightly, Aika introduces herself and warmly suggests they drop the stuffy noble formalities and speak comfortably as friends. A dramatic slam of a hand instantly shatters the friendly atmosphere with shocking intensity. Flaring up with a comically fiery aura of fury, Corbin strictly forbids such casual, unaristocratic behavior. The intense red-haired girl passionately demands that they adhere strictly to the rules of high society etiquette. Declaring that she has mastered proper etiquette, Corbin vows to drill the rules of high society into her terrified friends. The girls stand completely petrified by Corbin's surprisingly terrifying drill sergeant energy. Pushing up her shining glasses with absolute authority, the young instructor prepares to launch her strict etiquette lesson. Pointing to a chalkboard with a pointer, Corbin begins lecturing her captive audience on the strict rules of tea party etiquette. The three girls sit in stunned silence as Corbin aggressively warns them to always use formal, respectful language. Aika comically tries to wave off the pressure, pleading with their strict friend to let him speak comfortably. Corbin instantly shuts her down, pointing a comically giant, scolding finger directly at her face. Just as the tension peaks, a servant's cart rolls near, carrying the future of the Empire's afternoon refreshments. The sudden arrival of delicious tea and Aika's special mystery gift instantly interrupts Corbin's intense scolding. Corbin's eyes widen with sparkling curiosity at the mention of a special guest's offering. A stunning tray of freshly baked cupcakes topped with thick cream and fresh fruit is presented. Warm, fragrant tea is elegantly poured, setting the perfect stage for their sweet afternoon feast. Their sweet hostess warmly welcomes everyone to the table, proudly introducing her personal favorite tea blend. Excitedly gesturing to her cupcakes, Aika announces she will show them the absolute best way to eat them. Corbin gasps in utter horror as Aika breaches noble etiquette by grabbing a cupcake with her bare hands. With a blissful smile, the black-haired girl takes a massive, unaristocratic bite of the sweet treat. Aika excitedly urges everyone to try eating it with their hands, leaving Corbin to spiral into absolute despair. While Corbin screams in horror, Aika casually ignores her, continuing to encourage their friends to take a big bite. To Corbin's utter shock, Leary surrenders to temptation and takes a giant, happy bite of her cupcake. Corbin's despair doubles as Hayes joins the rebellion, happily chomping on her cupcake with her bare hands. A wave of absolute sweetness fills the air as the girls realize how incredibly delicious the treat is. Holding their flushed cheeks in pure bliss, the two girls gush over how the cupcakes instantly melt in their mouths. The girls offer a weak, happy apology to Corbin, but admit they simply cannot resist the incredible flavor. Chewing happily, Hayes praises the rich, buttery flavor and gently encourages their strict instructor to try one too. Sweating under the intense temptation, Corbin resolves to stand strong and set a proper example of high-class etiquette. With dramatic determination, Corbin picks up a fork and knife, declaring she will eat her cupcake properly. She carefully uses her silver cutlery to cut a pristine, polite slice of the cupcake. Under Aika's amused watch, Corbin daintily lifts a single piece of strawberry on her fork. Daintily chewing with her hand over her mouth, Corbin experiences the incredible taste for the very first time. Wiping her mouth with a napkin, Corbin desperately tries to play it cool, admitting the cream is quite sweet. When Larry asks if there is a way to eat cookies, Aika suggests breaking them and dunking them in milk, causing Corbin to scream in comical agony. Holding her cookie in suspense, Aika's golden eyes widen in shock. What terrifying new lesson will her intense friend unleash next? A formidable dark green-haired man with a mustache suddenly interrupts the tea party, addressing Leppy in a condescending tone. Recognizing the formidable intruder, a startled Aika immediately questions why young Duke Nodium is present at her friend's house. Clearing his throat, the smug Duke mockingly acknowledges the girl's polite manners before preparing to deliver a harsh critique. Glaring down coldly, the hostile nobleman aggressively questions what the young Valyart brat is doing wandering around unattended. Exploding with absolute fury, the hot-tempered Aika fiercely stands up and demands to know why he is intruding on her private invitation. While her friends tremble in fear, Aika stubbornly refuses to back down, boldly retorting that she has no respect for bad adults. Emphasizing her pure outrage, the furious young girl comically stomps her foot on the stone path. Throwing her arms out protectively, Aika bravely shields her terrified friends and demands to know who he plans to bully next. Completely taken aback by her defiance, the comically sweating Duke reveals he actually came to meet Count Dime. Refusing to ease up, the fiercely loyal girl warns him to stop bullying her friends, recalling his past cruelty toward Rusby. Mocking her fierce temper, the Duke dismisses her anger and weakly claims his harsh words are only for his word's own good. Sensing the heated commotion nearby, a handsome brown-haired nobleman pauses in surprise as he approaches the garden. Turning in annoyance, the green-haired Duke wonders who is interrupting his tense argument with the stubborn young lady. The elegant host, Count Bruce Deem, finally arrives, radiating a warm and gentle presence under the bright blue sky. Flustered by the host's arrival, the sweating Duke quickly tries to brush off the argument while maintaining his prideful title. Shifting instantly into a doting father, Count Deem beams with pure joy as his sweet daughter runs to welcome him.
Gazing up in complete wonder, Aika is stunned by how perfectly the handsome count resembles her dear friend Lepi. Wrapped in a warm, loving embrace, the doting father happily acknowledges Aika's presence with a bright smile. Polishing her high society manners, the polite young lady warmly thanks her handsome host for the gracious tea party invitation. The gentle host politely invites the flustered Duke to proceed to the drawing room, leaving the children to their play. Watching their warm departure, a quiet longing fills Aika's heart as she wishes she had a loving father too. A sweet, hazy vision of a silver-haired father figure holding her up and smiling warmly fills her mind. Snapping back to reality, the grumpy Duke scolds her for staring, prompting Aika to comically deny looking at him. Adorably puffing their cheeks in mutual annoyance, the two rivals turn away from each other with synchronized huffs. Once the adults leave, Lepi and Hayes worriedly ask Aika why she behaves so rudely toward the intimidating Duke. Looking deeply contemplative, Aika ponders her intense protective instincts as she prepares to explain her fiery outburst. Summarizing the Duke's harsh behavior toward Rusby, the black-haired girl leaves her friends completely stunned by the shocking revelation. Sweat dropping nervously, Lepi gently reassures Aika that the Duke might just express his care in a harsh manner. A sweet flashback reminds Aika of Rusby's gentle smile as he defended his strict guardian's true intentions. Realizing the truth, Aika silently reflects on how both Lepi and Rusby share the exact same gentle perspective. With a touched heart, Aika admits she was simply terrified that the harsh Duke would bully her precious new friends. Deeply moved by her fierce loyalty, a beaming Hayes warmly squeezes Aika's hands in a sweet gesture of gratitude. In the fiery background, Corbin flares up with intense jealousy, aggressively demanding to join their sweet circle of friendship. Golden tea ripples softly in a porcelain cup, bringing a calm and peaceful lull back to the afternoon. Pausing mid-sip, Corbin gazes at her friends with a sudden expression of deep curiosity and realization. Turning directly to Aika, the red-haired girl begins to ask a surprising high-society question that catches everyone off guard. Catching her friend's curious gaze, the black-haired girl looks back with wide, sparkling golden eyes. A serene breeze rustles through the beautiful garden terrace, setting a peaceful mood for their intimate conversation. Sitting perfectly poised, Aika listens intently as her friends prepare to discuss a highly delicate topic. Blushing furiously, a flustered Lepi joins the discussion, eagerly asking Aika to clarify a rumor about her relationship. Aika's stunned reflection ripples in her teacup as she processes her friend's shocking question about romance. The girls curiously ask if her close bond with the handsome prince means they are officially dating. A sweet, heartwarming flashback reveals a younger Aika and Ruspa laughing happily as they hold hands in the sunlight. She recalls her fierce, fiery determination to protect Rusby whenever he faced sadness, realizing how deeply she cares. Gasping in sudden realization, Aika is completely overwhelmed by the true depth of her feelings for her friend. A beautiful, glowing vision of a smiling, silver-haired prince warms her heart with absolute affection. In her romantic daydream, she sees a loving couple holding hands, symbolizing a deep and eternal bond. Completely shocked by Aika's intense reaction, Corbin gasps as she realizes the rumors might actually be true. Smiling with pure, radiant joy, Aika proudly declares that her precious bond with Ruspe will never change. Overwhelmed by the pure sweetness of Aika's confession, Lepi holds her cheek, completely melted by the romantic revelation. Lepi agrees to change the subject, feeling quite embarrassed after discussing their romantic rumors. A serene afternoon breeze rustles through the green garden, signaling a peaceful transition. Gerard stands ready by the carriage, smiling as the wonderful visit comes to an end. The girls bid each other a warm farewell, excitedly planning an embroidery meetup next. Aika notes Corbin's unusually quiet mood and wonders if her strict friend enjoyed the afternoon. Corbin nervously clutches her floral yellow skirt, hesitating to speak up. She suddenly turns back to face her friends, catching the black-haired girl off guard. Corbin bluntly critiques their poor etiquette but promises to try harder next time. Blushing furiously, the proud girl awkwardly declares she will try calling Aika by her first name. Aika bursts into pure radiant joy at her strict friend's adorable breakthrough. Smiling warmly, Corbin holds Aika's hands and accepts her sweet offer of close friendship. The attendants smile warmly as they witness the young lady's touching moment of bonding. The sun begins to set, painting the sky in beautiful hues of orange and gold. The carriage rolls down the dirt road as Aika begins her journey back home. Inside the carriage, Aika excitedly tells Zenda about her absolute happiness today. Zenda laughs warmly, sharing in her young lady's immense joy. Aika thoughtfully praises Corbin's mature yet adorable personality to her maid. Gerard strongly agrees with her sentiment, claiming children should simply enjoy being young. Aika points out how remarkably similar Lepi looks to her handsome father. She fondly recalls the doting Count Deem embracing his beloved daughter. Zenda looks surprised by how deeply the gentle Count's doting nature impressed the girl. Behind her smile, Zenda secretly worries of seeing their close bond made Aika feel lonely. When Aika mentions Corbin's pony riding lessons, Zenda worries that proper lessons might be too dangerous. Aika gazes up with a pair of irresistible, pleading golden eyes.
Zenda relents and promises to ask the master, sending the black-haired girl into pure excitement. Aika confidently notes that riding her special white horse is effortless thanks to her unique abilities. She happily whistles, daydreaming about riding double with her dear prince in the future. Suddenly, a sinister presence with glowing eyes lurks in the dark foliage, shattering the peace. The driver screams in terror as the carriage is violently thrown off balance by a sudden impact. Inside the cabin, the occupants are violently tossed around as the horses screech in panic. A hand frantically shields Aika's face as desperate screams echo through the chaotic carriage. Aika lies dazed as her vision warps, the panicked voices of her attendants fading into a distorted hum. A long-buried, ominous memory of two cloaked figures suddenly flashes through her mind. She recalls a blood-soaked hand from the fateful day of her mother's tragic accident. Gerard desperately checks on Aika as she gasps for breath, trying to process her sudden flashback. Gerard orders Zenda to guard the young lady while he steps outside to assess the danger. Trembling in Zenda's protective embrace, Aika realizes she has finally unlocked her lost memories. She vividly remembers the sinister voice of a certain silver-haired elderly noble present at the accident. Alongside him, another unidentified voice whispered in the shadows of that dark day. The conspirators had searched for a specific missing item, frustrated that it was already gone. Aika realizes they were hunting for the sacred jewel she had swallowed, a secret known only to her mother. Gerard returns to the carriage cabin to reassure his traumatized young lady. He explains that a wild beast caused the sudden crash, and they will resume their journey shortly. Zenda promises to call for a doctor immediately, while the shaken girl weakly nods. Overwhelmed by fear, Aika realizes the dangerous enemies who targeted her mother are still out there. Under the quiet moonlight, the carriage finally arrives safely at the grand estate. The handsome red-haired guardian is relieved to hear that Aika has recovered and eaten her dinner well. However, Gerard confesses that a completely different matter regarding the young lady has been troubling him. He notes that Aika seemed deeply affected by seeing the close bond between Count Diem and his daughter. Gerard reports how intently Aika watched the doting father, hinting at the quiet longing in her young heart. A heavy silence blankets the study as Aika's guardian commands Gerard to proceed with his report. He bitterly reflects on Aika's origin, admitting his protective fury toward her unknown biological father. He remembers her innocent questions about family, wondering if she secretly longs for a father figure. Before he can dwell on his worries, a sudden soft presence interrupts his deep thoughts. He turns in curiosity as a soft knock echoes against the door. Aika sheepishly peeks into the room, surprising her guardian with her late-night visit. Stunned by her presence, he blinks as he tries to process her sudden appearance. He calls out her nickname, wondering what could have kept her up so late. He demands to know why she is awake, causing the young girl to squeak in surprise. She nervously stammers as she simply couldn't sleep, throwing the question back at him. Sensing the awkward tension, she quietly decides to retreat back to her bedroom. She softly wishes him a good night as she turns to leave his study. She walks away slowly, leaving her guardian standing alone in the quiet hallway. He suddenly pauses, a clever idea flashing in his mind as he looks back. He calls out to stop her, questioning if she is really leaving so soon. He playfully teases her, claiming he thought she came to sleep by his side. Overjoyed by the invitation, she gasps in pure delight while he warmly consents. Without hesitation, he sweeps her up in a gentle and reassuring embrace. Carrying her close, he lovingly asks what he can do to help her fall asleep. Resting her chin on his shoulder, she whispers his name as he gently pats her back. Enveloped in absolute warmth, her heavy eyelids slowly flutter shut as sleep takes over. He cradles her sleeping form, reflecting on how exhausted she must be after the carriage accident. As night deepens over the estate, he feels relieved she found peace so quickly. The next morning, quiet footsteps echo as a new day begins. Heavy footsteps follow closely behind, hinting at a shadow looming over her. Aika spins around in confusion, realizing her uncle is persistently trailing right behind her. She demands to know why he is following her, and he simply blames her constant running. With a dark, knowing glint in his eyes, he prepares to call her bluff. She gasps and reflexively covers her mouth, realizing her secret might be out. She desperately acts clueless, but he instantly points out her hidden loose tooth. He notes her breakfast choices and mouth-covering habits, completely trapping her in her lie. He channels his inner demon to terrify her about crooked teeth, leaving her trembling in absolute dread. Petrified by his grim warning, she frantically asks for confirmation, which he cheerfully delivers. He flashes a brilliant grin, promising a completely painless solution to her problem. Maid Zenda trembles in anxiety as she holds the infamous tooth-pulling string. The thread is securely tied around the tiny loose tooth as tension mounts. She bursts into tears, screaming in absolute terror of the impending yank. She desperately begs to back out, but her guardian holds the thread tight. Gerard heroically steps forward, promising his young lady absolute protection in her hour of need. She tearfully questions how he plans to protect her, leaving the bodyguard completely tongue-tied. He suddenly produces pom-poms, cheering enthusiastically to motivate her through the pain. Furious, she screams that cheering is useless and accuses him of being just like her uncle. He tells her to close her eyes and promises to pull only after counting to 5. Squeezing her eyes shut, she tremblingly begins the terrifying countdown. With a mischievous look, her uncle quietly counts to Pooh. He shamelessly yanks the string on 3, completely betraying their deal. She rages over his betrayal, while he casually dismisses it since the deed is done. The tiny tooth dangles triumphantly in the air, a successful heist accomplished. She blinks in disbelief at her painless tooth while her smug uncle smiles in victory. Overwhelmed by the sudden shock, she bursts into a comical mix of tears and confusion. Screaming in absolute betrayal, the young girl reacts to her uncle's sudden sneaky tooth-pulling stunt. She vents her immense rage, loudly labeling her uncle a complete dummy for tricking her. The red-haired guardian innocently questions if the quick pull actually caused her any pain. Sobbing dramatically, the little girl throws a tantrum and declares her absolute hatred for her lying uncle. He watches in stunned silence as his dramatic niece turns and bolts from the room. The worried maid chases after her crying young lady while the men stand completely bewildered. A defiant shout echoes through the corridor, rejecting any further attempts at communication. Her uncle shouts after her, demanding she get her mouth disinfected before running off. She sticks her tongue out defiantly, completely rejecting his advice with a childish mock. Her uncle sighs in defeat, questioning where she could have possibly inherited such a fiery temper. She storms out through the giant mansion doors to find her own quiet sanctuary. Looking down, his golden eyes soften as a bittersweet memory suddenly flashes through his mind. He recalls his late sister Saria explaining that children should express their emotions freely. In his memory, she insists that protecting a child's innocence is an adult's ultimate duty. She passionately vowed to ensure that young Aika would grow up experiencing true emotional freedom. The siblings once stood on a sunny hillside together, bonding over their shared training swords. She envisioned her daughter growing up honest, laughing and crying without any restraint. Clenching his fist, the red-haired guardian wonders why this specific memory surfaced so suddenly today. Gerard approaches with a warm grin, ready to tease his master about his parenting skills. Annoyed by his guard's amusement, his uncle prepared to shut down the teasing immediately. He hilariously kicks Gerard away, ordering him to go watch over the fleeing young lady. The scene transitions to the beautiful glowing stained glass dome of the Grand Archives. Aika complains to her giant pink bunny plush, Lepus, who asks about her tooth and mentions a new discovery. She tilts her head in curiosity, wondering what new mystery has been uncovered. The pink bunny taps a thick, ancient book decorated with a mysterious circular crest. She picks up the book as Lepus explains they found it hidden among unread materials. The pink companion reveals that the book was personally written by her late mother, Saria. Wide-eyed and stunned, the little girl tries to process that this book belonged to her mother. She opens the cover of what she realizes is her mother's personal notebook. Determined to find answers, she decides to organize all the clues she has gathered so far. She recalls hearing 3 distinct suspicious voices during the fateful carriage accident of her childhood. She identifies the first voice as the elderly noble and the second from the imperial banquet. The third voice belongs to a mysterious cloaked figure she has yet to identify. She realizes these foes targeted her mother to steal the sacred jewel she accidentally swallowed. She suspects the second voice belongs to a noble faction actively opposing her own family. Lepus gently asks if this notebook will provide any real help in her investigation. She beams with pure joy, confidently declaring that the book is extremely useful. The page reveals complex diagrams, secret codes, and hand-drawn maps left behind by her mother. She happily asks Lepus and her purple snake friend, Sir, to assist her in solving the mystery. A new morning dawns over the grand sunlit palace as her search continues. Under beautiful white roses, her uncle asks if she is heading back to the archives today. He remarks that she is putting her special travel artifact to excellent use lately. She cheerfully confirms her plans, while he teasingly warns her not to lose another tooth. She snaps back defensively, shouting that she does not care if another tooth falls out. She accuses her uncle of planning another prank, while he sweat drops and denies pulling healthy teeth. Smiling, he requests she return early because an important old guest is arriving tomorrow. He waves her off, reminding her to eat her meals while she plays in the archives. Walking down the hallway, Gerard notes how frequently the young lady has been visiting the archives. Gerard happily remarks on her rapidly growing vocabulary, calling it the ultimate reward of raising a child. Smug and proud, her handsome guardian smiles warmly, boasting about his incredible influence on her upbringing. In the quiet corridors of the Grand Estate, a dark conspiracy begins to unfold as the red-haired guardian and his trusted bodyguard walk in deep discussion. The brown-haired bodyguard delivers a grim update about a suspicious noble named Belfoy Roges. He warns that this powerful noble is secretly pulling strings behind the scenes with a dangerous associate. Hearing this, the red-haired guardian calmly orders him to maintain strict surveillance on their target. He clenches his fist, silently resolving to let the enemy dig their own grave before striking them down. To ensure his niece's absolute safety, he instructs the maid to keep a watchful eye during class. Meanwhile, bright morning light floods the majestic halls of the palace, signaling a new day. A luxurious breakfast is meticulously prepared, setting the stage for a cozy morning meal. Eating at the massive dining table, the guardian warmly advises his niece to slow down and eat carefully. The little girl merely glares at him with puffed cheeks, holding her food in silent protest. Confused by her sudden silent treatment, her uncle gently asks what is bothering her. He playfully nudges her, trying to figure out how long she intends to ignore him. She remains stubbornly quiet, her adorable face filled with deep suspicion and unresolved anger. Dumbfounded by her persistent silence, the red-haired guardian tries to guess the root of her frustration. In her mind, she recalls her mother's secret wardrobe, determined to find a clue hidden inside it. Her uncle guesses she is mad about her pulled tooth, but she quickly dismisses his theory. In a desperate attempt to apologize, he inadvertently confesses to ruining her favorite doll instead. He continues to dig his own grave, questioning if she found out about his secret snack ban. He even wonders aloud if she is angry about him accidentally trampling her garden flowers. Having heard enough, she slams her hands down, realizing her uncle was behind every single mishap. She explodes in adorable fury, pointing an accusing finger at her cluelessly guilty uncle. She delivers her ultimate threat, screaming at the top of her lungs that she is running away. Her dramatic declaration echoes throughout the entire palace, leaving everyone in complete shock. Meanwhile, in a dark and secretive room, a heavy fist slams down in absolute fury. The elderly noble demands to know why his pawn has failed to kidnap the young girl. The terrified teacher begs for mercy, promising he has already manipulated the palace maid to help them. Tired of empty excuses, the ruthless mastermind refuses to accept any more delays in their plot. He violently threatens the teacher's life if the young girl is not delivered immediately. The cruel mastermind storms out of the chamber, leaving his trembling accomplice alone. Clutching his head in panic, the stressed teacher curses his employer's impossible demands. He gazes out into the night, reassuring himself that his manipulation of the maid will succeed. Cloaked in shadows, he prepares to execute his sinister plan to kidnap the young girl very soon. The next morning, a bright sun rises over golden flowers, masking the imminent danger. The grand estate stands peaceful under the blue sky, completely unaware of the looming threat. Armed with a massive backpack, the pouting young lady prepares for her grand escape. The red-haired guardian tries to offer a warm apology, but his niece stubbornly rejects it. He teases her about her heavy backpack while she proudly confesses that the guards helped her pack. He dramatically asks if she can really bear to leave her loving uncle behind. He tries to gain her sympathy by acting weak, but she effortlessly exposes his dramatic lie. He exaggerates his past injuries to guilt her, but she points out he is holding the wrong arm. Seeing his guilt trips fail, he smugly reveals her grandfather won't be visiting today. Shocked by the devastating news, she frantically asks when her grandfather is coming instead. A written note confirms the uncle canceled the visit to take the child out himself. The red-haired guardian smirks triumphantly as he enjoys teasing his completely defeated niece. He brilliantly pivots, offering to buy her favorite flowers instead of running away. She complains about his rare generosity, pointing out he never takes her out when asked. Standing near the massive gates, he confidently asks if she is ready to go. Realizing her escape is ruined anyway, she adorably pouts and agrees to join him on the trip.